Every time a male mates, a beast mark will be left on his arm. The more beast marks on his hand, the more females he has been favored by. However, the 5 extraordinary beastmen in front of him have bare arms. It turns out that their wife is a scarred ugly woman who, relying on her noble status, forcibly married them. Last night, the wife even drugged them forcefully, wanting to obtain her beast husband, but ended up fainting after hitting the wall during the struggle. After receiving the original owner's memories, Sumuyo felt a headache. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw a man kneeling on the ground, claiming to be starving and unwell, unable to serve his wife, and begging for punishment. Looking at the whip marks on the man's body, Sumuyo couldn't help but frown. She had been exiled to the cold northern Luo tribe, and on the way of exile, the beast husbands had suffered serious injuries to protect her, yet the original owner would only beat and scold them. However, Sumuyo felt the changes in her body. It turned out that her predecessor had already been poisoned, which was why she was irritable and angry. You get up first. Coming from the apocalypse, she was not used to seeing people kneel. Hearing this, Xiao Jihan couldn't help but shiver. If the wife is dissatisfied with Jihan, she can divorce him, and Jihan will have no complaints. As soon as he finished speaking, a charming and enchanting man, Hua Linye, walked in. Since the wife wants to divorce, why not divorce me as well? Saying this, Hua Linye took out paper and pen and placed them on the table. His gaze cold and with a hint of disgust. Sumuyo, who had come to her senses, wished she could immediately dissolve the relationship, but she found that her wood-type abilities had actually weakened. In such a dangerous tribe, where she could encounter enemies from the Beast Emperor city at any time, she still needed the protection of the beast husbands. No need to rush. If you can protect me from harm within 3 months, I will let you go, and I will naturally give you a divorce certificate then. Hearing this, Hua Linye and Xiao Jihan were both stunned. They couldn't believe that their wife would be so kind, especially since she had just drugged Xiao Jihan. But the shouting outside interrupted their confusion. Big sister, come quickly and take a look. Your beast husband has been severely injured by a magical beast and is about to die. Hearing the shout, Sumuyo hurriedly ran to the courtyard to check the situation, only to see a few people carrying a fainted blue snake into the yard. The female beast, Lin Qin, looked at Wen Nanchi and sighed. Big sister, your beast husband has suffered serious injuries and can no longer maintain his human form. Although it is normal for orc casualties to occur in the exiled tribe, it is truly a pity to lose such a handsome beast husband like this. Seeing the blue snake lying on the ground, Xiao Jihan and Hua Linye felt a sense of helplessness. Perhaps they too would die here silently. Sumuyo sensed that the breath of the snake beast husband was extremely weak, and hurriedly stepped forward to place her hand on Wen Nanchi's head. Seeing this action, Hua Linye's face changed dramatically. What are you going to do? He is about to die, and you still won't let him go? In a moment of panic, he even forgot to call her wife. Sumuyo had no time to pay attention to them. At this moment, she was using her weak wood-type ability to heal Wen Nanchi's injuries. Watching the injuries heal, Lin Qin's eyes nearly popped out. Big sister, you actually have the ability to heal injuries. Sumuyo entered Wen Nanchi's spiritual sea through her supernatural ability. She saw a huge green snake in the bamboo forest, but at that moment, the snake's eyes were very dim. The weak Wen Nanchi still remained gentle and softly called out, "Wife." Hearing his weak voice, Sumuyo's heart softened. Don't worry, your injuries will gradually heal. I won't let anything happen to you. Then, a green light surrounded Wen Nanchi's entire body, and his painful body seemed to be bathed in warm sunlight. Wen Nanchi, still recovering from his surprise, softly said, "Thank you for your hard work in healing me. Wife, there is no need to thank me, this is something I should do." In the beast world, when a female marries a beast husband, the beast husband has the obligation to care for and protect his wife, and the wife also has the obligation to heal her husband and soothe his spiritual sea. After an unknown amount of time, when Nanchi's injuries had mostly healed, and only then did Sumuyo stop her actions. However, due to the excessive consumption of her wood-type supernatural ability, she fainted the moment she stopped. In that instant, the snake's body transformed into a human form, and when Nanchi quickly embraced her, gently carrying Sumuyo into the house. Watching this incredible scene, Xiao Jihan and Hua Linye both exclaimed, "She actually awakened her supernatural ability, and it's a healing ability. I've never heard of a female beast awakening a supernatural ability." She was somewhat different from before. No matter what, she was willing to use her supernatural ability to heal Wen Nanchi, which is a good change. As soon as they thought about the lack of food at home, Wen Nanchi, Xiao Jihan, and Hua Linye decided to go hunting together the next day. The few beastmen still needed to rely on Sumuyo for their livelihood and could not let her come to harm, because if Sumuyo died in the exiled tribe, they would have to accompany her in death. When she woke up again, it was already the next morning. Through the water basin, Sumuyo could finally see her own appearance. Because she had been poisoned, one side of her face had turned black and disfigured, only by detoxifying could she restore her looks. As soon as she came out of the room, she saw Nanchi chopping wood in the yard. The morning sunlight cast on him gave a sense of ethereal elegance. Seeing Sumuyo approaching, Nanchi appeared even gentler. "Wife, you're awake. Did you sleep well last night?" At that moment, Sumuyo was still not used to interacting with the beastmen and could only nod in response. Worried that his wife might be hungry, Nanchi took 2 red fruits and 2 bird eggs from the kitchen and handed them to Sumuyo. "Now there's only this little food at home. I'm sorry for you, wife. They have already gone hunting and should be able to catch some food." Sumuyo was well aware of the survival environment in the Beluo tribe. Wild beasts and magical beasts often roamed the surrounding forests, making it not easy to obtain food. "Let me cook today," she said, and then walked into the kitchen to make tomato and bird egg soup. After it was done, she served 2 bowls and placed them on the table. Upon learning that the red fruits were found in the ancient Toon forest, Sumuyo's expression changed. "Nanchi, after we finish eating, accompany me to the ancient Toon forest. I want to gather some food and medicinal herbs." When Nanchi's gentle and picturesque eyes sparkled, it was the first time she expressed a desire to go to the forest, and he thought he must protect his wife well. Seeing that Nanchi had no intention of drinking the soup, Sumuyo suddenly remembered the matter of the poison she had put in yesterday and felt a bit embarrassed. Don't worry, I have no thoughts about you guys right now, and there's no poison in the food." In fact, Nanchi was worried that there wouldn't be enough food and that Sumuyo would go hungry. Hearing her say this, he picked up a spoon and started to taste the soup. As soon as it went down, he showed a look of surprise, saying, "It's simply too delicious." Seeing the man's expression, Sumuyo finally felt relieved. "Then you drink it all, and later we will go into the mountains to find more food, and I will cook for you again." Among the 5 beast husbands around her, only 3 often appeared, and she had no substantial relationship with them. Given the need for protection at the moment, only Nanchi was the most suitable. The environment and climate of the beast world were very good, with many primitive forests, which greatly benefited Sumuyo in recovering her abilities. After tidying up the tables, chairs, and dishes, Nanchi transformed into his true form, a snake body, and crawled in front of Sumuyo, saying, "Please, my wife, come up." Sumuyo directly sat on him. As they passed through the tribe, many beastmen showed looks of surprise. "No way, Sumuyo actually went out. I heard that her snake beast husband was going to die yesterday, and she used her abilities to save him." The 2 ignored these voices, and the snake body leaped up directly, as if flying in the air. Sumuyo instinctively hugged Nanchi, and for a moment, his snake body stiffened. Arriving at the place to gather red fruits, he quickly set Sumuyo down, but his ears were a bit flushed at that moment. Seeing so many tomatoes, Sumuyo's eyes lit up, but unfortunately, there were no good tools to collect the fruits. After looking around, Sumuyo sat down to weave a basket with vines. Nanchi sat not far away, watching Sumuyo's nimble movements, and his picturesque eyes became deep and enchanting. "If you feel bored, you can take a walk around, but if I encounter danger, I might have to call you over to protect me." Nanchi nodded. There isn't much food at home either, so it's just right to look around and hunt some wild animals for food. After preparing the backpack, Sumuyo began to pick tomatoes. While she was busy, a sudden wave of dangerous energy surged in. Just as Sumuyo turned around, a huge beast pounced towards her. Without thinking much, Sumuyo shouted and leaped up, quickly climbing the nearby tree. Hearing the cries for help, Nanchi rushed over, his eyes showing a look of surprise. He didn't remember Sumuyo could climb trees. Without a moment's hesitation, Nanchi quickly engaged in battle with the beast. At that moment, Nanchi exuded a cold and fierce aura like frost and snow, and the bone knife spun rapidly, shooting towards the beast like a blade of wind. Just as the beast dodged at high speed, the bone knife spun again, and Nanchi leaped down, elegantly and effortlessly dispatching the beast. Sumuyo's eyes widened as she watched this scene. She could tell that Nanchi hadn't used a bit of strength at all, and had easily solved this beast. It can be seen that warmth and elegance is only on the surface. He is actually strong. The predecessor did not even have a bit of strength alien ability. In the end, how did he dare to provoke these beastmen? And each one of them is so crazy and abusive. Aren't they afraid they can't stand it and kill her? Although she was the wife and master, if they killed her, they would have to be buried with her. But there's always some secret way of getting people to die without them realizing it, isn't there? Thinking of the memory of the 5 beast husbands that the predecessor dissolved the relationship with, each looking at her with eyes that couldn't get her killed, Sumuyo was a little tearful. "Wife, master?" Nanchi watched Sumuyo never responded, so he leaped up into the tree. Hearing the voice, Sumuyo returned to her senses for a moment, and then she saw Nanchi's clear and refined picturesque eyebrows in front of her, so caught off guard. Sumuyo instinctively wanted to avoid it, and she couldn't help but step back. But this is among the branches of the tree. Sumuyo stepped back, and her entire body directly fell from the tree. When Nanchi jumped down and caught Su Muyo in midair. Is wifey alright? Su Muyo was being held by Wen Nanchi at this moment, and could smell the elegant and good-smelling scent of his body, which seemed to be able to easily confuse people's minds. Su Muyo thought of the way he had just killed the beast, thinking of the way her predecessor had abused him. Her body couldn't help but stiffen up. I'm fine, just let go of me. Yeah, just put me down. Su Muyo said these words and didn't dare to touch Wen Nanchi. This one loathed her touch, and it was better for her not to touch and provoke. There were too many instances of killing each other in the post-apocalyptic world, and Su Muyo instinctively protected herself. When Nanchi looked down at Su Muyo in his arms, it was the first time he had ever hugged her, and the person in his arms was not surprised. Her face was pale and wary, and her body was even more rigid. The long eyelashes moved like feathers. Unlike her usual paranoid and crazy eyes, today her eyes were clear and clean. It's still really different from what she used to be. When Nanchi's complexion darkened, instantly lifting a hint of brimming waves of light, whispering hoarsely in her ear, "Wife master, this is afraid of me?" Su Muyo's shell teeth bit her lips and softly said, "No, how could it be?" Just finishing her sentence, she froze. She raised her head to look at Wen Nanchi, but all of a sudden she met the brimming dark color under his eyes, as if a dark whirlpool was going to swallow her. Su Muyo suddenly felt that she might not know anything about this snake beast husband Wen Nanchi. At this time, he looked extremely dangerous and different from his usual gentle appearance. Is it hard to believe that's his camouflaged protective color? But she wanted to come down. Wen Nanchi just held her and didn't let go. Su Muyo couldn't move even if she struggled a bit. She was still weak in her powers, now unable to resist Wen Nanchi's power. Wifey would have liked me to hold you like this before. Su Muyo's eyelashes fluttered. The predecessor is like but she is not the predecessor She smiled faintly and snapped, "I don't want to be reformed." Su Muyo instinctively felt that Wen Nanchi had some suspicions about her whatsoever. She wanted to say something else, but just at this time, a soft and adorable voice suddenly rang out in her mind. "Host, I'm finally awake. So happy that the host is still around." Su Muyo heard the voice of the space system in her head and used her mind to communicate with it. "It's good that you're fine. Then are the things I've hoarded in my space also there?" The space system had followed her since she was conscious from birth. In the post-apocalyptic world she was able to easily hoard supplies and awaken her powers to survive, all with the help of the space system, and very protective of her. Even though it's a space system, they have feelings. The space system softly explained, "Host, the end of the world when you upgraded your supernormal ability to cross over after the apocalypse and crossed over to this world. I also followed the injury, and now the space authority is restricted. Only half an acre of land. Those supplies can only be opened a little bit after upgrading." Su Muyo had hoarded countless supplies during the end times and kept them in the space villa. Her space was supposed to have a large range. The supplies could not be used for the time being, and there was nothing Su Muyo could do if she was anxious. What's the opportunity for that upgrade? The space system spoke. It's when the host releases varying degrees of authority by being intimate with the Beastman. This time the host is the one who cuddled intimately with the Beastmaster so I could wake up. Su Muyo sighed a little. How could she have never imagined that the opportunity for space to appear was like this? And wanting space to lift certain permissions and to get close to the Beastmaster? The space system seemed to think of something and said, "Host, if you have a substantial relationship with the Beastmaster, that's that sauce stuffing, the space upgrade will be faster, and you'll be able to open the supplies quickly." The corner of Su Muyo's mouth twitched. "If you want me to live, don't say this." It looked like she'd have to find food on her own for now. When Nanchi looked down at Su Muyo's complexion, seeing how wonderful the expression on her face was, a promising look swept across the bottom of her eyes. Rather more interesting. Su Muyo communicated with the space system and then returned to her senses. This will when Nanchi put her down. Su Muyo hurriedly separated herself from Wen Nanchi by a long distance. She came to that beast and said, "Can this beast meat be eaten?" "This beast cannot be eaten. It is a mutant." Su Muyo knew that there were many wild beasts in this mountain forest, but there were also mutant beasts. And mutant beasts had poison on them that could not be eaten. Just like mushrooms, some are poisonous and can't be eaten, and some are not poisonous and can be eaten. Su Muyo then stopped caring about the dead beast and continued picking tomatoes in earnest. When Nanchi didn't say anything else, but went up to automatically help. Soon the basket was full of tomatoes. She also wanted to find some other food or find some herbs. Su Muyo was looking for something nearby. Just then, the space system excitedly said, "Host, I can now detect things in a 100-meter radius. There are sweet potatoes underneath the grass 100 meters ahead." Chapter 5, Ingredients Everywhere. Su Muyo's expression all moved when she heard the space system's words. Sweet potatoes. With sweet potatoes, there will be food to eat today. Sweet potatoes which are great for making all kinds of goodies. And sweet potatoes are so productive that you can grow them if you plant a field. System, you're so great, with sweet potatoes. I won't have to go hungry today. Sumu Yao didn't expect those two beastmen to get food for her hunt. The space system said excitedly, "Host, if you walk forward a bit, I can also help detect the food around you. Within a 100-mile radius of the host, I can probe." Sumu Yao smiled and said, "Good, but for now dig the sweet potatoes." Sumu Yao came to the place where the space system said, and peeled back the grass to see the sweet potato leaves. Sumu Yao quickly picked some sweet potato leaves. When Nanshi didn't go any farther, but followed Sumu Yao for protection. He froze for a moment as he watched her pick some grass off the ground. "These are?" Sumu Yao explained. "These are sweet potato leaves, which can be used to make a lot of food." After a moment's pause, thinking about some of the perceptions of food in this world, she spoke, "Trust me, these aren't grass." According to the memory of the predecessor, everyone in this Beast World continent didn't know about sweet potatoes as a food. It was the Beast Emperor city, the most prosperous and bustling place, where people didn't know there was food growing underground. Everyone eats almost all the food on the ground. After a moment's pause, Sumu Yao blinked her clear and soft eyes and looked at Wen Nanshi and said, "Wen Nanshi, can you help me dig under this ground?" Wen Nanshi met her soft eyes and listened to her light and soft tones, and his complexion moved slightly. She used to order them to do things and never spoke to them in a nice voice, not to mention softening the tone like this. Wen Nanshi said softly, "Good." Then he poured his psychic energy into the bone knife in his hand and dug straight down. He exerted a force, and a big swirling pit appeared directly on the ground. Some sweet potatoes were revealed, but again, the ones were broken right open in several pieces by the forcefulness of what had just happened. Sumu Yao hurriedly said, Don't push so hard. There's food down there." When Nanshi movement paused for a moment, a red block of stone food under the ground. In their perception, food grows on the ground. He looked towards Sumu Yao's serious look and eased his strength and movements to dig the dirt, then dig out one food item after another. Sumu Yao looked at these sweet potatoes, her eyebrows arched and brightened up, all with a smile in her eyes, watching Wen Nanshi digging it out to get the soil clean and put it in the basket. She whispered, "Thank you." Wen Nanshi froze for a moment. Really, he had never heard her say the word thank you before. Wen Nanshi looked at her intently and said with a dumbfounded smile, "This is what I should have done in the first place. One carrier in one basket is simply not enough to hold all this food." Fortunately, Sumu Yao had space, and she directly loaded the sweet potato into the space. When Nanshi watched as many things on the ground disappeared out of thin air, he seemed to realize something, and even if he was a calm and collected person, he revealed an extremely unbelievable look at this time. When Nanshi murmured in a low voice, "Space?" Sumu Yao nodded. "Well, I also have spatial ability. To live well in the exile tribe, space is also important. Go out and hunt and pick food can use space to store things. It's easy to use." So she had no intention of hiding such an extraordinary ability, and by showing her powers, it also gives the beastmen something to worry about and be afraid of, so that they don't think in their minds every day about how to kill her to get back at her. Hearing Sumu Yao's affirmative words, Wen Nanshi's heart all smacked of shock waves. Not only does she have healing powers but she also has spatial powers? Space can store foodstuffs, and very few beasts in the Beast World continent can awaken space powers. Healing powers are even rarer. He'd also never heard of any dual system powers. Wifey does look different than before. At this time, it was as if she was covered with layers of mystery, uncovering one layer and another. "I said I wanted to reform and live well too, and let you go free after 3 months, so don't be in a hurry to deal with her and kill her. They'll be free in 3 months. When Nanshi didn't say anything else, Sumu Yao packed a lot of sweet potatoes in the space. "There are mushrooms and fungus next to here. Let's pick some mushrooms and fungus to go back. These are poisonous." When they were in the Beast Emperor city, mushrooms in this black ear were poisonous, and it was knowledge that everyone knew from childhood. Sumu Yao explained, "Some mushrooms are poisonous and some are not, and the fungus is not poisonous when handled properly. Anyway, if they don't believe in not eating it, she'll just eat it." Sumu Yao didn't care what Wen Nanshi thought. She picked mushrooms and fungus by herself. After walking forward for a while, the space system spoke again. "Host, there is ginger and green onion 100 meters to the left." Sumu Yao rushed to dig. "With onion and ginger you can make a lot of food and deodorize it. With this food, at least you won't have to go hungry for a few days." Presumably, because of the killing of one beast, there aren't any more in the neighborhood for a while. Seeing that it was getting late, they were ready to go back first. When they went back, when Nanshi once again manifested the snake body, Sumu Yao sat on it in a disciplined manner and didn't dare to move around, much less hug. But when Nanshi was speeding so fast that the wind was rushing past his ears, Sumu Yao didn't even sit still and almost fell off. When Nanshi gently supported her with his tail and said, "Wife master can hold me tight." Hug. Hugging tight? Didn't he dislike her proximity and holding? In the middle of the day, she remembered the moment she'd hugged him, and he'd gone snake stiff and hated that he couldn't shake her off. It was extremely subtle, but she could feel it. No. Sumu Yao just wanted to refuse. The space system screamed, "Host, quickly hug him, hold him tightly, even if it's just a hug. After a long time, the space will drop a little bit of small permissions." Sumu Yao resigned herself to hugging Wen Nanshi. The moment he hugged Wen Nanshi, he seemed to slow down a bit. Sumu Yao would be able to look down at the mountain scenery, just in time to see a river at the valley with clear water, and she saw fish in it. Those fish were huge. Many were 5 or 6 pounds, and even all were around 10 pounds. Once you compare them, those 2 or 3 pound fish are considered small. Wen Nanshi, let's go to the river to catch fish. Wen Nanshi landed at the place by the river, this time transforming into human form to gently hug Sumu Yao before gently placing her on the ground. Sumu Yao even felt that his attitude towards her had changed a bit. "Wifey, want to catch fish for fun?" "No, I want fish," Wen Nanshi said with a clear and elegant smile. "Good." She used to hate eating this fishy fish food, and it's all thorns. Someone from the tribe was so hungry before that they couldn't stand to catch a fish to eat, but they got stuck in the thorns and died. That's why the tribesmen also rarely eat fish. Wen Nanshi directly used her wind system's supernatural ability to make a roll on the water surface, and more than a dozen fish landed on the shore. Wen Nanshi picked some more grass to put each fish through. Even doing this, the movements are so elegant and reserved. Sumu Yao thought that if there was more fish than he could eat, he could make fish balls. While preparing to go back, Sumu Yao also found river snails and river shrimps in the grass by the river. Sumu Yao's eyes all lit up. The Beast World continent is so much better than the end times. The supplies are so rich, there are ingredients everywhere. Chapter 6, Hatred in the Heart. When Nanshi asked in a warm voice, "Do you still need it?" He continued to catch fish if he needed to. Sumu Yao shook her head and said, "No need, these are enough." But she found a lot of good stuff here on the river. "Come back here for food when you need it." Sumu Yao put all this food into the space, and when Nanshi drove her home, the sun had not yet set when they returned to the stone house. Sumu Yao looked at the sun to guess the time. It was probably around 4 in the afternoon. At this time, neither Xiao Silkan nor Hua Raini had returned. When Nanshi took the initiative to explain, Xiao Silan and Hua Raini went to hunt in the mountains and forests. They may have traveled farther, and they should be back by nightfall. Sumu Yao faintly said, "It's fine, they can come back whenever they want." In fact, Sumu Yao wanted to say that it was fine if they didn't come back. It would be just as well if these two disappeared like the other two beast husbands, and the food they got today would be enough for her and Wen Nanshi. Wen Nanshi carefully looked at Sumu Yao's expression and found that she didn't care. If it were before, she would have cursed a few times. Wen Nanshi said softly, "Wife, master has been tired all day. Go rest first, I'll go cook." Sumu Yao spoke, "You don't know how to make these foods, let me do it." Sumu Yao had originally planned to make steamed fish for dinner, but now she changed her mind. A fish weighs 5 or 6 pounds, and some weigh more than 10 pounds, just right for fish noodles. We don't have flour now to make fish with, but we can make plain fish pasta with fish. She looked at the salvaged fish. There were several that would be suitable for pure fish pasta. When Nanshi was curious about what she was going to do, when he was in the Beast Emperor city, he had also eaten all kinds of food, but he had never heard of sweet potatoes, sweet potato leaves and anything like ginger and scallions. When Nanshi washed her hands and then went up to offer to help. "What can I do for you?" Sumu Yao said. "Help me wash the mushrooms and fungus and the sweet potato leaves." "Good." When Nanshi took the wooden basin and went to the yard to wash these things, Sumu Yao also took a wooden basin to receive water from the water tank, and then began to handle clear a fish. Next, use a boning knife to fillet the fish from the center, making it easier to get the whole head and bones off. Fish heads and bones can be made into soup. The fish can then be used to make plain fish noodles. The most important step is to scrape the fish with a knife to make mincemeat. Sumu Yao's knife work was fast. The space system said, "You can see the host cooking again. The host's cooking can be so fragrant, but it's a pity that the system can't eat it. You're just a system and you can smell?" The space system said, "When I follow the host, I possess feelings. The host is especially good, and I like the host the most. Hearing the space system's words, Sumu Yao's heart went all soft. "I'd like you to try some of the food I make, too." Unfortunately, the space system is non-physical. The space system said, "But I can smell and feel wonderful." Just then, a voice came from outside the door. "It's Rinkuya Hana who's back." He carried back a boar straight away. When Hua Raini saw the things in the courtyard, her magnificent eyes sank for a moment. "Did you bring these things back? You're hurt that bad, and he won't let you rest so you can get food?" When Nanshi said, "Not really, this is all the food that wifey picked." The corner of Hua Raini's mouth hooked up in a faint arc, and her fox eyes took on a cold hue as she said, "When Nanshi, aren't you sick of her too? Don't she just used her powers to heal you once and you're speaking for her? No female beast wants to come into the kitchen, let alone this wifey of ours." When she said this, Hua Rainey's tone was a bit heavier. And don't forget what she did to you before. Who knows what tricks she's pulling this time. Hua Rainey didn't believe that Su Muyao would suddenly change for the better. In the past, in order to get them, Su Muyao did everything she could, also pretending to lose her memory and pretending to get better so that they would let down their guard and trust her. She ended up going even further than before. When Nanchi's action of washing the sweet potatoes gave a start, gazing intently, Hua Rainey, wife master is in the stovehouse. You can go and take a look if you don't believe me. When Hua Rainey heard these words, she then looked over towards the side of the stovehouse. Then he saw Su Muyao who was busy inside the house. For a moment, Hua Rainey even thought she was hallucinating. At home, Su Muyao that is to be clothed and fed, all things to be done by them. Of course it was natural as a beast husband to take care of his wife and master, but Su Muyao didn't treat them as beast husbands and treated them as slaves. Almost died several times and went through physical and mental torture. How could they not treat her as a wife and master when she was like this? They are inwardly disgusted and bent on staying away. Flower Rinky Knight had psychic strength and excellent eyesight, and she could even see that she was extremely fast with her knife work. I can't believe I'm filleting fish. What is she going to do? Cook? Eating fish? Doesn't she loathe that fishy smell the most, and hate the spines? Su Muyao is hard on food. Even now that she was exiled here, she had to dislike the prey they had worked so hard to get. Verbal abuse and whippings are light enough, and knives are used when you're mad. Some beast meat is too stinky and fishy to eat yet, and they are not so picky about wild boar meat. When Nanchi knew that Hua Rainey had hatred in her heart, he said softly, in the morning when you guys weren't there, she also made the breakfast. That sour red fruit. She makes a delicious soup. Hua Rainey was obviously not convinced. He was silent enough to go to the side and pick up a bone cutter to cut off the skin and cut the pork. When Su Muyao heard the sound and movement, she looked over towards the courtyard and saw Hua Rainey who was working in silence. She remembered that her predecessor had once, because she was mad at Hua Rainey, taken advantage of the fact that he was seriously injured to reveal his true form, and had to strip his fox skin to make a beast skin. The truth was that Hua Rainey's fiery red fox fur was indeed noble and colorful, and looked good. Thinking about these memories gave Su Muyao a bit of a headache. There was no odor, and if she wrote them a letter of repudiation now, they could turn around and kill her after they dissolved their relationship with her. Su Muyao's eyes lit up as she looked at the boar. Pork rinds can be beaten for pork skin jelly, and lard can be used to boil oil. Lard can also be used to simmer oil, and although it doesn't yield as much oil as lard, it makes a crispy fry when simmered. It can be eaten as a snack. She knew that in this beast world, beasts had extraordinarily large meals, especially beasts with extraordinary abilities like when Nanchi had a high food intake, but they are constantly hungry. After Hua Rainey cut up all the boar meat and packed it in wooden pots, she saw that there wasn't much water in the water tank and carried 2 wooden buckets to fetch water. Anyway, they can't be idle when they get home. Hua Rainey seemed to think of something. His eyes were numb, and his heart was suffocating and he couldn't breathe. Xiao Silkhan came back just in time to see Hua Rainey carrying a bucket of water, and seeing that his face didn't look right, he asked, "What's wrong? What did she do to you again?" Hua Rainey looked gloomy and said, "Didn't do anything, was cooking in the stovehouse." Why did she ever go to the stovehouse to cook? She hasn't been in the cookhouse since she was a little girl and can't cook at all. But all of a sudden you go and cook. You don't think she's going to try to poison us this time, do you? Chapter 7, The Unthinkable. A dark light also swept across Xiao Silken's cool brows. Yesterday she tried to get him, but he fought tooth and nail, didn't dare use her powers, and had to be careful to avoid her. But she also drank the drug too crazy, and looked like she wouldn't stop until she got him. She accidentally hit her head on the wall. The reaction afterward was a little off. As per usual, she would have found a way to retaliate 1,000 times over for his defiance. Yesterday was my fault. She might not have been more paranoid if I hadn't resisted. Hua Rainey looked at Xiao Silkhan and said, "I know, with your heart nature you would rather die than let her touch it. I was thinking the same thing, so you don't have to dwell on it. It would be easy to disappear for a long time like Mei Qingdan and Shen Ruyan to ignore her." Mei Qingdan and Shen Ruyan were Su Muyao's other 2 beast husbands. These 2 people didn't dissolve their relationship with Su Muyao, but they disappeared without a trace, and Su Muyao couldn't do anything about them. One can only spill gas on them. Xiao Silkhan converged his expression, covering the sad and lonely look under his eyes, and spoke in a clear voice. Both of them have powerful forces and backgrounds behind them, and there is a specialized secret method behind the family that can restrain the beast husband's contract, so even if Su Muyao were to die, they'd still be alive and well. But we can't. Both he and Rinkuya Hua had their own body of work. If they couldn't protect Su Muyao well and let Su Muyao die, they would have to be buried with her. Hua Rainey revealed a puzzled expression and said, "You said that since they have such strength, they were able to forcibly dissolve the contract when they were in the Beast Emperor city. But why did they still have to follow through with being exiled and come to this place?" Hannah Rinnigan couldn't even figure it out. Xiao Silken's brows were frosty as he said indifferently, perhaps they have a reason for wanting to come here. The two talked for a while and decided it was better to skip dinner. It's not that they're afraid to die. It's just that they're not living for themselves, so they can't die. When Xiao Silkan came back, he carried a small bucket of bird eggs and a hare and put it aside. He didn't glance toward the place where the cookhouse was, either. It seemed that even looking at Su Muya was too dirty for his eyes. He said to Wen Nanshi, neither Hua Raini nor I will eat dinner. Wen Nanshi sighed in his heart and said, wife master is not the same as before. It's better to eat together. All three were Su Muyao's beast husbands and were originally in competition. The beast husbands of other females often fought for favor, but they never fought, probably because neither had feelings for Su Muyao, plus fellow sufferers, I guess. Not to mention the fact that so many forces on the road to exile assassinated Su Muyao. There was no lack of forces from those 5 beast husbands before Su Muyao. They fought together to protect her, so it wasn't like they were hostile. Xiao Silkan wouldn't trust Su Muyao to change for the better at all, and he didn't refute Wen Nanshi's words. He just shook his head and said, we're not hungry, we'd better not eat. Wen Nanshi went to the stove house and said this to Su Muya. Su Muya looked at the pot full of minced fish she had gotten and said, I prepared dinner for the 4 of us, as much as she wanted to leave them alone. But the predecessor had done something so extreme that she could easily lose her little life playing if she didn't improve their impression. If she was strong, she naturally didn't care about them, but she didn't even have first-order strength now. Not to mention that those 2 did bring back food. Hate her for what she is. Food should be brought back and brought back. When Nanshi said, I'll send it to their room at night. Good. The space system said, host, they're afraid you'll drug them. The corner of Su Muyao's mouth twitched. No wonder. Su Muyao cooked quickly, boiled out the oil with lard and fried a pot of tomato scrambled eggs, made fish soup again and made plain fish noodles, and baked sweet potatoes. Su Muyao packed 2 plates of scrambled eggs with tomatoes, some baked sweet potatoes, 2 large bowls of fish noodles as well as a large bowl of fish soup. The fish noodles and fish soup made by Su Muyao didn't smell fishy at all, but instead tasted extraordinarily fresh. To make sure she wasn't drugged, she ate the food and drank the soup in front of Wen Nanshi. I didn't drug it, much less poison it. After a pause, she added, I'm counting on you guys to protect me and find food for me to eat. There's no way you're going to get killed. Wen Nanshi's eyes were warm and soft. Well, I know. They'll eat it. Wen Nanshi took the food to Xiao Silken's room and then called Hua Raini over to eat with her. Hua Raini hadn't recovered from her previous injuries, and today, in order to specifically hunt the wild boar, she ran into a mutant beast, which caused some more injuries. He kept the pain at bay and didn't let anyone know. I didn't want to eat, but for some reason I smelled a strong flavor. This, coupled with what Wen Nanshi said, made Hua Raini feel out of place. She would be kind enough to cook for us? Wen Nanshi said, wife master has tasted them all in front of me and used cutlery. Don't worry, she hasn't drugged them, and wifey is right. She still needs to rely on you guys to find food to protect her. She's not going to get you killed. If it was Su Muyao's words, they didn't believe them, but they believed Wen Nanshi's words. It was true that Hua Raini and Xiao Silan hadn't eaten anything all day, and they were hungry at this point. Hua Raini hesitated or picked up the cutlery to eat. These foods are strange. In the past, when I ate at the Beast Emperor City restaurant, there were scrambled vegetables with eggs, and this is the first time I've seen scrambled fruits. It's fish soup. Can I drink it? There was some skepticism in the heart of Flower Rinse Knight, but smelling no strange flavors, I took a spoon and tasted the soup anyway. He was all baffled. I'm surprised this fish soup doesn't smell fishy at all. The soup is clear and white with a rich and fresh taste. Wen Nanshi smiled and said, next to this is noodles made from fish. Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini heard the expression of noodles for the first time. It's only when they taste it that they realize how absolutely delicious it tastes. Not to mention sweet potatoes and scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Every single one of them is delicious. Neither of them spoke again afterward, just ate in silence. They had to admit, it was really tasty. They didn't expect that in such a remote exile tribe, they would still be able to eat food that overshadowed the Beast Emperor City. They wouldn't have believed it if they hadn't eaten it themselves. At the same time, their hearts were covered with heavy doubts and a very incredible feeling. Su Muyao can recognize food and cook? Seeing that they really ate, and knowing what kind of food it was all about how to eat it, when Nanshi went back to the stovehouse. At this time, Su Muyao was sitting at the table in the stovehouse, looking at him coming back. Her eyebrows arched as she said, you're back, let's eat together. Saying that, Su Muyao waited for Wen Nanshi with chopsticks. Wen Nanshi had thought that Su Muyao had already eaten up long ago. Wen Nanshi's heart and mind moved. Is wife master waiting for me? Yeah, we cooked together, so naturally I'm going to wait for you to eat with me. The predecessor ate only by himself, but in Su Muyao's opinion, they were now a small group team. To live well in this tribe, small groups have to be fed. Eating well is the only way to quickly improve your powers. solve dangers and hunt to find food. She was sober, and while each of them was so stunningly beautiful, they were toxic, can be fatal. She wouldn't be stupid enough to get into any kind of relationship. Chapter 8, Turning Waste into Treasure. When Nanchi met Su Muyao's eyes and only felt that those eyes were so beautiful and soulful, her eyes curved up when she smiled seemed to hold a pool of moonlight, clear and clean, luscious and delicate, as if spreading out layers of sunlight that can easily shine into one's heart. When Nanchi's eyes moved slightly, his warm and elegant face took on a soft look. Good. After he sat down, Su Muyao handed him chopsticks and a spoon. Only then did she begin to eat. Su Muyao used her chopsticks to hold the fish noodles and ate them, one bite at a time, not in a hurry, not a sound at all. During the meal, she was so focused that she didn't bother to look at Wenanchi. In the Beast World continent, everyone ate only 2 meals a day, and after working all day, she was starving. The fish noodles were also topped with bird eggs and boiled sweet potato leaves. It tastes good too. When Nanchi ate his dinner, and every single thing made him feel incredible. It turns out that fish can be made so delicious by eliminating the spines. It didn't even smell like fish at all, and she's quiet and elegant when she eats. Each food item shocked Wenanchi. After Su Muyao ate almost as much as she wanted, then she thought of something. She looked up at Wenanchi. She found Wenanchi eating. Every move was elegant and noble, as if he was an honorable son of the world. In fact, she wasn't sure about Wenanchi's origin in life. Like remembers that it was the father of the predecessor who brought him back once, and instructed her to treat him well. Is the food still appetizing? Wenanchi said in a warm voice. Well, it's delicious. If your wife wants to eat something, you can say the steps and I'll do it, so you don't have to work hard. Su Muyao smiled and said, it's fine, it's just idle, and I like to cook good food. In the post-apocalyptic world, ingredients are limited and extremely valuable. Sometimes you have to drink nutrient solution. Coming to the beast world, though, the culture and food are backward, but the air environment is pure and unpolluted. The supplies are so plentiful, and the ingredients are all organic. She can make all sorts of goodies. It made her happy. And you can also burn a fire for wood-fired meals. In the end times, it's impossible to even make a wood-fired meal with firewood. When Nanchi looked at Su Muyao's bright and moving expression and knew that she was telling the truth. Then I'll give you a hand from now on. Good. Su Muyao didn't refuse. When Nanchi had supernatural powers, and a lot of work sat up easier than her. After eating her fill, Wen Nanchi naturally cleaned up the dishes. This was also the first full meal Wen Nanchi had eaten after the exile. Su Muyao then went to the courtyard to burn grass and wood ash. She wanted to use the grass and wood ash to wash all the pigs' offal. The time now is the beginning of the 7th month of the lunar calendar according to the time of the last life. It's still a little hot during the day, and these porks are prone to spoilage if not handled properly. It's not that easy to fight for food in the forest now, and there are dangers. So there was a little bit of food that she didn't want to waste. It just doesn't have the spices. If it did, you could make marinara. It is said that there are various stores and pharmacies in the nearby towns, and some of the tribesmen go to the nearest town to exchange salt and some daily necessities such as clay pots when they have hunted. There might be spices if the apothecary, but to redeem the spices, you'd probably need a lot of meat and animal skins. Those mushrooms that were picked back, she planned to dry them all in the sun, and then grind them into mushroom powder, which could be used as a seasoning. There are also fungus ears that are dried, packed, and when you eat them, just soak them. The other side. After Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini had eaten their fill, both of them were silent as they looked at the empty bowls and plates. They didn't realize there was such good food. Hua Raini said, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it was her cooking. I can't believe it's so delicious. I've never had food like this before within the family. Xiao Silkan whispered, according to the rules, we should be the ones to take care of her. She shouldn't be the one to cook for us. Although Su Muyao insulted and scolded them in various ways and did things with a ruthless heart, making them loathe them, but they grew up with a deep-rooted mindset in their bones. It's up to them to cook for their wives and masters. Hua Raini said helplessly, is it because we don't want to cook for her? It's because she's always picking on our cooking, the food she worked so hard to make. She lifts the table when she gets angry and would rather throw it all away than let us eat it. And all three of us take turns cooking, too. Even if the three of them went out to hunt, they all had to leave one person at home to protect Su Muyao and take care of her, while the other two went out to look for hunting for food, because it's safer here than outside, even though it's inside the tribe. But it's possible that some raging, crazed mutant beasts could break into the tribe and kill people. That's why everyone is being extra cautious. It's as if the sun came out of the west today. At this moment, Rinkuya Hana had a feeling of unreality. After a moment's pause, Hua Raini said suspiciously, when Nanchi said that she's different from before today, can it be that it's true? A fluctuation flared up in Xiao Silken's cool eyes. He hadn't thought much about it before, but when he thought about it at the moment, it seemed like her eyes had been different since she'd woken up after hitting the wall. At the time he thought she was thinking of new tricks to use against them. Is it hard? Realizing a speculation within his heart, Xiao Silken's complexion all changed, but he wasn't sure. Take another look. Don't fall for her trap. Hua Raini got disheveled all of a sudden. That's right. Let's clean up the dishes first. Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini packed up their things and sent them to the stovehouse. When they came out of the house, they saw Su Muyao sitting in the courtyard, busy with her work. They all thought they were hallucinating. Hua Raini all used her supernatural ability to see. Even if she used her supernatural ability to see, it was still Su Muyao. Su Muyao heard the voice behind her and didn't turn around to look over. When Nanshi cleaned up the dishes, wiped the table and scrubbed the floor, and cleaned up before coming out of the stovehouse, Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini took the dishes and chopsticks and went in to wash up. When Nanshi saw Su Muyao in the courtyard, he also revealed a hint of surprise and came forward to say softly, "What does wife master need to do?" "I'll do it. Nothing right now. Just clean these up." When Nanshi's expression shifted when he saw what was being scrubbed in Su Muyao's basin. Usually when hunting brings back wild beasts, these things are thrown away. Can't eat it either. But after eating the food made by Su Muyao today, when Nanshi knew that she had a way of making her own food and could turn waste into treasure, Su Muyao patiently explained, "These are actually good things too. As long as you scrub them with grass ash to make good food, you can eat them. You can keep all of the beasts' downfall from now on." When Nanshi, "I won't let you guys go hungry in the future." When Nanshi heard these words, he looked at her serious eyes. His heart softened, and his eyebrows became gentle. "Well, I trust my wife's master. It's just that it's our duty not to let our wives and masters go hungry. May there be something I need to do?" Su Muyao said, "Those sweet potatoes, I'm going to cut them all into fine pieces. That way she can use a small portion to boil sweet potato candy to flavor her cooking later. Most of it is used to make sweet potato starch, which you can use for gourmet meals later." She then planted sweet potatoes in the space field at night. The space crop grows fast and yields more. "Okay, I'll do these." And at this time, Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini finished cleaning up the dishes and chopsticks, and the two of them stayed in the stovehouse without moving. Seems to want to do something about it. She used to like to take a bath after she ate. Let's boil the water first then. Chapter 9 Protecting Her. Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini remembered all of Su Muyao's habits. She grew up living in the Beast Emperor City, or Su Family Pearl, the status of noble and sought after. Since childhood, love clean, boil water and take a bath every day. As for them, they go out and wash in the river every day. The body of the beast was washed and dried quickly in the sun. The two men boiled water inside the house while Nanshi peeled sweet potatoes in the yard. After they were all peeled, he went inside to get a knife with the intention of cutting them into small, thin pieces with it. He looked at Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini who were in the room and said, "I'm the one taking care of wife master today." All three of them take turns scheduling. Flower Rinky Knight said with a slight twinge, "We ate the food she made. We should do something about it, or they're not right in their hearts." Xiao Silkan said, "It is as it should be. Anymore, Su Muyao was nominally their wife and master. It can't be that the wives and masters are busy doing things and they are idle." When Nanshi explained, "Today I dug up a lot of sweet potatoes and came back, and my wife wants to cut all of these into fine pieces." Hua Raini said, "Let's help together. It'll still be faster." Xiao Silkan also looked at Nanshi, looking like he wanted to help. Nanshi nodded, and the three of them did it together very quickly. Cut up a portion of the sweet potatoes and place them in a pot holding water. Begin simmering over high heat. After simmering softly, Su Muyao entered the house just in time to clean the lower water. She saw Nanshi boiling sweet potatoes, and Xiao Silan and Hua Raini mashing the sweet potato slices into mashed sweet potatoes. They have psychic powers and do this quickly. Su Muyao was slightly surprised, not expecting these two people to loathe her. The work is still work. It's good to work. Su Muyao's eyebrows twitched as she walked up to the pot and said to Nanshi, "This will do. Scoop these out and strain them first." Saying that, Su Muyao went to find a clean gauze and a large wooden bucket. When Nanshi scooped it all out and poured it in as Su Muyao said, "It's a little hot right now, so let's wait a little while for it to cool down before we can pinch this gauze." When Xiao Silkan heard these words, he moved his fingers and a wave of cold air wrapped around the barrel and gauze. The temperature dropped immediately. Su Muyao was stunned when she saw this scene. She turned her head all to look at Xiao Silkan with burning bright eyes. She had almost forgotten that Xiao Silkan's psychic ability was an ice psychic ability. It's a natural refrigerator. She wanted Xiao Silkan to help her get an ice cellar where she could store food, but she felt that Xiao Silkan might refuse, and after holding back she didn't open her mouth. She turned her head. Xiao Silkan had just been shaken by her bright eyes, and had thought she was going to say something, but her eyes darkened after she tried to speak, and she turned her head away again. Xiao Silkan's clear and cold brows frowned slightly as he lowered his voice and asked, "Does wife master need me to do something?" Su Muyao were stunned, not expecting Xiao Silkan to take the initiative to ask her. His voice was still clear and cold with a percolating chill, but it didn't seem to carry a piercing coldness. It's a little different than yesterday when she first crossed over. Su Muyao turned her head to look at Xiao Silkhan with a puzzled look, making sure that his eyes were calm at the moment and there were no unnecessary emotions. Then he spoke up. Can you help me dig an ice cellar in the corner of the yard over there? That way I can use it to store all this meat food so the food doesn't go bad. Otherwise it's all wasted if you can't eat it. Habits developed in the post-apocalyptic world? She didn't like wasting ingredients. Hearing these words, not only did Xiao Silken's complexion change, but even Hua Raini was surprised. Isn't wasting food her favorite? Disliking the fact that the next day's food isn't fresh and doesn't taste right. When the weather is hot, you eat the day's food the same day and throw it away if you don't finish it. Xiao Silkhan restrained his expression and said in a low voice, "Good." Then, Xiao Silkhan went directly to the yard to make an ice cellar. Su Muyao didn't even expect him to execute so well. Flower Rinky Knight seemed to be unwilling to show any weakness and used her powers to put fire directly onto the firewood. He's a fire psychic. This is a good power to use too. It works best in winter. Of course no need to even draw firewood when you burn it. Su Muyao seemed to think of something. Her eyes were shining brightly. Looking at the Flower Rincon Knight was all a bit more satisfying. Hua Raini looked at Su Muyao's complexion and realized that her gaze only fell on his fire exotic ability and didn't even look at him. But it's good to like fire powers. Su Muyao taught Wenanchi to filter this sweet potato liquid before continuing to put the juice in the pot to simmer. Hua Raini asked, "Wife master, what's next?" Peeled and cubed sweet potatoes he had grated with force into a puree. Su Muyao explained, "First wash, then filter, then squeeze out the starch water." Su Muyao led Hua Rinyo to operate these steps. Let this starch water sit in the tank. Tomorrow morning the starch settles to the bottom of the tank. Pour out the water, leaving the starch to be recalled and filtered with water. That way the starch is a little more refined. After 2 rests, the starch is ready to be put in a saran wrap bag to dry in a ventilated area. Projecting the time, I'll have sweet potato starch by tomorrow night. Maybe we can make sweet potato vermicelli tomorrow night. When they were all almost busy, Su Muyao then used the boiled water to take a bath. The good thing about the cleanliness of the former body was that it allowed these beastmen to create a special house for bathing. Inside, there are also stone-built bathing pools. Su Muyao had just prepared to come out after taking a shower and putting on her clothes, but she heard a loud noise outside. Su Muyao's face changed as she hurriedly came out from the house. When he came to the door, he saw a lot of monsters emerging from the door. The male orcs of the tribe are fighting. Is this a mutant? Su Muyao's pupils shrunk when she saw the mutant beast. It's even more bizarre than the mutant beasts we've seen during the day. When Nanchi and Hua Raini as well as Xiao Silan were also dealing with them, they were extremely fast, and the powers in their hands were all capable of changing into various weapons. Look out! Xiao Silken's figure moved, and an ice blade transformed by the ice abnormal energy directly pierced through the head of one of the mutant beasts. And just now this mutant beast was actually going to attack towards her. The blood that comes out of them is eerily black. Xiao Silkhan directly used his ice exotic energy to freeze the black blood of the mutant beast. Otherwise the black blood coming out would scare her too. The mutant beast seemed to be attacking towards her. The flame ability released by Flower Rinky Knight could also directly burn these mutant beasts. Jia jia. The screams of these mutant beasts are eerie and terrifying. And with a sharp whistling sound, Nanchi's figure was extremely fast and seemed to be able to instantly move, killing one mutant beast after another. Soon, the tribal male orcs worked in unison to kill all of these mutant beasts. When Nanchi came to Su Muyao's side at the first time, looked at her carefully and said, "Is wife master alright?" When Nanchi was worried that she was frightened, but at this moment, Su Muyao looked calm and didn't look frightened. Xiao Silkhan and Hua Raini looked at the calmer and their complexions moved. Before, whenever she heard the sound of a mutant beast, she would hide inside the house in fear. If she had seen a mutant beast, she would have gone crazy with fear and would have only shivered and avoided it. So they didn't expect her to come out. Su Muyao was only startled. She wasn't scared. She shook her head and said, "I'm fine." She was just suddenly thinking that she really needed their protection until she regained her strength. But she had promised a 3-month period, so she had to improve her strength quickly. Chapter 10, Weird Feelings. When Nanchi still sighed softly and reached out to gently smooth out her hair. "It's good that it's okay. It's easy to catch a cold when your wife comes out with wet hair. Go back to the house first." When Nanchi reached out and gently picked her up and carried her into the house, Su Muyao didn't even expect Nanchi to take the initiative to hug her this time. Completely caught off guard, she reflexively reached up and wrapped her arms around his neck. Nanchi was holding Su Muyao at this moment, and he could smell the faintly fragrant scent of her body. Xiao Silkhan and Hua Raini looked at Nanchi unexpectedly breaking the rules and hugging Su Muyao, both revealing a look of surprise. Nanchi looked gentle as jade, but he was not a good talker. Previously, Su Muyao wanted to get close to Nanchi and never succeeded. Now Nanchi even took the initiative to hug her, Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini's complexion both became complicated, then followed into the courtyard, closing and locking the courtyard door back up. At this time, the space system happily shouted in Su Muyao's mind, "Host, quickly let him hug the host more. If the host takes the initiative to hug him and hold him tighter and kiss him, maybe he can open up a little access and drop some supplies." The space system knows that the host needs space supplies right now. Su Muyao used her mind to talk to the space system. "If I did that, he would probably be able to throw me out. Host, when Nanshi taking the initiative to hug you means he doesn't hate you. So host, you be bold for the sake of the supplies. Bold on. Think of all the houses you've hoarded. Host, so many." Su Muyao was indeed a bit moved, but she wasn't going to volunteer to go up to it. But when Nanshi had taken the initiative to hug her, so it should be okay for her to hug her a little longer without letting go. When Nanshi naturally didn't know Su Muyao's mental journey. When Nanshi carried Su Muyao into the house and placed her on the bed, Su Muyao didn't let go, just holding when Nanshi like this, thinking, space open some permissions When Nanshi looked at Su Muyao not letting go of her hand, looked down at her tenderly and said, "Is it somewhere uncomfortable?" Su Muyao pursed her lips, closed her eyes and said stiffly, "I'm a bit scared." God knows, she hated to find a hole in the ground after saying that. When Nanshi heard these words, his heart softened and he hugged her a little tighter, softly soothing her. "Don't be afraid, I'm right here, won't let the alien beasts hurt you." Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini saw the scene when they entered the house. The two men also had strange emotions flashing inexplicably through their minds for some reason. They couldn't help but fall their gazes on Su Muyao. At this moment, Su Muyao's half-disfigured face was covered by Nanshi's embrace, only revealing half of her cheeks. In the light of the house lights, her icy skin was like snow, probably because she had just taken a shower. It was as if she also had an extra air of being out of the world. Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini's eyes both moved. They had never looked at her closely before. Just then, the space system said excitedly, "Host, the space has released some flavor packets. Host, this will allow you to let go of Nanshi." When Su Muyao heard these words, she hurriedly came out from Nanshi's arms. I'm fine." She didn't even dare to look at Nanshi's expression, afraid that he would see that she was just using him as a tool. Nanshi smiled warmly, "Wife master's hair hasn't been dried yet, you'll catch a cold this way." Saying that, Nanshi took out a clean cloth to scrub Su Muyao. Hua Raini hesitated for a moment, but still stepped forward and said, "I'll do it." Saying that, Hua Raini released his supernatural ability, his palms directly releasing a scorching temperature, drying Su Muyao's hair. Su Muyao was surprised. This would work much better than a hairdryer. However, Su Muyao was more surprised at how Hua Raini, who loathed her so much, would take the initiative to dry her hair. According to the memory of his predecessor, he had never done such a thing before. As she came closer, Rinkuya Hana smelled a light and nice scent, as if warm pheromones. It was nothing like her old scent. He was a fox beast, and his sense of everyone's scent was extremely keen. He gave a suspicious look, a little less convinced, but when I felt it carefully, the pheromones smelled different. Before, her aura was dark and cold and disgusting, but now her aura was as warm as the sun. He couldn't help but covet the idea of being close. Hua Raini's fox eyes were showing a seemingly drunken look at this point. Hua Raini barely managed to control the fiery breath that was released, and a small flame sprang from her fingers. "Look out!" Xiao Silkan directly extinguished the cluster of small flames with a bolt of ice chi. Hua Raini came back to her senses and hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry." Su Muyao waved her hand and said, It's fine. She thought that Hua Raini probably hated her so much that she wanted to burn her to death. Anyway, thanks for protecting me tonight. She still needed them now, so she might as well try to make nice. When Nanshi said in a warm voice, "It is our duty to protect you." Su Muyao didn't believe in such words. There have been mutant beasts that have popped up in the middle of the night before, and they didn't have time to kill them in time before the mutant beasts ran into the yard. The predecessor was so frightened at the time that he was sick. Even if they don't let her die, there are many ways to toss her. It was time for her to show that she had taken care of the mutant beasts in a dry and decisive manner this time. In that case, as a token of my appreciation, I'll cook something delicious for you tomorrow. I'll make breakfast. Hua Raini spoke. I will take care of my wife and master tomorrow. Tomorrow it was indeed time for Hua Raini to stay home and take care of Su Muyao. While when Nanshi and Xiao Silan were going out hunting, Su Muyao actually wanted when Nanshi to stay at home with her. But then again, she didn't think that would really be fair, because hunting is indeed more dangerous. Su Muyao seemed to think of something and said, "What's going on with these mutant beasts? Turns out it can be very unsafe to stay in the tribe." When it came to anything, the predecessor would just hide in fear, not knowing much about mutant beasts at all. But she wasn't a doddering flower, and she wasn't used to relying on the sidelines. Right now she was weak and needed them that couldn't be helped. When her strength increased, she would kill these mutant beasts herself. When Nanshi explained, Beasts will mutate into mutated beasts after being attacked by a strange black gas. Once a beast becomes a mutated beast, its strength will inexplicably increase, and it will also habitually attack beastmen to kill them. On weekdays, they will only move about in the mountains and forests, not where the orcs gather. But during the full moon, they will break into the horde and attack the orcs regardless. The meat of mutant beasts is poisonous. You can't eat it. It will kill you if you eat it. When Nanchi briefly spoke about the mutant beast, Su Muyao's complexion stared up. Being attacked by a dark aura? Any idea what kind of darkness is present? When Nanchi whispered, no one knows. The colder the north, the more mutant beasts there are. That's why most of the orcs are exiled to the North Row tribe here once they commit a crime. Mutant beasts are plentiful here, and it's convenient for the exiled orcs to kill them. Let them fend for themselves too. The Bei Luo tribe looked at the large number of orcs, but there were also a lot of dead and injured orcs every year. Chapter 11 Cultivation. When Nanchi explained, and Su Muyo had a certain understanding of mutant beasts, it was then that she realized that being exiled to the Bei Luo tribe was actually coming to die in the eyes of those people in Beast Emperor City. The climate here is cold and frigid. Mutant beasts are plentiful and food is in short supply. That is, once the snowy season arrives, there are not enough food stores and many orcs freeze and starve to death. When the snowy season comes, the mutant beasts won't reappear and everyone can stay safe in the tribe. But without storing enough food and hides, one would freeze and starve to death just the same. The Beast World continent here also had 4 seasons in a year, except that the cold north called winter the snow season. Right now, according to the time, it is the beginning of the 7th month of the lunar calendar. The snow season begins around November of the lunar calendar, so she still has almost 4 months to prepare things to store food. If the space was upgraded and the permissions opened up in these 4 months, and the supplies she had hoarded were released, she wouldn't have to worry about anything. Right now it's better to prepare more food. Su Muyao's complexion moved as she digested the news and said, thank you all, I'm fine now. I'll rest first. You guys go back to rest early too. Although Su Muyao's tone was gentle, they could tell that there was an air of detachment in her demeanor. It's as if they're rejecting people. It's more like kicking them out. They used to hate it when she told them to come closer, but now that she was kicking them out when they had changed their minds a bit about her, something was wrong with them instead. This time Su Muyao's hair was already dry. When Nanchi took out a comb to gently brush her hair, then let her lie down and tucked her into the corner of the quilt. Then wifey, get some rest. I'll be right next door. If my wife's master needs anything, feel free to summon me. Su Muyao nodded. All she wanted to do now was to hurry and take a look into space first. Then he nodded and watched them all leave before Su Muyao disappeared into space. The space system excitedly offered, host, these are the ones. Then Su Muyao saw some more seasonings on the space field. There's vinegar, soybean paste, soybean soy sauce and packets of spices. Su Muyao's eyes lit up when she saw these. With these you can make a lot of food. Originally I was wondering how those pork jerky would be braised. It doesn't taste good with just salt. With these spices you can make marinara. Sensing that Su Muyao was happy, the space system was also happy. It looked at the sweet potatoes piled up in the space and said, host, these sweet potatoes are twice as big as all the sweet potatoes that the host had hoarded before. Su Muyao also realized this situation. The food in the beast world over here was bigger than those in the end times. The onions and ginger and also the sweet potatoes are almost twice as big. Su Muyao explained, although it's bigger than the Mordecai's, the texture is almost the same, and the sweet potatoes are also very sweet, and it's organic ingredients with no pesticides, no added tech, and extra flavorful food made with firewood. This beast world continent is a bit different, but the forest is fertile, so there must be a lot of ingredients. There were some mutant beasts, but she liked it here better than the end times. With enough supplies, she can conjure up all sorts of treats. Plant these sweet potatoes in the space first. Su Muyao said that it was possible to plant with the intention. However, she needed to first use her supernatural energy to catalyze the sweet potatoes to sprout before this was planted in the spatial field. She hoped that when the space was upgraded, the fields would be expanded a bit as well. In the past, when her space level was very high, the space fields covered an extremely wide area, all of which amounted to thousands of acres. You can grow anything you want and it grows fast and produces high yields. However, Hua Raini and Xiao Silan were ready to go back to their respective rooms after coming out of Su Muyao's room. Xiao Silkan looked at Hua Raini's extraordinarily silent, and said in a clear and moist voice, did you find something? Hua Raini said in a low, contemplative voice, you know, my original body is a 9-tailed fox beast, and we are extra sensitive to scents. I can smell the pheromones on my wife's body. Her pheromones are nothing like they were before, but according to the records of my fox clan, a person's pheromone, even if there is a slight change, will not completely turn into another kind of pheromone. Xiao Silken's clear and cold eyes shifted in color. Are you saying that the aura on her body has completely turned into another kind of aura? What's the difference? Being able to smell pheromones was an ability unique to the nine-tailed red fox. It's also an ability for them to protect themselves. Hua Raini looked grave and said, in the past, the aura on her body was very gloomy and cold, and even carried a hint of an odd flavor that annoyed people. Just a little closer and I want to stay away. But today her scent is clean and warm, like the scent of fragrant, light flowers or bathing in warm sunlight. It makes you want to get closer. It's amazing, two completely different feelings. That was why Hua Raini was extraordinarily puzzled in her heart. Couldn't figure out what was going on. How can a person undergo a radical change? Xiao Silkan seemed to think of something. His complexion was slightly astringent. They went back to bed, each unable to sleep, with a preoccupied look on their faces. Not a moment later, there was an urgent knock at their door. Are you home, big sister? As Su Muyao was busy working in the space, she heard voices outside. It's big sister Lin next door? Su Muyao quickly came out of the space. The predecessor was a vicious extremist, and has acted with extreme bravado since coming to the tribe. She's not on good terms with the tribal crowd, and people don't want to talk to her. Only next door Lin elder sister Lin Qin is an extremely enthusiastic person. As if she could not see the cold face of the predecessor, a mouthful of a big sister called, picked a few things and was willing to give the predecessor a taste. It's a bright and generous person. Su Muyao had just come out of the inner room when she saw Wen Nanshi. Did the noise at the door disturb the wife and master? Su Muyao shook her head and said, it's all right, it's big sister Lin. There might be some urgent matters in the middle of the night. Go and take a look first. Worrying that she was afraid, when Nanshi spoke, I'll accompany my wife's master. At this time, Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini were also standing in the courtyard at an unknown time. Su Muyao didn't say anything and walked to the door to open it. Then he saw not only Lin Qin standing at the door, but also two other people. From the memory of the predecessor, it was the chief and the chief's wife. Lin Qin said, big sister. Ah, the chief and madam are looking for you for something. Lin Qin just helped knock on the door. In fact, the chief and the chief's wife were also a bit intimidated by the not-so-good-natured Su Muyao. He could only ask Lin Qin, who was still on good terms with Su Muyao on weekdays, to help talk. The chief carefully opened his mouth. Miss Su, it's like this. My little daughter was injured by a mutant beast. Her wound is so infected that the witch doctor was unable to save her. So I can only brazenly come to beg Miss Su for some help in saving her. As long as Miss Su is willing to save our daughter, we'll do whatever we're asked to do. The chief's wife also looked at Su Muyao with supplicating eyes. The chief and the chief's wife were usually extremely prestigious and powerful people in the North Luo tribe, nor had they ever whispered and begged for anything, and now they had no choice but to do so for the sake of their daughter, because they had also heard during the day that Su Muyao had awakened her healing powers. It was a little half-hearted at the time, which was to think that now that Ning had been bitten by a mutant beast, they were at this point incredibly hoping that her healing powers were real. Chapter 12 is rewarding. The chief and chief's wife of the Gyuro tribe have prestige and some power in the area. It is said that they had one son and one daughter, and that the son married into a large family in the city. My daughter is young and weak. He is also timid on weekdays and seldom goes out. I don't know why I was bitten by the mutant beast this time. Lin Qin wanted to say something, but felt it wasn't appropriate for her to open her mouth. I just feel that Gu Ning Ning is so young and so timid, and then injured again is also strange and pitiful. A very cute little girl flashed through Su Muyao's mind. At that time when the predecessor scolded her, she was too scared to speak. A shiver rushed away. Su Muyao's complexion softened, and without waiting for them to say anything else, she opened her mouth and said, let's go. I'll go over and take a look. A mount. Hearing Su Muyao's sudden promise, the chief and chief's wife froze. They stared at it in wide-eyed some disbelief. Since when has Su Muyao been so nice? When they didn't have the means to come over and beg, they all thought that they could kneel down and beg Su Muyao. They agreed to anything she offered. I didn't think it would be so nice to talk. Much of what they had prepared to say had yet to be said. The chief's wife said excitedly, then thank you so much, Miss Su. As long as we can cure Ning's injuries, Miss Su will be our benefactor from now on, and we'll be sure to thank Miss Su properly. Su Muyao knew that the tribal chief and the chief's wife were people of one word. If they say so, they intend to do so. If she had the favor of the chief, it would be easier for her to live in the Gyuro tribe in the future. The rest of the tribe didn't dare look for trouble. Of course, when the previous incarnation was doing something rampant, the rest of the tribe didn't dare to look for trouble even if they were not used to it. The truth is that her beast husband is very strong. Su Muyao said, let's take a look at the injuries first and save them. After arriving at the stone house where the chief's family was located, Su Muyao saw a little girl inside the house. The little girl looked 12 or 13 years old, with a round face and round eyes, looking cute. It just looks too thin, a skin and bones malnourished look. Only at that moment black blood was bubbling from the wound on her leg, and she cried silently in pain. The chief's wife stepped forward and said, Ning Ning, don't be afraid. Miss Su has healing powers. Let her save you a bit and take a look. The little girl called Gu Ningning instinctively shivered when she saw Su Muyao. Su Muyao stepped forward and said gently, "Don't worry, it's fine." For some reason, Gu Ningning felt so warm when she looked at the smile on Su Muyao's face. She also felt the breeze and warmth of her scent and shifted a bit. Su Muyao briefly checked with Gu Ningning before releasing her with healing ability at the place of her wound. Soon, Gu Ningning's festering wounds stopped festering. The black qi was dispelled, and the blood from her wounds turned red. The chief and the rest of them watched the scene in amazement. Su Muyao said, "She's fine. Get well for a few days and the wound will heal." The reason why her wounds are so infected is also because of her own weak constitution. The chief and his wife were extremely grateful to Su Muyao. "I won't hide it from Miss Su Ning. She can't eat, and when she does eat, she tends to vomit it out. And it's even easier for her to catch wind cold once winter sets in. If it weren't for the medicine prescribed by the witch doctor, Ning wouldn't have lasted this long." The chief's eyes reddened at the mention of this. Su Muyao also saw the reason for Gu Ningning's weak constitution when she just took her pulse. Mainly because the spleen and stomach are too weak to eat meaty foods. When food and nutrition are not kept up, you are prone to be weak and sickly. And she can't stay inside all year without going out into the sun. Su Muyao said, "The reason why she can't eat food is because meat food is not well digested. Especially if it's raw. It's not good for the spleen and stomach. That is why it is best to cut meat foods very finely, cook them in hot water and eat them. And it is best to do the same with water. And you can't stay inside all the time. You still need to get more sun when it's nice." The chief and the others were afraid that Gu Ningning would catch a cold and have a fever. So they covered the house tightly and gave her thick animal skins to wear. "It's more frail that way." Su Muyao explained some things that the chief and the chief's wife remembered, and they were all extremely grateful to her. The chief's wife directly took out a bag of crystal coins and handed it to Su Muyao. "Many thanks to Miss Su for saving Ning. This is 100 copper-colored crystal coins. I hope you don't mind." On weekdays, the tribesmen didn't have much crystal coins in their hands. They were all bartering. It would also be easier for people to buy things with crystal coins when they went to the city mutual market assembly. The ones they had saved in their hands were still the ones they had previously exchanged for animal skins. She thought that compared to food, maybe Su Muyao would prefer crystal coins. Seeing the crystal coins, Su Muyao's expression moved. "Here, copper-colored crystals are the most common currency, along with silver-colored crystals. A silver crystal coin is equivalent to 1,000 copper-colored crystals. But these 100 copper-colored crystals could buy a lot of things." Su Muyao knew that this was the consultation fee, and she didn't make any pretense and directly accepted it. When she left, the chief's wife gave her some more meat and corn flour. Su Muyao didn't want so much. She just wanted to collect the corn flour. But the chief's wife was extremely enthusiastic, so Su Muyao collected it. According to her predecessor's memories, Su Muyao knew that today's Beast World continent had a certain amount of civilization, and there were places where corn was abundant. Crops are also grown where the land is fertile and the environment is good. However, there are very few crop types. Even if there is a planted corn, everyone is directly boiled and eaten. Sun-dried corn peeled out of the kernels and ground into a powder, directly soaked in water to drink. People feel spicy throat, not too willing to eat. The tribal people are still accustomed to meat as their food. Things like cornmeal store well, and people store a little cornmeal just so they don't go hungry over the winter. However, Su Muyao knew it was good stuff. You can cook cornmeal soup first thing in the morning. You can also beat some eggs and put some sweet potatoes on top for a corn and egg sweet potato soup. Su Muyao's eyes lit up when she thought of this. This trip over was rewarding. After thinking about it, Su Muyao said, "Ma'am, this cornmeal is actually good stuff. Miss Gu's spleen and stomach are weak. Ma'am can boil some cornmeal soup for her tomorrow morning." Mrs. Lin sighed and said, "I used to soak her in water and she didn't like it. It's cooked in a pot, and I don't know what's going on, and it's not good. Ning doesn't like it." As Su Muyao listened to her speak, she knew that the chief's wife did not know how to cook and was probably not good at it either. Why don't she cook and send some in the morning? Anyway, getting on good terms with the tribe leader would also facilitate her better life in the tribe. After clearing the air with the Beast Master in 3 months, she'll probably have to continue living in the tribe. You can't offend so many people as you did with your predecessor. It's still necessary to make good connections ahead of time. When Nanchi and Xiao Silan as well as Hua Rini were waiting in the courtyard, also to protect Su Muyao. At that moment, listening to her talking to the chief's wife with ease, everyone once again felt amazed. She used to choke when she opened her mouth. When has it ever been spoken in such a gentle and delicate voice? The effort of talking to Su Muyao, the chief's wife all changed their opinion of her completely. They all took her hand and talked, looking like they liked her very much. Chapter 13, Too Fragrant. When Su Muyao was about to go back, the chief's wife all but reluctantly took her hand and said, "Miss Su, be sure to come to the house to play when you have time." Su Muyao nodded with a smile and said, "Good." Until Su Muyao left, the chief looked at the chief's wife and said, It's rare to see you like someone so much. He hadn't seen Madam so enthusiastic about anyone before. The chief's wife said, I don't know why, but I just feel very fond of the boy. If you ask me, it's possible that we may have misunderstood Miss Mu Yao in the past. I see that she's fine, and she saved Ning, and is our benefactor. You're the leader of the Bei Luo tribe. Take care of them more in the future. The chief was also a person who knew how to repay kindness. He seriously said, this is natural. They have been kind to us. We should repay them. Turn around and hunt some more prey and send some too. At this time Gu Ningning spoke in a small voice. Father and mother, I like Sister Su very much. Hearing Gu Ningning's words, the chief's wife was all agitated. Ningning, what did you just say? Ning grew up weak and timid, expressing her preferences very little and having no friends. She's also afraid to get close to anyone. Gu Ningning bowed her head and said, just Sister Su, she is so warm and fragrant. She thinks Sister Su is good. She will also repay Sister Su. The chief's wife said happily, your Sister Su said you should get more sunshine in the future, and when you are better, you can look for your Sister Su to play too. It's good to have preferences, and she also thought Su Muyao was good, so she was naturally willing to let Ning have more contact with Su Muyao. It would be better if the two could play nice and be friends. Su Muyao was indeed tired after using some wood system psychic abilities, so she went home and went straight to bed. It would still be a bit hot, and lying on the animal skin at night. Su Muyao was a bit hot, and there are mosquitoes in the middle of the night. Su Muyao sighed and said, it looks like we still need to go to the mountains during the day to look for some insect repellent herbs. There were no mosquito nets at all at this time, so you had to get some insect repellent. Also she was going to find some grass to weave some straw mats. This makes it comfortable to fall asleep when the weather is a little hot. Thinking about this, Su Muyao quickly fell asleep. The next morning, Su Muyao woke up at dawn. It was a habit she'd picked up in the post-apocalyptic world, going to bed late and waking up early. Su Muyao got up and got off the ground, and just opened the door to the inner room. She saw Hua Raini in the yard. He heard the voice and his fox eyes tickled with a look of surprise. She used to sleep until sunrise, but she never got up this early. He quickly stepped forward and spoke. Wifey is awake? Su Muyao froze for a moment. You got up this early too? Aha! They were also all used to waking up early and practicing to improve their strength. Surviving in such a harsh environment in the north, the stronger the strength the more secure the safety. And it's his turn to take care of his wife and master today. He then waited in the courtyard early. Hua Raini brought both the water basin and toiletries to Su Muyao's side to make it easier for her to wash up. Su Muyao wasn't really used to this. From now on, you guys can just mind your own business. You don't need to take care of me so much. Hana Rinya said with a slight twinge. As beast husbands, this is something we should do. Although she wasn't allowed to touch it, they still had to do the other things that needed to be done. Su Muyao faintly said, you guys are just my nominal beast husband now, and you will leave after 3 months, so there is no need to be like this. It's mainly because she's not used to it. It was weird for her to be waited on from the moment she woke up to the moment she went to bed. There was a sense of being watched and monitored. She likes to be a little more free. When Hua Raini heard these words, for some reason, an uncomfortable feeling welled up in her heart. He couldn't figure out because of what at this point. That's 3 months, too, and we're supposed to take care of you for those 3 months. Su Muyao spoke. Actually, you guys don't have to force yourselves. I can take care of myself without you guys. I can't starve. Hua Raini's heart sank. No, it's not like that. Obviously, she didn't curse, but listening to those words made her heart sink a little deeper and a little more depressing. He wanted to explain, but didn't know how. It is indeed they who want to leave. But why was the heart not as happy as it should have been to hear these words? Su Muyao felt that the predecessor had done things badly, and it was justifiable for them not to believe in themselves. She said seriously, don't worry, I'll do what I say I'm going to do. After saying that, she didn't care about Hua Raini and washed herself. There's a lot to be done in a while. The beast continent here is not so backward. People would wash and brush their teeth with willow leaves dipped in salt. Salt was actually expensive, but the predecessor didn't give a about that and just cared about being comfortable. After simply washing up, Su Muyao prepared to make breakfast. She simmered the pork jowl with the spices that had bubbled up from space last night. Hua Raini looked at her busy figure, skinny and small, as if she had been abandoned by them. Look at all the pity. She's not really that hard to get along with when she's not arrogant and cursing. What can I do to help? Su Muyao turned her head to look at Hua Raini. Looking at his demeanor, it seemed like he really wanted to help. There was no fake politeness. She then spoke up. I see that the sweet potato starch I got last night has settled, and I need to dump the water off of it and restir it with water to continue settling. They have powers to do these things faster. And it's not like she's cooking for herself. There's nothing wrong with everyone eating together and laboring together. Good. Hana Rinya then went off to do just that. While Su Muyao was cooking breakfast, Xiao Silan and Wen Nanshi both came over ready to help out together. They had also gotten up early, and they had all heard clearly the conversation between Hua Raini and Su Muyao just now. She seemed to be really ready to dissolve their relationship this time. It made them all have mixed feelings. When Nanchi didn't say anything and naturally went up to help burn the fire, Xiao Silkan went to chop firewood. Even if he was surrounded by a cold and chilling aura when he was chopping firewood, Su Muyao thought of the scene on the first day she crossed over. A little sense of rejection within her heart, rather not too willing to have too much contact with him, but he did do his job to protect her last night, and she'd convinced herself that she only needed 3 more months. After sleeping through the night last night, she could feel her powers enhance a bit. With time, strength recovery will not be a problem. It takes longer to braise the pork jowl, and you have to watch the heat. When the lid of the pot smoldered and gave off a rich fragrance, when Nanchi and the others all smelled it and they all revealed a look of astonishment. It smells so good. Even Lin Xin next door, who was still sleeping, was awakened by the scent. She was drooling in her sleep. She was going to cry with gluttony. What smells so good? Just like last night. What's the big sister her beastmen cooking up? Lin Xin thought that it was Su Muyao's beast husband who was making the food, mainly because the females with beast husbands didn't do anything to make the food themselves. After the pork jowl stew was done, she used another pot to make the corn and egg custard. Pour corn flour into a wooden bowl, then pour in the well water and mix well. Take another bowl and crack in the bird's eggs and deodorize them with a little vinegar using space seasoning. Stir in the bird's eggs and set them aside. When the hot water in the pot boiled, Su Muyao poured in the well-stirred corn flour and continued to stir. Leave to cook for a while, stirring to prevent sticking, before pouring in the bird's egg mixture. When Nanchi was all slightly stunned when she watched Su Muyao make food out of cornmeal like this. She doesn't do it quite the same way. Chapter 14, Don't mess with them. When it was done cooking, Su Muyao used a spoon to scoop out 5 large bowls and put them on the table. Next, ladle the stewed marinara into pots so that everyone can easily eat it with chopsticks. There, it's done. Dinner will be ready in a minute. It actually goes down best with steamed buns or rice just for the lo mein. Unfortunately there is no flour or rice here at all. According to her predecessor's memories, she did know that the Beast World continent had crops like rice and millet. There is corn, sorghum, soybeans but no wheat in the North Hills. And the corn, sorghum, soybeans the predecessor remembers grew pellets 2 or 3 times the size of the end times kind of pellets. The rice grains are also 2 or 3 times the size of a large grain of rice. Su Muyao went to see Wen Nanchi and the others. The 3 of them cleaned the stove and the yard. The firewood was all split and stacked in the corner, and the cornstarch was restirred and set aside to rest. She also saw an opening in the corner. She looked puzzled and came to a corner of the courtyard. Her eyes lit up. This is an ice cellar? Xiao Silkan whispered. Well, the ice cellar that was made last night. Where does wife master think it's not good? I'll refurbish it again. Su Muyao squatted down and looked in. There were still steps. Su Muyao was going to go down the steps to take a look. Wifey, be careful. Xiao Silkan watched her feet slip and couldn't help but step forward and reach out to protect her. Su Muyao was about to fall on Xiao Silkan, thinking that he loathed her so much, she could only fall towards the other side and fell on the other side. Xiao Silkan looked at his empty fingers, which trembled for a moment, and his clear, cold brows seemed to be tinted with a layer of ghostly mist. Su Muyao naturally didn't notice Xiao Silkan's abnormality. She slid down the steps just in time and was pleased to see the ice cellar below all covered in ice. Xiao Silkan, thank you. In that case, all the pork and pork rinds that weren't eaten yesterday can be stored here. What a natural refrigerator. So Su Muyao was truly grateful to Xiao Silkan. When she tilted her head back from below to look at Xiao Silkan, her eyebrows and eyes carried a sincere smile. She seemed genuinely happy. Her eyebrows arched in a smile, her eyes clean and clear as running water. No longer the paranoid, crazy, even malicious smile that it once was. Xiao Silkan's heart moved. She seemed really different. The eyes of a man do not become so complete as to disguise and conceal themselves. He couldn't help but think of the words of Riniko Hana. He restrained his expression and said in a clear and moist voice, if there is anything else that wife master needs to do, please command. Su Muyao waved her hand and said, no need. It's better to eat breakfast first. Having seen their fighting prowess last night, she didn't dare to mess with them at will. After everyone entered the stovehouse, Su Muyao put the large bowl of corn egg custard into the basket and said, you guys eat first. I'll send this bowl to Gu Ningning. She's too weak to eat any other food. This should go in. When Nanchi stood up and said, wife master eat first. I'll go. No, I'll make the trip myself and check on her health on the way. In fact, she thought about it last night. If she had toned up Gu Ningning's body, the tribe people would know that she had medical skills comparable to a witch doctor, and her status in the tribe would be elevated. She should be able to live a good life after leaving these beastmen as well. At least the ones the predecessor offended wouldn't dare do anything to her, because no one can guarantee that you won't get sick or hurt on the tribe. Can you? When Nanchi was still uneasy, not caring about eating breakfast, disappearing like a gust of wind, he followed secretly to protect her. afraid that someone would rush her on the road. This would be just after dawn. There were very few people on the tribal road, and the adults all automatically avoided Su Muyao. Only some of the younger beast cubs looked at her and said, "Ugly, bad and ugly. Don't talk about her. She'll hit someone, she hits and we run. My mother says she has psychic powers. We can't offend her." When Nanchi listened to these cubs say these words and worried that Su Muyao would get angry. But Su Muyao was bathing in the morning sunlight with a sweet smile on her face. Seems to not care. She heard them and looked over in their direction and smiled at them, not seeming angry at all. Su Muyao smiled at those cubs. They instead ran away in a huff as if they were scared. Su Muyao was all amused. It's rather cute. These beast cubs were still weak in their abilities, and some of them had not even fully transformed into their forms, with some showing cute ears, some showing cute horns, and some completely beastly bodies. The local wolf beast pups are more plentiful and are quite cute and furry. When Nanchi looked at her, looking at the bright and brilliant smile on her face, his heart and mind were moved. That's her genuine smile, isn't it? In front of them, even when she smiled, she was somewhat restrained. When Nanchi silently guarded in the dark without showing his face, the chief's house, the chief's wife was surprised to see Su Muyao personally deliver the corn egg custard. "How's this?" Su Muyao said. "Madam can give Ning Ning a taste. She has a weak spleen and stomach, so she should drink something well digested first, and after nourishing her spleen and stomach, she will gradually feel better." The chief's wife was both touched and a little embarrassed. "It's just made from cornmeal, beaten with a little bird's egg liquid, nothing more." Su Muyao took Gu Ningning's pulse and looked at her physical condition. The place that was bitten by the mutant beast was completely healed. There was nothing more to it. When Su Muyao was about to leave, Gu Ningning boldly reached out and tugged on her sleeve, blinking her round eyes at her with a pitiful look. Su Muyao's heart softened, gently patted her hand, and gently said, "You first taste the corn egg custard. Drink more. Go out more to get some sun. Your body will get better." Gu Ningning smelled her so fragrant and so good, and all felt that Sister Su was good. She nodded and obediently scooped it up with a spoon and drank it. After taking a sip, her eyes lit up and she took another sip. "Smells good." The chief's wife was stunned. "This, Miss Muyao. Ah, how did you do this?" "I used to give Ning cornmeal and she could spit it out," Su Muyao explained. "This is very simple to do. First of all, you have to soak the cornmeal in cold water and stir it away. Then, Su Muyao told Lady Beast Leader about the practice, and she nodded in realization. "So that's how it's done. Next time she'll know what to do." The chief's family was extremely grateful to Su Muyao. When Su Muyao went home, she saw that when Nanchi and the three of them hadn't moved and were all still standing and waiting for her. "What are you standing around for? Why haven't you had breakfast? Not good?" Hua Rainy's fox eyes hooked, looking at Su Muyao with ulterior motives, saying, "Has wife master forgotten that you stipulated that we can't eat if you haven't eaten? We are only entitled to the food left over from our former wives and masters." Many times she actually lifted the table to keep them from eating, so they went hunting hungry most of the time. "How can we eat first now that our wives and masters have been so much kinder to us by letting us eat at the table?" Chapter 15, Keep Calm and Sane. As Hua Rainy spoke, his charismatic and stunning eyes looked at Su Muyao in that fixed manner. His fox eyes were born with the magic of seduction. When you look at someone intently, it is as if you are born with love and possess the magic power to compel people's hearts. Su Muyao almost sank into his eyes. Good thing she kept her cool and sensible. She snorted. "Ah, that was before. That's not, I promise you, a 3-month period. I just thought, let's make peace for now, and don't bother me after you get your freedom for 3 months. No, she couldn't say she wasn't a predecessor. They wouldn't believe her. Maybe even thinking about burning her as a mutant beast. She had a feeling they might be a little suspicious of her, but they certainly don't have proof. When Nanchi's clear and refined picturesque eyebrows moved, "Wife master, don't worry. Nanchi won't harm nowadays wife master one iota. It's who she is today, not who she once was." Hua Rainy's fox eyes calmed down a lot and said, "I hope that my wife's master stays like this and doesn't turn into what she was before." Xiao Silence Han was silent and didn't say anything. Only a strange color swept through his clear and cold eyes. Su Muyao felt like she still had to say something. She thought for a moment and said, "It was indeed wrong of me in the past, and I am here to apologize to you. It won't be like that again. I know you may not believe it, but you'll see what happens over time. Just bear with yourselves for a while, and perhaps I'll be able to break the bond with you early." If she could get stronger in advance, she could also break the contractual relationship in advance. It doesn't have to be 3 months. When Nanchi looked at her apologizing, as if his heart seized an ache, with a gentle look in his eyes, he said softly, "I don't blame you. Don't be hungry. Eat first. The temperature is just right." When Nanchi controlled the temperature of Su Muyao's bowl of corn egg custard, not too hot and not too cold, she drank it just right. Su Muyao smiled and said, "Well, let's eat first. After eating I'll follow and go hunting." She went to the mountains mainly to find food. Good. I'll stay with my wife and master. Hua Raini's beautiful eyetails were raised, and he said in a thin, enchanting manner, "It's my turn to accompany my wife's master today." Saying that, he looked at Su Muyao with pitifully compelling eyes and said, "Wherever wife master wants to go, Rin Knight will take wife master wherever she wants to go, okay?" When Hua Raini spoke, her tail voice rose slightly, carrying a seductive and charming meaning, as if unleashing their seductive powers. Su Muyao didn't even dare to meet his eyes. She knew that foxes had the ability to charm. Inside, she actually wanted to go to the mountains with Wen Nanshi. She didn't trust any of these three people, and if she could only choose one to protect by her side, she was willing to choose Wen Nanshi. But she could feel the dark poking sword tensions between Hua Raini and Wen Nanshi, and she was worried that the two would fight if she opened her mouth. She looked down as she spooned the bowl of corn custard and whispered, Then follow the rules." When it was time for everyone to eat, they were surprised to realize how delicious every food was. That pig's jowl. They didn't even want to eat it in the first place, but they had just stood in the cookhouse for so long and smelled the aroma for so long that they decided to eat it anyway. It would be shameful to waste a meal cooked by the wife's owner herself. No female wants to cook for her beast husband. That alone should not be wasted on them. Figured it out and they ate it. You don't realize how delicious it is until you actually eat it in your mouth. Everyone would have eaten slowly and with great elegance, but at this point the pace involuntarily accelerated. There was also corn soup, which they never thought could be made so delicious with this spicy throat cornmeal. It's so good. As everyone ate their food, they couldn't help but look at Su Muyao. There seemed to be a look of probing incredulity in both eyes. It was as if they were trying to see through her. Su Muyao lowered her head and ate in silence, only showing one head to everyone, not letting people look at her color. It was a meal of sheer torment, because she could feel the pressure of their sight. Finally, "I'm full." When she looked up, she froze as she watched their bowls and the large pot of marinara finish. Did you guys not get enough to eat? Or that she didn't do enough? Looking at her dull and cute appearance, Wen Nanshi smiled gently and said, "I'm full. Wifey makes good food. We used to throw all this stuff away, and now I think it's really a bit of a waste and a bit of a shame." But then they wouldn't have been able to handle it, much less do it. These marinades, he didn't know how she made them. Just know that she put something in it, probably something for flavoring. If it were before they would have suspected her of drugging, but after last night, they didn't anymore. Su Muyao nodded. Better make more next time. Beasts of the beast world have a special physique and need to eat a lot of food in order to maintain enough energy to hunt better. After having a full meal, there was no need for Su Muyao to do anything. The three of them grabbed the tables, chairs, and dishes and cleaned them up. The cookhouse is all clean and dry. After that, when Nanshi and Xiao Silan went hunting, Hua Raini took Su Muyao to the mountain forest. The flower Rinky Knight turned directly into its original form. It was the huge 2-meter-tall nine-tailed red fox. Upon seeing Hua Raini's original body with her own eyes, Su Muyao was stunned. It's really beautiful. Especially the red fox fur looks great. She now understood why her predecessor had been preoccupied with making clothes out of his fox fur. Such noble red fox fur makes clothes that look absolutely great to wear. The Hua Raini beast body was a bit tall, and Su Muyao couldn't even get up there. She bounced a few times to no avail. Looking at her like this, Hua Raini's fox eyes revealed a light smile, finding her adorable. Then curling one of her tails around her, he gently placed her on his back. Hua Raini said, "Where does wife master want to go? Do you know where herbs are plentiful?" She wanted to pick some herbs to remove the poison from her body. Then there was Wen Nanshi and their three beastmen who had not only internal but also external injuries on their bodies, all of which were serious. It seriously affected their cultivation and suppressed their realm, and they should hurt. When the predecessor abused them, it actually inspired them to go mentally berserk, making both the poison and the injuries in their bodies worse. It was her duty to undo this for them so that they would not owe each other. Hua Raini said, "I know. I'll bring my wife and master over." Hua Raini knew where there were a lot of medicinal herbs. It was just that there was a wide variety of such things as medicinal herbs, which were usually only recognized by witch doctors. And it's easy to get poisoned if you're not careful. Hua Raini didn't care about this and just drove Su Muyao towards that side. Hua Raini ran very fast. Su Muyao reflexively hugged him. She realized that hugging a fox fur felt completely different than hugging a snake's body. This whole coat is so cozy. It's nice and soft and smells faintly clean and nice, as if Su Muyao was compelled. She couldn't help but reach out and touch it. Hua Raini's body trembled, stopping his body in the mountain forest and whispering hoarsely, "What is wifey touching?" Su Muyao came back to her senses in a flash, her scalp tingling. "No, it's nothing. Don't get me wrong. I just accidentally scratched the fox fur." This was a mountain forest. There was no one here, and no one would be able to save her if Flower Rinky Knight wanted to kill her. Nope, there is a beast husband contract. He can't kill her but he can torture her and abuse her, just as the predecessor abused him. We can take revenge. Chapter 16 Contractual Binding. Sumu Yao didn't dare to move around anymore, and her hand didn't dare to place it on Hua Raini's fox fur. It's really pretty and still touchable though. The fox fur feels really good, but she still wanted to live well. She liked the way the mountains and forests were lush and rich in supplies. The environment and everything here is not comparable to the end times. But when she thought of Hua Raini's killing intent and hatred, she was also unable to cry, sensing that she wasn't quite right. Hua Raini directly transformed into her human form and held her in her arms before slowly placing her on the ground. Wifey, what's going on? She bowed her head in a pitiful manner, as if he had done something to her. She was like this. He had never seen her before. Rather, one could not spare a harsh word for her. Sumu Yao looked down at her toes at this time and explained in a low voice. I didn't mean to scratch your fox fur. It's just that you're running so fast that I'll fall off if I don't hold on. She wouldn't admit she touched his fox fur. This fox fur would be so warm and cozy to cuddle and sleep with if the snowy season came and it was freezing cold. Realizing this thought, Sumu Yao was horrified. God, how could she think such a thing? Sumu Yao shook her head vigorously, shaking such thoughts out of her mind. Hua Raini looked down at her. It was rare to see her like this, a little delicate and still a little cute. Cute? Realizing the term, Riniko Hana were startled, and at the moment, his heartstrings were actually a little weak. Obviously he used to loathe her, but the pheromones clearly told him that she was different. Hua Rinya had not been able to resist the urge to touch her hair, but the feeling of his body's previous reluctance to get close was still there, and he restrained himself from touching it. His magnificent lips twitched and he softened his voice. It's okay, you can grab whatever you want. Sumu Yao all froze and looked up to see Hua Raini. Then all at once they met his magnificent, moving eyes, which had a thin, glistening luster, loving and soft. He wasn't thinking of getting back at her here? Sumu Yao slowly let out a sigh of relief. Good. It looked like the Beastmaster contract bound him to not do anything to himself, but she also had to control herself. Don't wait for the contract to be lifted later and they turn back for revenge. Sumu Yao wouldn't believe that they really treated her any differently. After all the abominable things her predecessor had done, if she had been one of those beast husbands, they could all have dismantled her in great revenge. So she actually understood how they felt inside. Hua Raini once again transformed into her beast body, then used her fox tail to carefully roll Sumu Yao up to place her on her back once again. He was just about to make his move when Sumu Yao suddenly saw something on the side and hurriedly said, Wait, what's wrong? You put me down first. Hana Rinya did as she was told. After Sumu Yao got off of Hua Raini, she came to a tree not far away. Is this a wheat tree? The wheat stalks were thicker and taller than the wheat stalks she'd seen in the last days, and were covered with large, golden-colored kernels of wheat. Sumu Yao had originally suspected that she had misread it, but looking closely that little grain of wheat is indeed a grain of wheat. It really is such a big grain of wheat. The crops here just felt like bigger wheat grains than in her last world, all 3 or 4 times the size. Hua Raini walked over to Sumu Yao's side and looked down at her. What's wrong? It's food. It's called wheat. Sumu Yao was very happy and excited, and couldn't help but share this exciting news with Hua Raini. But Flower Rinky Knight had no idea what wheat was, just looking at the grains on this and thinking of food like rice, guessing it might be something similar. The point is that with wheat you can eat pasta. Hua Raini understood Sumu Yao's meaning and said, Does Wife Master need to pick these off? Sumu Yao nodded. Well, you can cut the whole thing down, and the straw can be used as grass for the fire. Straw can be woven into straw hats, fans, mats, and so on. It's just that this straw is a little thick. It can also be used to burn grass ash. Because of the wheat harvest, Sumu Yao looked at Hua Raini much more favorably. If he hadn't led himself down this path, she wouldn't have been able to spot wheat at all. Turn around and make pasta. Hua Raini also didn't know what the pasta was, only knowing that at this moment Sumu Yao was very happy. Although half of her face was black, the smile between her eyebrows was so genuine, and her smiling eyes seemed to be holding a pool of blue water, clean and clear. Hua Raini quickly helped to cut this wheat stalk. Sumu Yao directly put it into the space. Looking at the wheat that disappeared all of a sudden, Hua Raini were stunned. Space powers? Sumu Yao nodded her head. Hua Raini inwardly, however, set off waves, dual system supernatural ability, or both extremely rare space supernatural ability as well as healing supernatural ability. It's incredible, and it's still their wives and masters. When she was in the Beast Emperor city, she was known as a wasteful straw bag of vicious females. There's a lot of gossip about her. She has suffered the disgust and blank stares of countless people. If those people knew that she was a dual system psychic, I don't know how they would feel. Or was it because the whole thing had changed since she had her powers? Either way, it's a good change. In the past 2 days, watching her act like a normal female, they were shocked and at the same time afraid that if they woke up, she would be back to her old self. Of course, because they made her females. They were mocked and ridiculed when they were in the Beast Emperor city, because their wives and masters couldn't even soothe the wildly cranky mental sea of the Beastman. This is the most basic ability that all female beasts have. But the healing powers are so much better than that, whatever it is that pacifies the mental sea. Su Muyao looked at Hua Raini. His fox eyes at this moment had a complicated and deep color. What's wrong? Hua Raini said calmly. It's nothing. What else does the wife and master need? As long as she stayed this normal. Whatever she needed, he did it for her. Su Muyao looked around and said, first find out if there is any more of this kind of wheat around here. But a quick spin around didn't reveal anything. Space system, did you find anything? The space system said, host, no wheat has been found in 100 miles around. Looking at Su Muyao's somewhat disappointed expression, Hua Raini incarnated her main body and directly leaped onto a high tree to look into the distance. He used his fox eyes ability, expending some of his powers, and spotted another wheat tree halfway down the valley a few hundred meters away. Hua Raini came down from the tree and looked at Su Muyao. There's another one. I'll take you over there. Su Muyao's eyes instantly brightened. Yes, let's go over there. Hua Raini placed Su Muyao on his back and passed over in a single leap. He quickly cut it down and put it on the ground. Su Muyao used her mind to collect it into the space. Just then the space system said excitedly, host, 60 meters to the right is cabbage. Big cabbage. Su Muyao's eyes brightened even more. She quickly looked over towards that side and saw a cabbage patch. Lots of cabbages. Only they were all normal cabbage size. And that's enough. With all that cabbage, you can make dumplings and ravioli for pies and other foods. Su Muyao brought her bone knife this time and excitedly dug up cabbages. Hua Raini looked at her behavior and walked over to help silently. I'll do it. Wifey will be fine resting on the side. He looked at this thing as grass, but looking at Su Muyao's excited and thrilled expression, this was clearly not grass. Is it hard to believe that this is food? Chapter 17 Protecting Her. Su Muyao arched her eyebrows and smiled. It's fine, let's dig together. This is cabbage, and with wheat cabbage, you can make cabbage and meat dumplings, and cabbage and meat buns, and cabbage can be used in stir-fries. Su Muyao looked at the cabbage and filled her mind with all kinds of food, and you can pickle sauerkraut with cabbage, and sauerkraut can be stored for a long time. When it comes to the snowy season when you can't go out and hunt for food, you can just fry bacon with sauerkraut. Bacon should also be smoked ahead of time so that the meat can be stored for a longer period of time. She couldn't go out hunting in the winter anyway, and she had a way of getting a variety of food that wouldn't go hungry. And there are sweet potatoes growing in the space field as well as some transplanted onions and ginger. It's all the food I saw in the mountains yesterday. Cabbage is also transplanting some in space. Hua Raini's expression twitched. So it was really food. Something like that. People instinctively think it's grass. Flower Rinky Knight quickly helped and started digging up the cabbages. With the help of Flower Rinky Knight, the piece of cabbage was soon all dug up. Su Muyao collected them all into the space. Thanks a lot. I'll make you some good food tonight. Hua Raini's eyebrows moved, brimming and teasing. There's no need for wife master to say thank you. It's an honor to eat food made by my wife. She'd never been so polite before, always bossing them around and ordering them to do things. Su Muyao didn't take Hua Raini's words seriously. This guy was especially good at seducing people and saying nice things. Su Muyao spoke. Let's go to the place with medicinal herbs next. Yes. Hua Raini naturally transformed into her original body and continued to carry Su Muyao deeper into the mountain forest. After about another hour, they came to a place in a valley. Su Muyao smelled a strong medicinal aroma right on Hua Raini's fox body. Su Muyao happily said, it's medicinal herbs, the scent of many medicinal herbs. After Hua Raini leapt over there in one leap, the view widened, and Su Muyao could see that the valley was filled with all sorts of medicinal herbs. Hua Raini sensed that Su Muyao was happy, but had to remind her. Some of the medicinal herbs here are poisonous and should not be touched at will. A wild beast accidentally trespassed here before and died of poisoning on the spot. Su Muyao nodded her head and said, I know, don't worry, I have the numbers. Most of the herbs she recognized, but there were some that she had literally never seen before, and they were not in the ancient healing arts of the end times. However, she had a space system, and if she didn't recognize the herbs, the space system could help her identify whether they were poisonous or not. When Su Muyao got down from the fox and Hua Raini changed into human form, Su Muyao took the bone knife and carefully went to the front to dig up herbs. In particular, she saw a few key herbs that could help her unlock her body's speed, and her appearance would be restored by then. There are also herbs that can be used to make hemostatic medicine, insect repellent, medicine for wind and cold, and so on. Looking at all of this, a bright and radiant smile appeared in Su Muyao's eyes. Su Muyao went up and dug up some herbs and carefully put them in the space. Hua Raini looked at her carefully, fearing that she would suddenly be poisoned. When Su Muyao turned her head, she happened to meet Hua Raini's frowning and worried eyes. She looked at the sky. The sun was right in the middle of the day, indicating noontime. Wanting to show her appreciation, she spoke up. Let's have lunch. Flower rinky night. I brought sweet potatoes in my space, so I can bake some sweet potatoes for dinner. Hua Raini lowered his head to meet Su Muyao's bright and moving eyes, and his expression moved as he said, "You wait here and don't move. I'll hunt some wildlife nearby." Su Muyao nodded. Good. Hua Raini was uneasy, so she directly transformed into a fox body and sprinkled some fox fur around. I've sprinkled my scent around. I'll come in time if there's danger. Su Muyao all froze. Although they loathed her, they did try their best to protect her. Not a moment after Hua Raini left, there was suddenly a grim mocking laughter in the air. Su Muyao's whole body instinctively went on alert when she heard this voice. She looked towards her surroundings and found nothing. Space system, have you found anything yet? Host, I found nothing, except that this herb by your feet is poisonous and cannot be touched. Su Muyao gazed and said, I heard a grim voice with a murderous intent in it, making me instinctively feel dangerous. The space system was surprised. Ah, host, it's because my current abilities are limited and I can't help the host detect the source of the danger. Su Muyao said, it's fine, we'll always get stronger. I suspect that it was those 5 beastmen from the predecessor's previous time in Beast Emperor City who tried to kill me. The space system said, are they going to send someone to kill the host? Don't worry host, I'm a space system, I have energy, I can protect you. It is particularly fond of the host, and when the host is in danger, it will protect the host even if it has to sacrifice itself. Because of crossing over to this world, it was now weak and hadn't been upgraded yet. If it's upgraded, it'll protect the host even more. Su Muyao said, it's fine, the big deal is to use that method to quickly increase your strength. The space system knows what the host wants to do. If the host forcibly devours the breath of the surrounding 100 miles of plants to enhance the supernatural ability, your body can't withstand it easily bursting into flames. Even if you can withstand it, there will be after effects, and the host's body will become weak, and it will also last for a long time before it recovers. Su Muyao said, so I won't use it until I have to. The space system relieved. Host, don't be afraid. I just sensed that 9-tailed red fox beast husband of yours has arranged the fox hairs around him, and there is his soul power on it. If you are in danger, he will rush back. Su Muyao said with a faint expression, they should want me to die. I don't expect them to come back to protect me. They hate all of them. Right at this moment, a sharp whistling sound suddenly came from the air, and a huge black bird with a sharp beak attacked towards Su Muyao. The first attack was suddenly blocked by a red glow around Su Muyao. Su Muyao all revealed a surprised look. This fox fur really carried power, as if a barrier could help her block danger. So he really didn't want anything to happen to her? The huge bird with the sharp beak was blocked back. It spun around and swooped in again. Su Muyao ran her body's supernatural energy, one hand holding the bone knife ready to protect herself, the other hand began to rapidly absorb the surrounding plant breath. At this moment, the chi and blood in her body were about to turn over, but at that moment, an arrow with flames pierced straight through the giant bird that was attacking towards her. At the same time, Hua Raini landed in front of her, hold her back. At the same time 9 tails came out and enveloped her in a protective position, blocked all the attacks for her. Looking at Hua Raini's figure, Su Muyao was frozen. He's really back. Flower Rinse Knight didn't say much, it was straight to battle. There were suddenly 2 more huge blackbirds with sharp beaks in the air, and they frantically attacked. Hua Raini protected Su Muyao while bending his bow and shooting arrows. One of the giant birds turned into a humanoid shape and pointedly said, Hua Raini, your body is poisoned by fire, forcing you to use your magic weapon to fight with us. When the time comes, your spiritual sea will go berserk and riot, not only to die but also to be crippled. It's not worth it just to protect such a vicious female. Our master has a secret method to restrain the beast husband contract. If she dies, you won't die either. So as long as you cooperate with us, my master will teach you the secret method himself. Chapter 18, The Sea of Spiritual Sense. Hearing these words, Su Muyao's face changed. She quickly absorbed the natural aura in the palms of her hands to forcefully enhance her powers. But it takes time. She couldn't tie her well-being to someone else. Even if Hua Raini wanted to kill her, she could still block it. Hua Rin Night Demon smiled demurely and said, she is my wife and master. I will never allow anyone to harm her. Saying that, Hua Raini forcibly pulled the spell in her hand. More so, he forcefully mobilized the alien power in his body. Su Muyao was watching from behind him, and could feel the blazing flame aura of his body, a mass of red, as if it wrapped him up. At this moment, even if he was just a back, he was dazzlingly beautiful. Shoo! The arrows directly attacked towards these 3 sharp-billed giant birds. One of the arrows in the arrow, however, extremely suddenly changed direction and shot at the speaking bird and beast. Put! A mouthful of blood spurted out of him as he looked at Hua Raini incredulously. You are looking for death. He didn't think that Hua Raini would shoot him even if he didn't care about his life. The man's eyes widened and he fell straight off the top. lost to the flames. The other two giant bird beasts were both killed by arrows as well. There's only dust left. Only then did Hua Raini turn back to Su Muyao, examining her carefully and asking, "Are there any injuries? Is there anywhere uncomfortable?" Su Muyao shook her head. "I'm fine." She looked at the current Hua Raini. His fox eyes were glowing crimson. "What's wrong with you, Flower Rinky Knight?" She heard what that pointy bird beast just said. Hana Rinkuya was desperately trying to control herself from going berserk at this point, but the head ached sharply and violently, and the body shivered. The fire poison came straight up, and blood spilled out from the corners of Hua Raini's mouth. At this moment, he could barely maintain his human form, and his entire body turned into a beast body as he collapsed on the ground. "Don't come near me. I'll hurt you. You run." He had wanted to get away from here himself so he wouldn't hurt her when he went berserk and animalistic. However, he had forcibly used his magic weapon and exhausted his body's alien energy. His whole body was too weak to move. Su Muyao looked at such Hua Raini and probably understood what was wrong with him. At this moment, her heart was actually somewhat moved and touched. "I don't run and I don't walk. You're in this position to save me, and I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Though she was not a nice person, she cherished the goodness of others, and when they treated her 1 point of goodness, she was able to return it double or even several times. Not to mention the fact that he had saved her at the risk of his own safety. All the more reason she couldn't just ignore it. At this time, Hua Raini still retained a trace of sanity, and when he heard these words, the light of his fox eyes trembled. Did he hear correctly? In a blur, he met her serious look. Then Su Muyao walked forward and tentatively reached out to place her hand on his head, releasing her healing supernatural energy into it. Input into his body, Hua Raini ended up passing out. Su Muyao entered his spiritual sea of consciousness. Entering his spiritual sea of consciousness, Su Muyao saw a young red fox beast, looks about 5 or 6 years old, beat him to death. He and his father deserve to die. And grabbing medicine. Grabbing what medicine? Your father is you are also Your father was the one who used the fox charm tactic to scheme against the family head in the first place. You all deserve to die. A lowly red fox fur. A disgrace. Many people were punching and kicking him, and he didn't say a word. He was just careful to protect what was in his arms. Finally the men got tired of cursing and beating him before he got up and limped back to one of the mansions. He came to the door of a dilapidated courtyard and gasped in pain. Then working his way into human form, he wiped the ash from his face and went inside to control the fire and boil the water for the medicine. After boiling the medicine, he went to the bedside. "Father, it's time to get up and take the medicine." The figure on the bed, as if through a mist, she couldn't see it clearly. "Ahem, Ringu, did they hit you again?" Rinya Koana tried to make her voice sound like nothing was wrong. "Father, I'm really fine." "Father, drink the medicine first. Your body will be better after drinking it." "Rinyo, if one day father is no longer here, you must live well." "Father, don't say things like that. Rinyo can't live without father." He was still a small child at this point, and still scared to hear such words. His voice choked and trembled a little. The person on the bed gently stroked the hair of Riniko Hana and let out a long sigh. The scene suddenly changes again. The dilapidated courtyard is even more dilapidated, and Hua Raini's father is sicker on a snowy day. Hua Raini went to beg the head of the family. On his knees, "I beg the family head to ask the witch doctor to save father. Please, householder." That's his mother. He doesn't dare call her mother, only the head of the family. But he went to beg his mother and didn't see her at all, and kicked out by the guards. It didn't help that he was on his knees for a long time, covered in bruises. His dad still died on a snowy day. He cried suppressed tears as he returned to the yard where he and his dad lived. Instead, they were scolded and beaten viciously. "Little you and your father deserve to die. Waste, useless waste. What the head of the family loathes most is your father and you. No, the head of the family doesn't even recognize your existence." Watching this scene, Su Muyao's heart ached. Turns out he went through something like this. He's still so small. Su Muyao entered his spiritual sea of consciousness trying to pull him out from it, trying to protect him. It was as if a barrier around these scenes cut her off. It didn't matter how much she shocked. It was only until this moment that Su Muyao broke through the barrier and walked in front of Hua Raini. She knelt down and picked him up carefully. "It's okay, it'll all be okay from now on." Saying that, all of the wood system powers in her body surged into him. After Hana Rinyo fell into a berserking frenzy, it was as if his spirit was once again trapped in the time when he was a young man. It hurt all over, and he couldn't save Dad yet. He wanted to die with Dad over and over again, but he remembered his father's words to live well. In his despair, thinking he was going to die on a wintry day, a light suddenly appeared in the yard. Out of the light came a woman. She was as beautiful as the spirit of heaven and earth, like an orchid in an empty valley. She smiled at him like the sun. She smelled so nice and warm too. It made him want to get closer and closer. "You're fine, don't listen to those people like that. Turns out he was all so good looking when he was little. His fox eyes as clear and pretty as the washed out sky. A warm glow flooded in to wrap around him. His spiritual sea of consciousness was gradually repaired. It was as if the wind and snow had dispersed and the sea of consciousness was surrounded by the warmth of the sun. Then the man in the sea of consciousness became the adult him. He looked at her, and his mental body, the nine-tailed red fox, couldn't help but wrap itself around her, holding her close. The foxtail seemed to wrap around from her legs upwards. His fox eyes took on a compelling aura, and Su Muyao's entire body was viciously tingling. No, don't. Chapter 19, Fire Poison. This tingling and trembling sensation in her body made her completely overwhelmed. Hua Rainey's fox eyes were slightly hooked, his eyes carrying the ultimate thirst. It was an instinctive craving to be near her. The body all seemed to be out of control. Not enough, not enough. Wanted to cling to her even tighter. All nine tails of his mental body wrapped around her, but also controlled not to hurt her. It smells so good. Hana Reniko, wake up. Don't you loathe me? Who do you think I am? Su Muyao quickly dodged, but it didn't work. Don't bite. His head was down to his neck. At this point he was still a fox spirit body, as if he was about to bite her neck. Su Muyao's eyelashes fluttered lightly, but the imagined pain was not there. All she felt was warm breath falling on her neck. How had Su Muyao ever encountered such a situation? Her entire body went soft all of a sudden. Hana Renya. Su Muyao didn't even expect to call his name at this time. His voice was all delicate and soft as if he wanted to be pampered. No, it wasn't her voice at all. She wouldn't admit it. Su Muyao instantly shut up. She felt that if she kept this up, in his mental sea of consciousness, he could devour her. Su Muyao also knew that at this time he was still caught up in it, in a manic state, and didn't know if he was better. She once again channeled him with her wood powers, until his eyes calmed down, while Su Muyao quickly came out of his spiritual sea of consciousness. However, consuming too much would system supernatural energy. At this time, after her spirit came out of his sea of consciousness, her legs were weak and didn't stand still, and at that moment, after Hua Rainey woke up, her body recovered and became humanoid. She directly embraced her. Wifey, watch out. Holding on like this actually took the person directly into his arms. His eyes took on a loving, soft color when he looked down at her. With each berserking mania, he fell into that one scene from his youth. It was as if they were going to die in the wind and snow. Even if you wake up later, your body will be weak for a long time. But this time, she was the one who broke through everything and appeared before him like the sun. At that moment, he thought she was beautiful, and her appearance was one of no disfigurement. He hadn't been wrong about the pheromones he'd smelled earlier. Her scent was as fragrant as a flower and as warm as the sun. It made his mental body subconsciously and instinctively wrap around her and stick close to her in the chaotic sea of mental awareness. Even think, there was a restrained-like aura in the bottom of Hana Rina's eyes. Couldn't let go of her in her arms. Su Muyao slightly pushed his chest, feeling the substantial touch. The abs under her hand all carried a sense of power. Her palms were as hot as they were burning, hurriedly shrinking back. You first. Let go of me first. At this time the space system opened its mouth and said, Host, let him hold I upgraded a little. The space field expanded by a factor of 2, and now there is an acre of land, and there is also a small pool of well water that has sprung up, and inside it is the spiritual spring water. It's not much, but that's still spiritual spring water. Upon hearing about the spirit spring water, Su Muyao got excited. Spirit spring water can strengthen the body. It can also help detoxify the body, quench the body, and it can even all help to restore psychic powers. The benefits are numerous. Su Muyao used her mind to scan into the space and indeed saw the spirit spring water well, but there wasn't much spiritual spring water in the well. Probably knowing what Su Muyao was thinking, the space system said, as long as the host gets more intimate with the beast husband, the spirit spring water will still increase. Hua Rainey had originally hugged Su Muyao, and when he heard her say for him to let go, Hua Rainey couldn't let go inwardly in any way. He doesn't know what's going on here. Perhaps it was because this was the first time his manic mental sea had been soothed, making his mental body dependent on her. Hua Rainey slowly released Su Muyao. There was still a hint of infatuation in his eyes as he looked down at her. Only after being released by Hua Rainey did Su Muyao breathe a sigh of relief. Su Muyao looked at him and said, How do you feel physically now? Are you done? Well, it's okay. What's with the fire poison in your body? She had just felt that overbearing fire poison in his body even when she had input her wood system psychic energy into his body. Hua Rainey's complexion converged and a bitter look appeared on her face as she said, It's the fire poison they put on me when I was a child. You mean the Su family? Su Muyao knew that Hua Rainey came from the Beast Imperial City's worldly noble family, the Su family. He was the son of the Su family head, only he didn't have the surname Su. He followed his father's surname Hua. Good, to make it easier to control me. Su Muyao seemed to think of something and said, I'm sorry, Back then it was because of me that you had to marry over to be my beast husband. It was hard on you. They'd put up with it when their predecessor had mistreated them like that before. And not only did they have to be laughed at and looked down upon by everyone because of her, and to follow her into exile, where she was hunted by countless killer beasts on the way, all of whom were desperately trying to protect her. Almost lost my life several times. The predecessor met the glorious heir of the Su family, Su Hajing, at the Beast Emperor banquet back then. At that time, relying on her father's merits and background, the predecessor was going to force this male son of the Su family to marry her as a beast husband. The Su family had to agree to this, but in the end, the plums took the place of the peaches and allowed the unpopular Su family's son, Hua Raini, to marry. The predecessor was furious beyond belief, but there was nothing he could do about it, because at that time, the Su family's head promised to marry the Su family's male son to her as a beast husband, and Hua Raini was also the Su family's male son. The Su family is also the one who has the upper hand in this matter. Moreover, it was impossible for the Su family to marry both males to her, and the predecessor could only suffer from this matter. That's why the predecessor vented all of his anger on Riniko Hana, and Rinku Hanabi suffered all of this in silence. Thinking of those memories of her predecessor, Sumu Yao sighed in her heart. This is also a poor Hua Raini reached out and gently tidied up her wind-blown hair, her movements gentle and meticulous. It's not your fault, and it was good for me to leave the Su family at that time. The fire poison was something they put on me a long time ago, just to make it easier to control me better. Hua Raini went to feel the fire poison at this time, and suddenly he looked stunned and said, the fire poison has been suppressed, and it's been relieved a bit. This gave even Rinkuya Hana a feeling of incredulity. He looked at Su Muyo with some shock. Her healing powers can cure fire poisoning? But how can it be? At that time, the Su family all swore that this fire poison was the Su family's exclusive secret medicine, and no one could solve it. He had privately seen countless powerful witch doctors, and indeed there was no way to solve it. Su Muyo seriously said, don't worry, when my supernormal ability is enhanced, I will be able to completely remove the cold poison for you. I can only help you get rid of it a little bit nowadays, but I can help you suppress the fire poison. These herbs in the valley have just the right amount of medicine to suppress the fire poison. She had a way to suppress it for him so that he wouldn't be tormented by the fire poison. How in the world did this man endure the pain of fire poisoning and make himself look as if he was fine on weekdays? It's also too tolerable. Chapter 20, Softness of the Heart. Su Muyao's eyes were clean, clear and sincere. What she said was also the truth. She genuinely wanted to cure the fire poison for Hua Raini. Hua Raini's heart had already been shaken beyond measure. He didn't hold back at this point to reach out and hug Su Muyao once again. This time the hug was tight. There was a feeling of rubbing her into his heart. Wifey, thank you, thank you. At this point, other than saying thank you, Hua Raini didn't even know what to say. There were so many emotional emotions surging through him. Because of too much excitement, his fox eyes were tinted with a hint of thin charm and demonic red, and the gentle movement of the tail of his eyes had a seductive feeling. He whispered hoarsely, whenever the fire poison attacked before, it was never so easily suppressed. Not to mention that some of it has been solved, which is good enough. It gave him hope. He had thought that one day he would die under the fire poison. It's not that he's afraid to die, but he can't die because his father's revenge hasn't been avenged yet, and he's going to find grandma and grandpa in them too. Listening to the tremor in Hua Raini's words, Su Muyao even sighed a little. The predecessor did do a lot of evil things, and was not nice to a couple of beastmen. Hua Raini and the three of them were still able to stay by her side, and each had their own constraints and difficulties. She will heal them and set them free again. One day the fire poison will be completely removed. As long as the wood system's supernatural ability was upgraded, completely detoxifying the fire poison would be a breeze for her at that time. Su Muyao felt that Hua Raini had been hugging her and not letting go. It wasn't a solution to hug her like this, and the space gets upgraded with one intimate hug, and after that upgrade it's not very effective to keep hugging like that. She spoke softly, it's getting late. Let's have some dinner first, and then we can go home early in the afternoon by picking some herbs. She was also thinking of coming home early to grind the wheat for wheat flour. The tribe has a special stone mill with large and small stone mills built by the tribe. It is mainly used to grind some corn kernel beans, just what she could use to grind wheat. Normally the stripped wheat kernels are dried and cleaned, and the wheat is moistened and then ground in a stone mill to produce flour. But you can speed it up if you use your powers. Only after hearing these words did Hua Rino reluctantly release Su Muya. Okay, eat something first. He was also worried that his wife and master were starving. Wifey must be hungry after a busy morning. Wifey, wait a moment. I have hunted 2 pheasants. Having just sensed that his wife and master were in danger, he threw down his pheasants then and quickly rushed back. Su Muyao's eyes lit up when she heard pheasant. Then we'll have pheasant later. Watching Su Muyao's eyes light up, the tail of Hua Raini's eyes twitched, revealing a hint of a stunningly seductive smile. He lifted his lips and said, good. I'll take my wife and master over with me. At this moment, Hua Raini wasn't worried about leaving Su Muyo here alone, so Hua Raini carried Su Muyo and quickly went over there, taking the 2 pheasants that had just been hunted into her hands. These 2. Wow, that's a pretty big pheasant. It's 1.5 times the size of the chickens farmed in the endgame base, and pheasant meat is firmer and more flavorful. In the post-apocalyptic world, none of the wild animals could be eaten, and she didn't even know what pheasant tasted like. Hanarina all froze for a moment. Pheasants had always been this size. Wifey used to hate pheasants that were too small to eat. Su Muyao's eyelashes fluttered, and she snapped. That was before. I think chicken tastes delicious now. Hua Raini's fox eyes took on a gentle color and said, if wife master likes to eat, I will often hunt pheasants back for wife master to eat in the future. Su Muyo said, let's all eat together, and in the future, I will make gourmet food for you to eat from all the wildlife you hunt back. The abundance of ingredients is just great. Looking at the pheasants, Su Muyao felt that her stomach was hungry as well. She looked around and said, did you catch it around here? Aha, then maybe there are eggs around here. If the wild eggs are okay, they can hatch chicks. When the time comes, you can build a coop in your yard and raise some chickens. That way you can have chicken and eggs whenever you want. Seeing that Su Muyao was interested in the eggs, Hua Raini spoke up. I'll look for them. Su Muyao spoke. Let's look for it together. She turned around a bit more, and the space system should be able to help spot the wild eggs. Sure enough, after turning around, the space system suddenly became excited and said, host, 100 meters further on, there are wild eggs in the grass under that tree. Su Muyao quickly went in that direction. Sure enough, I found wild eggs in the bushes. Hua Raini's complexion twitched as she said, there really are wild eggs. Su Muyao arched her eyebrows and smiled. Surprisingly, there are 15 of them. Is wifey going to eat it? I'll roast it for wifey later. In the wilderness without a pan. If the wife wants to eat wild eggs, she has to bake them and eat them. Su Muyao carefully observed and realized that all these wild eggs could hatch chicks. Take these back first. You can use these eggs to hatch chicks at home. Hua Raini did know that there are some merchants who specialize in breeding chickens, and when the chickens lay eggs, they take them to the market to sell. But they were all hatched by hens. Probably knowing Hua Raini's doubts, Su Muyao explained, as long as the temperature is enough, you can hatch chicks from eggs. Saying that, Su Muyao carefully put the egg into the space. Then, Su Muyao and Hua Rinyo found a streamside, and Su Muyao prepared to handle the pheasant herself. Hua Raini took the initiative to take over and said, I'll do it. Wifey can wait around for a while. Just a moment. Hua Raini handled these with extraordinarily sharp movements. He had planned to roast the pheasant over the fire when he was done with it. But Su Muyao spoke up. Let's make cold chicken for dinner. Su Muyao took out the mushrooms picked yesterday from the space along with onions and ginger and put them into the chicken's stomach. Then take out the seasoning from the space and smear it on. Then pick a clean lotus leaf and wrap it up. Then paste a layer of mud on top. It was the first time that Rinkuya Hua had seen such a practice. Su Muyao said, get it done like this. Then dig a pit and build a fire. Bake it and you can eat it. Hua Raini felt it was rare, but seeing Su Muyao's excited look, she did as she said. After getting it done, Hua Raini controlled her fire powers to roast the food. As it roasted, a strong aroma emanated. Hua Raini hadn't felt hungry because he was all used to not eating at noon, but at this point, the smell of the aroma has whetted the appetite. After it was roasted, Hua Raini did as Su Muyao said and got rid of the mud first. The chicken is still hot at this point. Su Muyao's stomach was feeling hungry as she smelled the aroma. She eyed the callow chicken. Hua Raini looked at her and both felt that the wife master at this moment was adorable. It made his heart soften all of a sudden. With a gentle brow, he softened his voice and said softly, in a moment. Hua Raini didn't care about the heat. Used a clean knife to cut a piece of meat to put it on a clean lotus leaf. Used her powers to control the temperature. Wrapped it up and handed it to Su Muyao. The temperature is just right. It's ready to be eaten. He is a fire psychic and can control fire to raise the temperature. But in order to get the temperature of the food just right, he reversed the use of his powers to control the temperature of the food. This way the chicken is not so hot and the wifey can just eat it. Chapter 21, Restraint and Conceit. When Hua Raini looked at Su Muyao now, there was a loving and tender look in all of his eyes. She was carefully taken care of at meals, as if taking care of one's wife and master is a happy thing to do. At this moment, he had simply forgotten that he had wanted to leave Su Muyao before. Su Muyao took it and wrapped it in a lotus leaf and took a bite of the chicken to eat. Yummy! Food made from all natural ingredients is just delicious with a hint of lotus leaf aroma. And the pheasant meat tastes great. Su Muyao's eyebrows curved up in a smile at this moment, as if full of sunlight, clear and warm, even more so with a luscious beauty. Hua Raini was more focused on cutting the chicken pieces, cutting them in one piece to make it easier for Su Muyao to eat. Su Muyao ate a few bites and looked at Hua Raini and said, you eat too. It's okay, I'm not hungry. Wifey eat first. Seeing how much she liked it, Hua Raini was worried that 2 chickens wouldn't be enough for her, so he doesn't eat first. Not enough to eat, he goes hunting for wildlife again. Su Muyao was happier eating it than he was eating it himself. Unbeknownst to him, Su Muyao couldn't even eat that much. Eat together. I can't eat much, and if you don't, it'll go to waste. Roasted 2 chickens yet. When Hua Raini looked down at Su Muyao, he watched as a little bit of crumbled chicken was smeared on the edge of her reddish mouth. Su Muyao felt Hua Raini's line of sight and raised her head to look at him, only to instantly meet his brimming and seductive fox eyes. It was languid and deep, as if it carried a vortex to swallow her up. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Su Muyao touched her cheeks with her hands and felt nothing. Then he stuck out his tongue and gently curled his lips, and it didn't feel like much. Unbeknownst to him, this action caused Hua Raini's eyes to darken. The knot in his throat rolled lightly, swirling with loving spring. Nothing, don't move. At this time Hua Rin Knight's voice is low and clear, with Su teasing breath, and then close to, he stretched out his long, jade-like, bony, delicate fingers and gently wiped the crumbled chicken from the corner of her mouth. The belly of his fingers grazed her lips, causing Su Muyao to feel her lips tingle. The tingling sensation and electricity seemed to pass through his lips to the tip of his heart all at once. Su Muyao's heart missed a beat. The touch between her fingers also caused the color of Hua Raini's fox eyes to darken. The eyes all seemed drunk. The knot in his throat moved, his voice suppressed. That's better. Fingers are a little reluctant to take them back. He also wondered if it was because she had channeled her manic sea of spirituality for him, and he was somewhat unable to calm down now that he was facing her. Su Muyao fixed her mind and told herself that he was only treating her better because of the fire poison. They still loathed her in their own right. Thinking like this, Su Muyao's heart lake that had just rippled instantly calmed down. You should eat soon too. You don't really have much strength with only 2 meals a day, especially since they have to hunt and skipping lunch is pretty tough. In the future, when your family is better off, you still need to make sure that you get 3 meals a day. Hua Raini glanced at Su Muyao with a complicated expression, and said in a low, husky voice, I'm actually very strong and capable. Su Muyao blinked her eyes, unsure. Hua Raini's ears reddened slightly, not knowing how to explain. Su Muyao insisted that Hua Raini eat the chicken, and only then did Hua Raini eat it. How was it? Was it good? Su Muyao smiled. The smile is pure, and there is a kind of good behavior sweet glutinous feeling. Let a person cannot help but want to reach out and rub hard. Realizing the thoughts of the beast in his heart, Rinku Hana hurriedly suppressed them. He didn't even feel like himself anymore. It's delicious, the most delicious food I've ever eaten. I don't know if it's psychological or not. He felt beautiful and sweet. Su Muyao smiled and said, as long as it's delicious, when you guys are out hunting later and you get a pheasant in the middle of the day, you can make and eat it that way too. It's easy. If there is any other wildlife, you may roast it as well. Hua Raini shook his head and said, that's not good. The hunted beast should be brought back for his wife and master to eat first. It's a mindset they grew up with. Each of their male orcs had to learn the idea of male virtue from a young age, and grow up to specialize in learning how to be a good orc husband as well. Su Muyao also knew that their minds could not be changed for a while. After eating a full meal, Hua Raini used a clean towel and handkerchief dipped in water to help Su Muyao wipe her fingers clean one by one. Very careful and thoughtful. Su Muyao was a bit uncomfortable. I'll just go to the river and wash my hands. Hua Raini's hands moved. Good. After Su Muyao washed her hands, Hua Raini took out a clean towel and handkerchief to wipe her hands clean again. Su Muyao had to admit that all the rules of the beast world continent were really good for female beasts. Beast husbands take care of their wives and masters as if it is a cultivation etched in their bones. After packing up, Su Muyao started digging for herbs. Hua Rinyo had wanted to help, but Su Muyao politely refused. You don't understand that those herbs are poisonous, so it's better not to touch them. I know how to pick herbs and which ones to pick. Pick some needed herbs first. Hearing her words, Hua Raini could only guard her at the side for now. After picking the herbs, it was getting late, so they were ready to go home. Hua Raini transformed into a fox body and carefully curled Su Muyao onto his back with his tail. Hua Raini walked for a while and felt Su Muyao sitting in a regular manner and not touching him. He whispered, wifey can hold me tight, or I'll need to control my speed and worry about my wifey falling off. In that case, it might be a little late to go back. Hearing Hua Raini say this, Su Muyao then reached out to hug him. The moment she hugged him, Su Muyao inwardly sighed. This fox fur is really too comfortable. It smells and has a refreshing light fragrance. From the memories of her predecessor, she knew that the beastmasters were extremely clean, and they all have their own light scent. Would love to touch his ears and foxtail. She's a bit of a furry control, but she held her tongue when she thought of how much the beastmasters loathed her. Unbeknownst to him, the moment he was hugged by Su Muyao, Hua Rinyo almost didn't even stand still. Somehow, at this point, he could finally feel every inch of her body. A burning sensation poured out of his body, a feeling of thirst welling up in his body. But he had to restrain himself so much that his body trembled a little. His fox eyes were all hooked up with a thin charming and demonic red color, somewhat woozy and intoxicating. He was eager to stick close to her, so he was going faster and faster. Su Muyao naturally didn't notice this. She was afraid of falling and could only cling to him. Unbeknownst to him, the touch of the rubbing made Hua Rainie's entire body tinted red, but also his red fox fur covered the burning sensation. When they arrived home, both Wenanchi and Xiao Silan had already returned with the food they had hunted. It was only when Wenanchi saw Su Muyao hugging Hua Rainie tightly for a moment that a trace of strange dullness surged in the bottom of his heart, especially looking at the eyes of Hua Rainie that were about to go into heat. Wenanchi's gaze darkened, rushed forward and extremely fast but natural carried Su Muyao off of Hua Rainie. Wifey is back. Su Muyao felt the refreshingly cool touch of Wenanchi's body and had a very comfortable feeling. Just now she was about to be scorched by the fiery temperature of Hua Rainie's body. Is wifey tired? Wenanchi gently straightened Su Muyao's hair, with a look of worry that she was tired. Only the eyes seemed to carry a hint of stoic restraint. Chapter 22, Getting Used to Being on Your Own. Su Muyao came back to her senses and shook her head. I'm fine. That's not something to get tired of. Saying that, she slightly retreated, avoiding Wenanchi's touch. Wenanchi watched her avoidance movements, a hint of frustrated loss in his eyes. The bottom of his heart was even more inexplicably flooded with a tinge of sourness. Su Muyao actually didn't want to immerse herself in their tenderness, trying to keep myself calm and sane at all times. I picked some herbs and dried them in the yard first, after which I can concoct herbs to make some medicine bags. It could also detoxify herself, as well as suppress the fire poison for Riniko Hana. As for the wheat grains, I probably won't be able to make pasta tonight. But she looked to see that the sweet potato starch had settled well again. When Nanchi walked over and asked, Wife Master, is there anything that needs to be done? Su Muyao said, you need to get all the water out of the top, leaving only the sweet potato starch underneath. When Nanchi nodded, so he used his supernatural ability to suck all the water out of the tank, leaving only the clean sweet potato starch at the bottom of the tank. Normally, sweet potato starch needs to be dried before use. Su Muyao thought of Hua Rainie's fire ability. He had used it to dry her hair before. She turned her head to him, which thought that at this moment, Hua Rainie had originally had her gaze fall on her. When she turned her head, she instantly met Hua Rainie's seductive eyes. He quickly walked over and whispered, Wife Master, can I help you with anything? It's able to dry these starches, just gently, like a sun-dried kind of feeling. Hua Rainie smiled and said, Good, this one's easy. He manipulated his fire powers and quickly dried out the sweet potato starch. Wifey, is this okay? Su Muyao reached out and touched the dried sweet potato powder and smiled. Well, this is just fine. I'll make you sweet potato vermicelli for dinner tonight. Su Muyao left some to be used to make vermicelli that night, and the rest of the dried sweet potato flour was loaded up and stored. This is good for storage. Xiao Silkan looked at Wenanchi and Hua Rainie who surrounded around Su Muyao. A strange feeling flooded his heart. That night, Su Muyao then made a rib and fishball soup, a plate of braised pork, a plate of fried cabbage and sweet potato vermicelli for everyone. Sweet potato vermicelli as a main course and 3 large plates of food, enough for the 4 of them. When everyone sat down to eat, Hua Rainie they found every single food extremely delicious, especially sweet potato vermicelli. That's a food they've never eaten before. Turns out it can be this smooth and delicious. I don't know how to make that whatever braised pork. It's so soft and flavorful. And pork chop and fishball soup. They used to dislike this kind of rib meat, feeling that it was all bones and not much meat, which is to say that this makes a rib soup with much more flavorful ribs than plain meat. When Nanchi looked at Su Muyao's fingers with a heartbroken expression and said, the food made by his wife's master is delicious. In the future, wifey just need to ask and let us do it with our hands. Wifey's palms are burning. It must hurt. While frying the vegetables, Su Muyao's fingers were scalded by a splash of oil. Su Muyao felt nothing, but the way when Nanchi looked at her, all with a look of pain and pity. It was as if she was extremely injured. Su Muyao didn't feel anything. At the end of the world and the beginning of the supernatural ability is not strong enough. When the fight is seriously injured and bleeding are inevitable things. She was numb to the pain and was fine with a simple bandage. It's not that pretentious. It's also the case that everyone in the Beast World continent protects the females very well, which is why the females are a bit delicate, right? It's okay, this burn doesn't hurt at all. Besides, everyone helped out together when it came to cooking. She wasn't in the habit of being clothed and she wasn't in the habit of being dependent on the next person. Presumably this is a habit developed in the end times. She was used to relying on herself for everything. It's easy to get killed in the end times by relying on others. When Nanchi's gaze fell on Su Muyao as he spoke, seeing her look dazed for a moment, and then showing her bland indifference, for some reason, it was as if something pricked him in the heart. The look on her face in that moment just now, lonely and forlorn, was as if hard thorns had been erected around her body, isolating her from everyone's proximity. Even Hua Raini and Xiao Silkhan could feel the subtle change in Su Muyao's aura at this moment. Her scowl all but narrowed, taking on a hint of detachment. Originally, everyone felt that the food was extraordinarily delicious, but sensing that Su Muyao was a bit upset, they all didn't say anything else. Once you've had your fill, everyone scrambles to clean up the dishes. Su Muyao then went to the courtyard to get herbs. After packing up, when Nanchi came to Su Muyao's side at the first opportunity, "I'll do whatever my wife needs done. It's okay, I'll just get it myself." When Nanchi looked at her tiny figure, a feeling of pity welled up in his heart, and he carefully apologized. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that during dinner." Su Muyao shook her head and said, "It's none of your business." "Is wifey angry?" Su Muyao said. "No, not angry." When Nanchi softly asked words, and Su Muyao answered all normal, but when Nanchi just felt that she had separated a barrier around her, isolating everyone, it made him want to get closer, but there was no way. All he could do was stay by her side in silence, not even knowing what to say. Xiao Silkhan looked at it for a while and went back to the house. Flower Rinky Knight, on the other hand, was looking for work to do in the yard. There was no work to be done, so I took out a rag and variously wiped the doorframe. Su Muyao worked for a while and made 4 insect repellent packs. "These 3 you use, and here's the deworming kit. This way you won't get mosquito bites if you put it at the end of your bed at night." When Nanchi looked at the insect repellent medicine packet she handed over, her mind a little complicated. Her disposition had changed since that incident the day before yesterday, and she had been busy with them for the past 2 days. It's meals, and she eats very little on her own. Why would she be nice to them? But he couldn't read her mind. Unlike before, when she was malicious and paranoid and crazy, it was so obvious that one could guess her mind at a glance. When Nanchi restrained his expression and said in a warm voice, "Thank you, wife master. You're welcome. You all take care of me with all your heart on a regular basis and venture out on hunts. It's nothing for me to do that." She was going to get herself a deworming kit anyway, and it didn't bother her at all to make more by hand. As beast husbands, we are supposed to take care of our wives and masters. Su Muyao revealed a hint of a smile and said, "You guys have been good to me, and I as a wife owner want to be good to you guys as well. The care is all mutual. There's no should or shouldn't. I only hope that you'll remember this much of what I've done in the future as well. Just don't turn on her then." A silent, dark color swept across the bottom of Wen Nanchi's eyes. He knew, she was actually worried that they would hurt her. But how? He knew she wouldn't believe anything he said, and could only use his actions later to make her trust them. Hearing these words from the side, Hua Raini's heart felt as if a stone had been pressed into it. Sleeping at night, Su Muyao had been lying awake when she suddenly smelled a familiar scent of dark fragrance. She opened her eyes with a start and saw the fiery red fox beside her bed. "Flower Rinky Knight, what are you doing here?" Didn't they all shun her in the middle of the night? So she hadn't really expected one of them to show up in her room in the middle of the night. Chapter 23, Pure and Innocent. Hua Raini lifted her fox eyes and looked at Su Muyao seriously. The moment she just saw him, she instinctively sat up and backed up inside the bed, all the way to the wall. There was a great distance between them and him. Watching Su Muyao's movements, Hua Raini unexpectedly had a feeling of hurt inside. The fox's eyes all showed a hint of aggravation as he said, "Is that how my wife's master treats me, as a flooding beast? He hasn't even gotten close yet." If it had been before, she would have been able to quickly and directly post up without them having to do anything. Today it is. Of course he knew that she wasn't the same person she was before, so it's not the same, nowadays. He was looking forward to Su Muyao posting over. Hua Raini fox eyes hooked, with a lazy and compelling aura. Whispered Su Mute, "I am the beast husband of my wife's master, worried about my wife's master, and want to keep watch for my wife's master." He didn't know why, but when he lay down at night, he couldn't sleep, full of her. There was even the way she appeared in his mental sea. The feeling of the snugness made his body go all hot. Su Muyao all looked at Hua Raini with a strange expression. According to the memory of the predecessor, this had never happened before. That's why she had some suspicions that something wasn't right with Rene Hanna. "Aren't you afraid of what I'll do to you at night? Or even if you have good stamina, what would you do if I gave you that kind of ecstasy?" The previous predecessor was the one who gave Xiao Silkhan such a drug. It's a pretty strong medicine, but Xiao Silkhan's determination was quite good. That medicine might even hurt your body if you don't solve it. But Xiao Silkhan looked normal. Nothing special. Su Muyao had thought that these words would frighten Hua Raini, which would have thought that Hua Raini's fox eyes took on an expectant and provocative color, rippling and seductive. He slowly approached Su Muyao and looked down at her. Su dumbly teasingly said, "In fact, wife master doesn't need to be drugged. I can be wife master's person." Hearing such a reply, Su Muyao were shocked and stared wide-eyed. She hurriedly picked up the animal skin next to her and wrapped herself in it, not caring about her fear of heat at this point, which thought that this fox beast man was completely out of line. Is this a brain fart? That, ahem. I'm not feeling well enough for that right now. She was totally unprepared. Okay. She was all but afraid that Hana Rinakoi would come direct. According to the memory of the predecessor, the normal situation between the beast husband and the wife owner, all hate to roll in bed every day. It seems as if male orcs have stronger ideas in that area than normal men. Hua Raini looked at her reaction and watched her blush, and although she was a little lost, she was also a little amused inwardly. Today's wives are pretty much pure love. He's all the more eager to. However, Hua Raini was afraid of scaring his little wife master, so his throat rolled a little, suppressing the thirst in his heart. He moved closer to her and lowered his head to whisper in her ear in a compelling tone, "Wife master, don't be afraid. Rinyo will do nothing without his wife's permission. It's just that I was worried that a mutant beast might pop up, so I decided to guard my wife and master in the room anyway, so that wifey can sleep in peace." Sumu Yao looked up at Hua Raini's expression and felt that he was serious in what he said. Seeing how he just looked, he should be teasing her on purpose as well, or maybe it's supposed to suppress the fire poison to detoxify it. As such, Sumu Yao looked at Hua Raini with understanding eyes and said, "Then it's hard on you." She wasn't worried about anything. With that face and what she'd done before, it was a wonder they could be interested in her. The previous predecessor had done so many crazy things and used so many tricks that didn't work. They still had a name for each other, so she didn't have to worry about what would happen in the middle of the night. With someone keeping watch, she could still sleep in peace. This would be Sumu Yao lying down at ease, probably really relaxing and falling asleep in no time. Hua Raini listened to her shallow breathing, both sighed helplessly and murmured softly, still really relieved. So fast asleep. The moonlight outside the room spilled into the room, giving her a moving glow, especially when she was lying on her side and sleeping, revealing that half of her perfect side face, her skin like snow, her magnificent posture, and her purity. The beauty is so beautiful you can't take your eyes off it. Ghostly, Hua Raini's foxtail moved forward closer, gently curling around her, trying to wrap around her, wrapping tightly. The fox eyes even took on a strong possessive look. Just then, there was a sudden hint of refreshing coolness in the room. Hua Rinyo set up a boundary around Sumu Yao to block the sound from waking her up while reflexively attacking. But all of a sudden, he was confronted by Wen Nanshi. Hua Raini's offense didn't retract, only her fox eyes raised. "Wen Nanshi, what are you doing here?" Wen Nanshi looked at the sleeping Sumu Yao on the bed and lowered his voice. "I should ask you this sentence. What are you doing here in the middle of the night without sleeping?" Wen Nanshi on weekdays gives people a feeling like the moonlight waterlight, warm like jade, elegant and overwhelming. However, at this moment, there was an additional cold aura around him, and even an additional hint of sharpness, a look of readiness to fight. Hua Raini's fox eyes narrowed as he raised his eyebrows and smiled. He ruffled his long, soft hair and said in a lazy, casual manner, "As a beast husband, I naturally came to accompany my wife and master. According to the rules, the wife and master belongs to me today too, doesn't it?" When Nanshi's warm gaze sank, "Dangerous aura, what are you going to do?" Hua Raini lifted his lips and smiled. His entire person was permeated with a lazy air. "Not doing anything, just wanting to give myself to my wife." Hey, unfortunately, the wifey just looked like she didn't want to be very resistant. When Nanshi looked carefully at Hua Raini, "He wasn't like this morning. What happened in the mountains today? What did you force her to do?" When Nanshi somehow thought that perhaps something had happened that he didn't know about. Perhaps the night of the flower rincon had done something to her. His fingers trembled and his heart seemed to prickle. Hua Raini's fox eyes twitched and he said in a deep voice, "When Nanshi, she's my wife and master. I don't need to report what I do with her to you." An aura of biting cold chill surged around Wen Nanshi. "Don't disturb the wife and master. Come out." Hua Raini glanced at the sleeping Su Muyo before reluctantly coming out. Wen Nanshi's fingers moved, and there were countless more bamboo thorns in front of her all of a sudden, aimed at Hua Raini's ready-to-attack appearance. "Hua Raini, if you don't love her, don't mess with her, and don't even think about hurting her one bit. Nine-tailed red fox orcs are born to make charm spells, best at compelling people." When Nanshi was worried that she would use her charm technique against Su Muya, at the evening meal, the look of bewildered sadness in his wife's eyes was so evident then, and the unspoken words she had said when she had given them the deworming packet, just let him know that she actually distrusted them, even thought they would hurt her. He couldn't say anything, but he could promise he would never hurt her one bit, and he would never allow anyone else to hurt her in the slightest. Chapter 24, Mystery of Origin. It was as if Flower Rinky Knight had been galvanized by these words, as if flames were burning out around her body. His fox eyes rose, a thin red of anger in his seductive eyes. "When Nanshi, what are you talking about? How could I possibly harm my wife's master?" As Hua Raini spoke, she released a lot of flames in her hands, hovering in the air, ready to fight Wen Nanshi. Just he thought, don't move too much later. You can't wake up your wife and master. She's had a tiring day, but she must get some rest. Even though he had set up a barrier boundary, he was a bit worried if it moved too much. When Nanchi directly set up another layer of boundary around Su Muyao's room with her supernatural energy to ensure that she could sleep peacefully. So what were you just going to do while she was asleep? Hua Raini blushed and couldn't help but explain. I just wanted to hug her. I didn't want to do anything. Although he had an uncontrollable thirst for his wife and master at that time, he really didn't think of doing anything while she was asleep. It's just a hug and a rub. Can't you do anything else? Hua Raini reacted. No, Wen Nanshi, you're not right. You didn't react this way to anything we used to do to our wives. How is it that now that I am near my wife and master, you are not pleased? Don't you loathe your wife and master too? When Nanchi converged, she's different nowadays. Hua Raini's expression twitched as she said, you also know that she's not the same as before. When Nanchi looked carefully at Hua Raini's complexion, the aura of the fire poison in your body has weakened a lot. So wife master has combed your frenzied spiritual sea of consciousness for you? Hua Raini knew that Wen Nanchi was smart. Wen Nanchi's origin was a mystery. And even they were uncertain about his capable abilities. He used to be too lazy to care about a lot of things, so he didn't show it. Now it's showing its edge. Hua Raini nodded her head and said, not bad, wife master. She was able to suppress the fire poison for me, and she was also able to remove some of the fire poison for me. I find it all amazing. So, she's so nice. How could I hurt her one bit? Wen Nanshi, today's wife master is not your wife master alone. I'll take good care of her, too. Moreover, when Su Muya combed her spiritual energy, he could be sure that she wasn't the same person she was before when he had seen her in the sea of spiritual consciousness. It's just that he naturally wouldn't say anything about this kind of thing outside. When Nanchi listened to these words from Hua Raini, and only then did she withdraw her powers. The two didn't fight. Hua Raini looked at Wen Nanchi and looked at him with a scrutinizing expression. Wen Nanchi, do you know something else? Hua Raini remembered that when Nanchi was Su Muyao's father brought back to Beast Imperial City back then. Let him become Su Muyao's beast husband. No one knew what Su Muyao's father, the Su family lord, had explained to him in the first place. No one knows where he came from. When Nanchi didn't answer Hua Raini's words, but only gazed and said, Mei Qingdan and Shenruyan never returned. They have the secret method of restraining the beast husband contract on them, as well as the people from Beast Emperor City. They might do something to wife master. We need to be prepared. Upon hearing those words, Flower Rinky Knight's fox eyes revealed a grave expression. He spoke. 3 assassins came to the mountains today to try to assassinate the wife master. Those people are Jiang Machuan's subordinates. When Nanchi heard these words, Wen Ye's gaze chilled, and in an instant it took on a biting killing intent. Jiang Machuan. The corner of Hua Raini's mouth hooked as he said coldly, Jiang Machuan is the heir of the Jiang clan and one of the most famous figures in Beast Emperor City. Wifey did a lot of crazy things for him back in the day. It is said that a husband and wife for a day. I didn't expect that he would send an assassin to kill his wife and master. What a ruthless heart. Saying that, Hua Raini suddenly smiled and said, that's good. In the future, wife master won't have any relationship with him. One thing that came to her mind all of a sudden was that when he had come into the room the day before and asked his wife to write a letter of repudiation, she had agreed. He also mentioned at the time that said wife's master's sweetheart in the Beast Emperor City, but wifey looked indifferent and didn't seem to care at all. That's good. When Nanchi said in a clear and elegant manner, on the way to exile, some of the killers are also his people. Nothing strange. He's in Beast Emperor City, unable to reach this side. Those killers are also good to deal with. Hua Raini listened to Wen Nanchi's unfinished words and said, you're worried about Mei Qingdan and Shenruyan? These two men are still the nominal beast husbands of their wives and masters today. These two came with along to the tribe, and although they were nowhere to be seen now, they must have been around here as well. So if these two move to kill, it wouldn't be easy. Nice, Hua Raini said, then guard against it, and let your wife and master guard against it as well. After a moment's pause, Hua Raini smiled to herself again and said, that's the wife master's beast husband. Approaching the wife master is a normal thing. Letting the wife master take precautions can't really be convincing in any way. He could not wait for his wife and master to be surrounded by as few beastmen as possible now. This damn possessiveness is out of control. Xiao Silkhan was meditating and cultivating inside the house to enhance his supernatural abilities. It could have been closed off and senseless, but it couldn't help but listen to the movement outside. After listening, he sighed. That's a lot of attention to focus on. Su Muyao's figure also popped up in his mind. Remember what she said at night. She said, you have been good to me, and I want to be good to you as my wife and master. The care is all mutual. There's no should or shouldn't. He had never heard anything like it. They have been ingrained with the idea that the beast husband should take care of his wife and master. As for the females who are the wives and masters just need to enjoy life. There's even a saying that female animals are far from the kitchen. No female was willing to go into the kitchen for her beast husband, and even if someone was, they were afraid of being laughed at. but she was willing to go into the kitchen and cook. The food they had eaten over the past 2 days was like no food they had ever eaten before. The way she was cooking in the cookhouse was nothing like her old nasty self. I wonder if it's a new trick she's come up with. Shao Silkhan closed his eyes and sighed. He felt that since he had eaten the delicacies, his heart was a bit messed up and he was unable to meditate and cultivate. Su Muyao naturally didn't know this. It was a good night's sleep for her. The next morning when she got up it was Xiao Silan waiting at the door to take care of her washing up. Su Muyao was a bit helpless and could only call when Nanxi and Hua Rin night over together and said, "In the future, I can pour my own water to wash up. You guys don't have to take such good care of me." Xiao Silken's face, which was as beautiful as a poetic painting, turned slightly white as he habitually bowed his head and said, "I'm sorry, it's me who didn't take care of my wife master. It's my fault, please punish my wife master." According to the usual practice, if Su Muyao was dissatisfied, she would toss all of them. Su Muyao looked at his figure. Jilan Yushu, temperament as fresh and clean as snow, should be clear and noble dust, do not dye the world dust. Now that they were being abused without temper, they all sighed a little inside. Feeling a big misunderstanding, she hurriedly explained, "No, you don't have to, and there's no need to apologize, and I won't chastise." What a picturesque, dusty man, abused by his predecessor and apologizing. It's such a waste. She softened her voice and continued, "Actually, I'm the one who's not used to it. Just do whatever you guys need to do to get busy. It doesn't have to be around her." How uncomfortable it is to be watched when you wash your face and brush your teeth. Chapter 25. Xiao Silkhan and the three of them stood beside each other, all a bit frozen. They really don't need to do anything, but they feel they are useless. Su Muyao started cooking breakfast after washing up. Xiao Silkhan and the others helped out together. After having breakfast, Hua Rini and Wen Nanxi were going to be in charge of hunting. Xiao Silkhan was at home taking care of Su Muyao. Hua Rini looked at Su Muyao and said, "Wife master must pay attention to safety if she goes to the mountains and forests." He actually wanted to be there for his wife and master, but he was not the only beast man with a wife and master, and he had to follow the rules that had been set in the earliest days. Originally, this rule was set in the beginning because everyone was unwilling to take care of Su Muyao around her, but she can't be left to fend for herself, so everyone has to take turns. It's a bit of a bad taste these days. Su Muyao shook her head and said, "I'm not going to go to the mountains and forests today. There's still a lot of things to do at home, so I'll stay at the tribe." Hearing these words, both Wen Nanxi and Hua Rini were able to feel a bit more at ease. It will be safer in the tribe. Xiao Silken's complexion moved slightly, and he looked at Su Muyao without moving, but he didn't say anything. Oh, by the way, Flower Rinky night, I've prepared medicine. Boil it up in a while and you drink it before you go hunting. It's a medicine to suppress the fire poison. If you drink it every morning and evening, the fire poison will also be half dissolved after a month. The herbs that were picked in the valley yesterday happen to have medicine against fire poison. Moreover, she used space spirit spring water to boil the medicine this time, and the effect would be better. Hua Rini's complexion moved, her fox eyes all rippled. "Wife master, you're so good to me." He thought that Su Muyao was just talking about it yesterday, and that it wasn't that easy to find medicine to suppress the fire poison. "I didn't expect to get it done first thing this morning." Su Muyao couldn't stand such a look from Hua Rini. "On the road to exile, you guys did your best to protect me. It's only right for me to be nice to you. You're all physically fine, and you'll be able to protect me better for the next 3 months. Hua Rini gathered his expression. He didn't want to hear the words 3 months. If wifey had been like this all along, he would not have wanted to leave after 3 months of pressure. Su Muyao used a clay pot to boil the medicine, allowing Hua Rinyo to control the fire with her fire ability. When Nanxi, on the other hand, went hunting first, Xiao Silkhan began to clean up his home to boil water and chop firewood. It's a man with work in his eyes, and he's never been idle. Even though he was all noble and dusty, he was extremely careful and sharp in doing things. It's just looking as if you're doing some kind of artwork, and every move is elegant. Hua Rini couldn't help but look at Su Muyao even as she controlled the fire to simmer the medicine. At this moment Su Muyao was piling an egg nest with grass. "Make the nest warmer and put wild eggs on it so the chicks can hatch." Hua Rini looked at the busy Su Muyao. The morning sunlight fell on her, making her entire body carry a warm and soft aura, also as if she was about to feather her own nest. There was an inexplicable moment of panic in Hua Rini's heart, and he said softly, "The insect repellent package that wife master gave us last night really worked well. Hang insect repellent packets above the bed and the house will be mosquito-free all night." He has psychic powers and extraordinarily sharp ears. Many times when I go to bed at night, I can't sleep listening to the mosquitoes. I did sleep well last night when I got back to the house. Not a sound at all. That medicine bag is pretty amazing. Someone from the tribe bought insect repellent kits at the city's mutual market earlier, and none of them worked. Upon hearing these words, Su Muyao's expression moved as she looked toward Hua Rini and said, "Mutual market?" Hua Raini explained in a warm voice. Well, the closest city to our tribe is Beihan City, and Beihan City opens a mutual market once a month. Many of the nearby tribes bring things to trade at the mutual market. Some will buy things with crystal coins and some will exchange items for items, but it would be easier to use crystal coins. Listening to these words, Su Muyo was puzzled. Then how many crystal coins per pack when we go to the mutual market to buy insect repellent packs? Hua Raini said. I heard that a packet of insect repellent medicine packets is 100 copper-colored crystal coins. Su Muyao's complexion all changed. 100 copper-colored crystal coins. So expensive? It was said that during the mutual market, a pound of beast meat would only cost 20 copper-colored crystal coins. A wild egg is also just a copper-colored crystal coin. 100 copper-colored crystals. Hua Raini nodded. Well, that's the price. The herbs are more expensive. If an orc is seriously injured, going to buy herbs as well as visiting a medical center in the city is even more expensive. It's a small box of hemostatic pills that requires 500 copper-colored crystal coins. Su Muyao's eyes lit up as she listened to these words. Then could she get some insect repellent packs as well as blood-stopping packs to sell at the mutual market? That way you can make more crystals. She would be able to buy more things with the crystal coins. According to the memory of his predecessor, Beihan City had many stores as well as many goods. She actually wanted to buy more daily necessities, and more clay pots and jars so she could use them for storage. After digging up so much cabbage yesterday, she wanted to pickle sauerkraut with it, and there were no big jars or pots to use, and there's not enough salt. She also wanted a blacksmith to build things like iron pots and kettles. I didn't dare to think about it before, but it's just that ironware, iron pots and things like that are all too expensive. If you have enough crystal coins you can build these things. When was the last mutual market? There's still half a month to go. In this way Su Muyo had a number in her heart. She can prepare a lot of things in this half month. Is there still food for sale at the mutual exchange? Well, when the orcs from the tribes go to the city's mutual market, most of them stay all day, and the larger tribes might even stay all night. So everyone will eat on the spot, and the mutual market sells food. Whenever it's time for the mutual market, the beasts in the city also come over to hang out and buy things, because for everyone, things are most varied and cheapest at the mutual markets. Su Muyao nodded. Generally tribal orcs sell things at prices that might be cheaper, whichever sells. Su Muyao asked some more questions, and Hua Raini answered them all seriously. In this way, Su Muyo had a number in her heart. She planned to buy the repellent and hemostatic packs first, and then find a blacksmith to build something after she earned her crystal coins. You can also build a grill and consider that you can use it to bake groundnuts. A flat iron skillet, instead, can be used to make some pies. Of course wheat is still scarce and she can't afford to make food with white flour to sell. But you can make food with cornmeal and sell it. Cornmeal is said to be cheap and people don't want to eat it. That's because people don't know how to make food. She could make cornmeal vegetable biscuits with plain cornmeal, and they would be just as good if they were well seasoned and fried in oil. In the future, she can go to the mutual market to sell all this food. After Hua Raini's medicine was boiled, Su Muyao wanted to help him pour it out. Hua Raini hurriedly said, "Wife master, be careful of the heat." "I'm not afraid of the heat. I'll do it myself. He's a fire psychic." Xiao Silkhan looked at the scene of the two people talking and laughing and interacting, and a strange feeling surged in his heart. Still, he couldn't trust her easily when he thought about what she had done. Chapter 26 is sweet. Hua Raini poured out the boiled medicine. The medicinal broth is still a little hot, so stop for a while before you drink it. Hua Raini then went to dispose of the dregs of the medicine to clean the pot. After it was all cleaned up, Hua Raini came back to drink the medicine. He drank the medicine with a bland look and drank it all straight away, without even taking a pause. Su Muyao looked at his calm and numb expression and guessed that he had suffered a lot before. She had prepared this medicine, and she naturally knew how bitter and hard it was to drink. Surprisingly, he didn't even frown. After thinking about it, Su Muyao took out a few ice candies from the space and said, "Reach out." Hana Rinya instinctively reached out her hand. Su Muyao placed the icing sugar in his hand and said, "This is sugar. You hold it in your mouth and melt it. It will remove the medicinal flavor." Although Hua Raini had never seen this kind of candy before, she didn't think much of it and put it directly into her mouth. Not a moment after putting it in his mouth, he felt an indescribable sweetness spreading in his mouth. The sweetness seemed to well up into the heart. "It's sweet." Su Muyao smiled and said, "Now the medicine won't be bitter." Hearing these words, Hua Raini's heart and mind stirred. Growing up, controlled by the torment of fire poison, no one ever cared if he took the medicine bitterly or not, and no one ever gave him candy. Hua Raini's heart shook, and her fox eyes, which were rarely serious, welled up with a layer of watery mist. The watery mist was followed by a brimming, gentle look. "Wifey is so nice." Su Muyao met Hua Raini's eyes and thought to herself, he wouldn't be touched by this, would he? In that case, then, 3 months after he regained his freedom, he shouldn't be able to make a move on her. In this way, Su Muyo was relieved. Hua Raini looked untamed, but in reality, her bones were a person who hadn't experienced much warmth since she was a child. That's why she felt that turning a war of words with Hua Raini and sending more warmth should work. Hua Raini naturally didn't know what was going on in Su Muyo's mind. At this time, he looked at her fox eyes tipped up, thin charm brimming, and as if rippling gently ripples, whispered hoarsely, "Wife master in the future are like this, okay? What so? It's just that wifey don't change back to the way she was before, okay?" Su Muyo didn't know how to answer for a moment. It was she herself who didn't know what caused her to cross over to this beast world continent. She asked the space system, saying, "Space system, is the predecessor soul still there?" Host, there was something wrong with the soul of the predecessor, and now that it has long since gone up in smoke, this body should have been the host's in the first place. Only now it returns to its original trajectory, so it's all hosts from now on, and the host doesn't have to worry about any changes. Su Muyo felt that something wasn't quite right as she listened to these words. Just before she could think about it more, she felt some pain in her hand. It was Hua Raini who gripped her hand hard, his eyes carrying a hint of panic. "Wife master, you'll always be right?" Having never heard Su Muyo's reply, Hua Raini was still really a bit flustered. He didn't want to face that previous wifey. Su Muyo smiled and nodded her head. "Don't worry, it won't change back to before. I've always been like this. She is who she is today." In this way, Hua Raini was relieved. Looking at the smile on his wife's face, a hint of sweetness rose in Hua Raini's heart, and he didn't know if it was the sweetness of sugar or something else. He had drunk too many medicines to deal with the fire poison, and his entire body was numb from the smell of the medicine. "This is the first time that drinking medicine doesn't feel so bitter, and I don't inwardly reject the feeling anymore, because the wifey has candy." After drinking the medicine, Hua Raini left reluctantly. He's going to be in charge of going hunting and getting more food back. Otherwise, when the snowy season arrives, without storing enough food and firewood for the winter, people will easily freeze and starve to death. He couldn't let his wife and master starve and freeze. After Hua Raini left, Su Muyo continued to busy herself. She took the wheat she got into the space yesterday out of the space and put it in the yard. Start peeling the wheat kernels. Normally, collecting wheat by the primitive method is a controlled grinding of stone mills to ensure that the wheat can be threshed, but wheat grains in the Beast World continent are 2 or 3 times larger than in the last days and can be peeled right off. Su Muyo peeled a moment to glance at Xiao Silkhan, wanted Xiao Silkhan to help with the work, but right now there was no one Nanchi or Hua Raini in the house, and she was really afraid that she would anger Xiao Silan and have him pierce her directly with an ice blade. Xiao Silkhan rechopped and stacked the firewood he cut yesterday. Although he was working silently, he could naturally feel Su Muyo's line of sight. When he turned his head to look at her, Su Muyo hurriedly lowered her head and pretended to be working. After several times like this, Xiao Silkhan spoke in a low voice. "Is there something wrong with wife master?" "No, it's fine," Xiao Silkhan said. "I've already chopped and stacked the firewood. I don't know what else I need to do. Please instruct my wife." Xiao silenced cold Jilan Jade Tree, all noble, but put the posture very low. Anyway, as long as his wife and master didn't think about drugging and sleeping with him and scolding him, he could get used to dealing with it. Su Muyo would raise her head to look at Xiao Silkhan, and found that although his expression was clear and cold, his look was serious, and there was no reluctance to be reluctant. Su Muyo pursed her lips and said, "That, all of this wheat needs to be stripped of the wheat kernels so that it can be dried in the sun to make food." "Okay, I'll do these." Su Muyo gave him what she thought was a relatively kind smile and said, "Then I'll work hard for you." Su Muyo was still instinctively a bit detached and constrained when facing Xiao Silkhan. Xiao Silkhan could naturally feel these as well. "No hard work." Saying that, Xiao Silkhan stepped forward, and Su Muyo naturally rushed to get out of the way, keeping her distance from Xiao Silkhan, lest he think he's looking for a reason to approach him on purpose. Certainly according to the memory of the predecessor, that is, the one that the predecessor wanted to take down the most was Xiao Silkhan. It was only because Xiao Silkhan's crisp and clean temperament was similar to Jiang Mochuan, whom his predecessor had liked. Unfortunately, the predecessor used countless methods without success. She didn't even want to remember that, even though it wasn't her doing, it was this body. So remembering all that, she had a feeling of groundlessness. Xiao Silkhan directly manipulated it with his supernatural energy, and those small wheat grains were quickly threshed out. When Xiao Silkhan's fingers closed, all those small wheat grains went to the barrel next to him. Su Muyo looked at this scene in surprise. Allomancy can still be used like this. That's a lot faster than she can use her hands. "Thanks a lot." Xiao Silkhan's expression moved as he gave Su Muyo a glance with ulterior motives. She never used to say the word thank you. "It's what I'm supposed to do, so no need to say thanks." This saved a lot of work. Su Muyo poured out the wheat grains on one side of the yard to dry in the sun. The weather is sunny, and if the sun shines all noon, you can go to the mill and grind flour in the afternoon. You can make pasta for dinner at night. Su Muyao's eyes all had an expectant look in them. No need to get wheat so she can cure bacon and smoke it. Just then, suddenly a percolating cold voice came from the doorway. It is as cool as snow falling from an empty valley. Nice but with a biting chill. Su Muyao, however, felt that this laughter was somewhat mocking and carried a sense of familiarity. She looked up towards the doorway and saw a magnificent ink-clad man standing in the doorway. The beauty is not like a real person, like a rosebush blooming in the dark night. Chapter 27 Mysterious Beast Husband Mei Qingdao. He was dressed in a black brocade robe with dark patterns embroidered at the corners, and his waist was matched with white jade. A head of long, ink-colored hair was draped behind her head, and there was a sense of absolute beauty and writing like an ink painting. The temperament around him was even more honorable and elegant, only that his phoenix eyes were narrow and deep, like an ancient pool, hiding treachery and mystery, but also the beauty of the cold and magnificent. The forehead is even with a black and red strange pendant, with a complicated pattern. Moreover, he didn't know what kind of supernatural aura he had released, and it was as if a black fog was shrouded around him, giving people an extremely depressing feeling. The moment she saw him, Su Munao's face changed. She knew through the memories of her predecessor that this was Mei Qingdan, one of her 5 beast husbands today. The main body is the underworld Black Panther beast, the next designated heir of the Mei clan, a noble family. The Mei clan is an even more ancient clan, and the family power is extremely mysterious. His predecessor had only seen Mei Qingdan once at the birthday banquet at the palace, and he was so astonished that he had to get him. This is the reason for the hunger strike. I also don't know what method this body's father used to make the Mei family agree to marry Mei Qingdan to her as a beast husband. In short, Mei Qingdao carried a weird power with her. The predecessor was physically uncomfortable every time he tried to get close to him, and so far, the predecessor hadn't even touched Mei Qingdan's sleeve. Like nowadays, Hua Raini, Wen Nanshi, as well as Xiao Silan all wore animal skins. However, Mei Qingdan was wearing an extremely honorable brocade robe, the texture of which was still emitting a faint luster, and the corners of the robe were embroidered with some patterns. This is the family totem sign. Only worldly nobles with enough heritage have such unique markings. Mei Qingduan? Su Muyao's eyes trembled. The man gave her the impression that he was powerful, and the regal pressure was even stronger. Even when the phoenix eyes looked at her, there was extreme disgust in them, and after the disgust came indifference. Host, be careful, host. The predecessor wanted to sleep with this beast husband before, and never succeeded, not even touching people's clothes at all. She was angry in her heart, so she wanted to retaliate. And then she threw Mei Qingdan's extremely important natal sword under the death cliff on the road to exile. On the way to exile, Mei Qingdan was seriously injured in order to protect his predecessor against the countless mutated beasts, and his predecessor took advantage of his serious injury and unconsciousness to strike. He must have tried to kill you when he came back this time. Su Muyao knew that the native sword that was a magic weapon sword that accompanied its owner since childhood and had spirituality. Su Muyao's face all changed when she heard the system say so. The corner of her mouth twitched. The predecessor was really killing herself. She hurriedly tried to absorb the surrounding wood-based psychic energy to boost her strength. No, system, the natural vegetation here is so lush and the natural aura is so thick. Why is it that my wood system's supernatural ability hasn't even risen much? It's still less than the first rank. The space system said. Host, perhaps the beast world continent's heavenly Tao rules are different. The females here generally don't have psychic powers, only mental powers, which are still the power used to pacify the beastman's raging mental sea. This ability of yours would be unique, so it might not be a good idea to upgrade it. Perhaps this wood healing ability also requires the host to be close to the beastmaster in order to upgrade. Hearing these words, Su Muyao wanted to faint. Mei Qingdan's rose-like lips were slightly hooked, with a cold and voluptuous arc that was actually dangerous, as if coming from the darkness, and even more so with a murderous aura. His voice sneered. Wife master turned out to remember me. With that, Mei Qingdan moved her fingers and took out a sword. It was just that the sword carried a dark aura, and the blade all seemed to be broken and decayed. The clanking sword energy that once carried the aura sword light all seemed to be gone. I'm sure the sword is not unfamiliar to wifey. Su Muyao's pupils shrank as she looked at the sword. You can tell by the memory how good the sword used to be. At this moment this looked as if they were seriously injured and were infested with black gas. By definition, this sword is a waste sword. Su Muyao much feel so pity. The space system exclaimed. Oh my god, host, what a good sword was infested like this. The benevolent sword and its owner can have a sense of each other. Mei Qingdan must be very angry at this time. Host, take cover. Looking at Su Muyao's expression, Mei Qingchen's phoenix eyes were even more tinted with a bloodthirsty dark color. It looks like wifey is keeping track, so let's settle our old scores together. Mei Qingdao looked like she was about to make a move. Su Muyao did want to hide and go into space. Ha, Why can't I get into space? The space system said in a helpless tone. Host, Mei Qingdan's strength is very strong and sealed off this place, so the host can't hide. But don't worry, host, the beast husband is bound to his wife by a contract. He can't kill her. Su Muyo said. He is Mei Qingdan. Didn't the spiky bird beast that killed me before say that they have a way to restrain the contract? Right at this moment, Xiao Silkan blocked in front of Su Muyo. Mei Qingdan, calm down. She's our wife and master. Looking at Xiao Silkan, who was blocking in front of her, Su Muyo all but looked puzzled. She had just almost forgotten about Xiao Silkan. Or subconsciously, she didn't feel that Xiao Silkan would protect her. I didn't realize he was still in the way. Su Muyo consoled herself that he must be afraid that she would die and drag him down. Mei Qingdan's hand movements lurched as she glanced at Xiao Silkan with an odd expression and said, "It's just a name without reality. I don't recognize her as my matriarch." Xiao Silkan, are you really going to stop me? Xiao Silkan did not budge an inch. The ice-based supernatural energy around him surged out, condensing ice blades in front of him to aim at Mei Qingdan. Mei Qingdan, you're going to hurt her unless you kill me. Mei Qingdan didn't have any conflicts with Xiao Silkan at all, and they had fought side by side on the road to exile. The dark swirls under Mei Qingdao's eyes grew thicker. Xiao Silkan, don't forget what she's done to all of us before. On the way to exile, we protected her with all our might. But what did she do while we were wounded? Have you forgotten? Keeping her is a curse. Su Muyo looked at Xiao Silkan and Mei Qingdan in the confrontation and wanted to say something. Mei Qingdan, calm down. As long as you don't do anything to kill me, I can dissolve my relationship with you so that you're not my beast husband. Mei Qingdan's gaze was like a sword as she listened to these words. Ha, you've said something like this before. You think I'll believe you again? Su Muyo froze for a moment when she heard these words and then looked at his eyes that were as if they had condensed into substantial killing intent. A memory came flooding back to mind all at once, to coax the 5 beastmen to escort her on her way to exile. The predecessor did say to dissolve the relationship upon reaching the tribe, hanging on to them, acting nice at first, lulling them into trusting her. And yet, when they let their guard down, they did a lot of unforgivable things. She couldn't even very well cover her face and find a place to burrow. Chapter 28, You Can Repair the Benevolent Sword. Su Muyo recalled what her predecessor had done and was practically in tears. The predecessor had said something similar to what she just said, but hadn't done it. When they actually arrived at the exiled tribe, they backtracked and said they would never set them free. It also turns out to be more abusive to the 5 beast husbands, trying to find ways to sleep with them, trying to make them her real beast husbands. Too bad the predecessor didn't get his way. No wonder she said that. Mei Qingdao didn't trust her. Su Muyo looked at his phoenix eyes with coldness and biting coldness, really moving to kill her, and the look in her eyes, as if it was extremely hot to look at her. If he hadn't been concerned about Xiao Silkan, he would have already killed over. Xiao Silkan had been firmly standing in front of Su Muyo. Mei Qingdan, no matter what, I won't let you hurt your wife's master. Fight if you want to. Although Mei Qingdan was strong, Xiao Silkan was prepared to fight. All the ice-based cold aura in his body surged around him. Su Muyo thought to herself that she had to stop Mei Qingdan. She hurriedly spoke. Mei Qingdan, what I said this time is different from before. You'll do neither of you any good if you kill me. Before Su Muyo could finish her words, the sword she struck towards Su Muyo with an overpowering aura. Perhaps Mei Qingdan didn't want to listen to Su Muyo at all at this point, nor did she believe any of her promises. Xiao Silkan instantly blocked this killing move for her with his ice blade. The ice blade clashed with the sword with a clang. The powerful collision of forces shook the surrounding air as if it carried a breaking sound. The ground was dusty. The ice exotic energy on Xiao Silkan's body instantly spread out. As the long sword and the ice blade collided, cold air spread out towards the sword. It seemed to freeze the sword. Mei Qingdan's body power ran into the sword. The sword turned, and the sword moves were continuous. The speed was so fast that one couldn't see clearly. There were only residual shadows. Xiao Silkan's ice ability manifested countless ice blades with a cold light, blocking Mei Qingdan's killing moves from all sides. And so the two men fought quickly, bumper to bumper. Su Muyo looked at these two people's moves and only felt that the speed was too fast. She couldn't see clearly at all how the two people were passing through the moves. Only the sound of breaking air could be heard, and the walls were damaged as the sword chi of the killing move swept through. Su Muyo's face changed, and she had to admit that it was really strong. She also didn't expect Xiao Silkan to be so protective of her. The space system was all tisk 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 at this point. Host, both of these people are so strong. Host, these two people are very strong in both their natural physical abilities, and their looks are so beautiful, so the host can make your relationship real, and as long as you sleep with them, the host's strength will increase rapidly. The corner of Su Muyo's mouth twitched fiercely and said, "Don't you say such words, do you think that just like this? What can I do to them? They're probably going to kill me before I do anything." The space system said, "The host can raid them. My host is the best. with the host's beauty and ability, I'm sure I can impress them. Sumuyao touched her half-disfigured face with her hand and said, there is no beauty now. The space system said, the host herself is extremely beautiful, and as long as this half of her face is restored, the host will definitely be able to amaze everyone, and the host is beautiful on the inside too. Sumuyao's forehead veins were about to pop out. That's because you think I'm good. Look at my self-filter. Probably because the system had been with her since she was very young in her last life and had some affection for her. That's why the space system has always felt very good about her. Oftentimes, all kinds of compliments and words don't go out the window, but she was still sensible. System, do something. If there's a way for me to raise my powers, quickly speak up. I need to stop them. This mansion is going to collapse if we keep fighting. Sumuyao didn't even expect Xiao Silkhan to be very strong and didn't let Mei Qingdan get the upper hand. Deadly suppression of Mei Qingdao's killing moves. The space system didn't know what to check, and after a while it spoke. Host, I know. Mei Qingdan's sword was wasted by a darkness infestation, but the host's supernatural ability can heal that sword as well. So the host can negotiate with Mei Qingdan. You cure that sword. He shall not kill you. Hearing these words, Sumuyo breathed a sigh of relief. Sumuyo shouted, Mei Qingdan, I can repair this sword. If I can't fix it, it's not too late for you to kill me. 1,000 times over. You can let me try it on the spot. After Sumuyo finished those words, Mei Qingdan paused her attack and looked at her with skeptical phoenix eyes, her delicate brows seeming to press a shadowy dark color. When Mei Qingdan stopped moving, Xiao Silkhan naturally withdrew his stance. Mei Qingdan's entire body carried a regal aura, her exquisite phoenix eyes fixedly looking at Sumuyo. Suddenly the corners of her mouth hooked up in a treacherous arc, her voice transmitting coldness as she said, You just said that you can repair this sword? Watching Mei Qingdan take her words in, Sumuyao's lifted heart slowly let out a sigh of relief. Yes, I can fix it. You can let me try first, and if I can't do it, it's not too late for you to kill me. Sumuyao's gaze swept the courtyard. Oops, the yard is half destroyed. Good thing it was stopped in time. Mei Qingdan didn't believe Sumuyo at all. He didn't believe her no matter what she acted like. However, this sword was his original sword with a spiritual nature, and it was extremely important to him. He had retrieved it from Death Valley after 9 deaths, and had searched for countless ways to fix it. He didn't believe Sumuyo could repair it. When she was in the Beast Emperor city, she was known as a straw waste. She didn't even have spiritual power. How could she repair such a supreme treasure? Xiao Silkhan also looked at Sumuyo. Looking at her serious and confident demeanor, his eyes slightly narrowed. Mei Qingdao, you can let your wife's master try, Mei Qingdan said in a mocking tone. Xiao Silkhan, how long has it been since we've seen each other, and you're starting to speak in defense of her? Sumuyo, you are quite tactful. At this moment, Mei Qingdan looked at the sword in his hand, looking at him radiating darkness and brokenness. His phoenix eyes seemed to be tinted with a sinking pain. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine, I'll let you try. I'd like to see what tricks you'll pull. Even if there was the slightest possibility, he had to try. Even at this time, he didn't believe Sumuyo, but he still took a step towards Sumuyo. Xiao Silkhan had been standing at Sumuyo's side, seemingly also preventing Mei Qingdan from making a move. However, he also knew that Mei Qingdao acted with her own principles, and when she said that she would let Sumuyo try, she would not suddenly attack, unless Sumuyo deliberately provoked him to provoke him. At this moment, although Mei Qingdan was walking towards Sumuyo, her expression was guarded, as if she was afraid of her rushing up. He had to be on guard not to let her touch him, not even with his clothes. Sumuyo was naturally not a predecessor, and could not do that kind of thing without regard for her face. Mei Qingdan stood in front of Sumuyo, keeping a safe distance and still able to place his sword in front of her. You try. Chapter 29 Amazing. Sumuyo actually hated being able to stay away from Mei Qingdan at this point, although he really does have a magnificent sense of overwhelming beauty and gives off a lot of impact. But she knew that this beauty was poisonous and to be kept at a distance, especially at this moment when he was standing in front of her, those exquisite and stunning phoenix eyes looking at her. His eyes were like sharp blades to be sheathed, deep and cold. Sumuyo then felt that his eyes were too regal, the aura pressed directly towards her, as if a chilly aura had soaked into her internal organs. Sumuyo's body shuddered a bit uncomfortably. Xiao Silkhan keenly sensed that something was wrong with her and reached out a hand to block. It directly blocked Mei Qingdao's aura. This would make Sumuyo feel a bit more comfortable in her body. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she whispered boldly to make a condition. If I can fix it, you can't do it to me again. You can't kill me. And of course, I promise to give you your freedom and let you go in 3 months. Mei Qingdan's phoenix eyes looked at Sumuyo, carefully staring at the subtle expressions on her face to see. Then he showed a hint of doubt. His eyes darkened and he said in a cold voice, Fine, if you can't fix it, I'll kill you. Xiao Silkhan looked down at her and said softly, Don't be afraid, nothing will happen. For some reason, at this time, listening to Xiao Silkan's words, Su Muyao suddenly felt a trace of security. When she looked up at Xiao Silkan, she felt that it was really wrong for her to be prejudiced against him before. He's still reliable when it counts. At this moment, his eyes were clear and gentle, and the morning sunlight sprinkled on him, making him even more jade-like in the sunlight. She looked at him gratefully and spoke softly. Xiao Silkan, thank you. I'm going to stay alive and make you a nice dinner tonight. Mei Qingdan let out a lazy laugh. The sun has really come out of the west. That's quite a disguise to save your life. In the past, Su Muyao was like this, with all sorts of tricks coming out. It looks like it's getting better, but they're all holding back bigger bad moves. But thinking about Su Muyao's father's ability, and some hidden rumors about the Su family, his gaze darkened and he said, okay, I promise. I hope you'll do what you say you're going to do this time. Mei Qingdao didn't have much hope. It was just that if Su Muyao couldn't do it, he had a reason to step in. Su Muyao was relieved to hear Mei Qingdao agree. Although Mei Qingdan's nature was a bit treacherous and unpredictable nowadays, she did speak her mind. It's good that he said yes. Su Muyao fixed her mind and stopped looking at Mei Qingdan, just focusing on this sword. For some reason, when close to the sword, it was as if she could feel it wailing in sorrow, crying out in sadness. Su Muyao felt the breath of the sword, and she also had an oppressive dull feeling in her heart. She reached out her hand and gently approached the sword before releasing her wood system powers. She used her wood powers to repair the sword. The green glow directly covered the black aura on the sword. The green glow grew more and more prevalent, and the darkness seemed to be afraid of something and gradually began to dissipate. Seeing this scene, Mei Qingdan's originally lazy complexion instantly became grave. She actually has a solution? No, how could a wasteful straw man, who didn't even have the power to appease the spirit, be able to repair the benevolent sword? It's been heavily tainted and infested by the darkness up here. Everyone he's looked to says the sword is obsolete. Mei Qingdan's posture stood straight, frowning as she looked at Su Muyao while looking at the sword. He was suspecting he was hallucinating. Xiao Silkan watched from the side, and a look of amazement appeared in his clear and picturesque eyes. Su Muyao was fully focused on injecting all of her wood system supernatural energy into this sword. Gradually, it was as if her spirit entered the spiritual sea of the sword spirit. It's a black foggy place. The black mist gradually dispersed as Su Muyao's wood system supernatural energy surged in. There were also new green shoots sprouting from the black earth, and flowers and trees were beginning to gradually emerge. Gradually she moved forward, bringing natural life into this as she walked. Gradually, it seemed as if the sword spirit no longer wailed nor cried. She also saw the figure of a man with a slender posture, and although it was only a blurred back, the figure of the back was extremely beautiful. Just as the man was about to turn around, Su Muyao suddenly ran out of wood system supernatural energy, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately afterward she was about to fall down with a wobble. Xiao Silkan directly reached out and hugged her. Wifey, looking at Su Muyao's pale face, there was still a fine sweat on her forehead. Xiao Silkan took out a clean towel and handkerchief to carefully wipe the sweat from her face. I'll take you to the witch doctor. Leaving Su Muyao at home, Xiao Silkan was uneasy and worried that Mei Qingdan would make a move. Had to carry her to the witch doctor. Su Muyao said weakly and hoarsely. Actually, I'm fine. She had just used all of her wood system powers and was very weak at this point. Just rest and relax. But Xiao Silkan was uneasy. It's better to let the witch doctor take a look. Mei Qingdan's phoenix eyes glanced deeply at Su Muyao, her complex expression saying, don't move around with her. I'll go bring the witch doctor. With that, Mei Qingdan disappeared with her sword like a gust of wind. When he came back again, he brought the witch doctor with him. The witch doctor gave Su Muyao a look and said, excessive consumption of strength, acute fire attacking the heart, insufficient qi and blood. After a pause, the witch doctor said, and there's poison in your body, a poison that makes people irritable and cranky. Hearing that there was poison in her body, Xiao Silkan and Mei Qingdan's faces both changed. This half of your face is because your body is poisoned. The witch doctor looked at Su Muyao with a calm demeanor and said, you little girl is calm. Obviously you already know all this. I can only prescribe some medicine to help you replenish your qi and blood. There's no way to cure this poison. Su Muyao faintly said, thanks to the ancient witch doctor. I do know. Ancient witch doctor doesn't need to prescribe medicine. I'll be fine if I rest. The ancient witch doctor sighed. So be it. After the witch doctor left, Xiao Silkan and Mei Qingdan were both silent. After a while, Xiao Silkan whispered, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that my wife's master was poisoned. When they were in the Beast Emperor's city, the imperial witch doctors had examined Su Muyao's body, and they all said that she was in extremely good health and didn't have any problems. Unexpectedly, when she came to the exile tribe, the ancient witch doctor examined her body. They all thought her face was disfigured, but they didn't realize it wasn't disfigured, but poisoned. Su Muyao touched half of her face and said, it's fine, you don't have to blame yourself, I can cure this poison. Some of the medicines I picked back yesterday. Some of them will cure the poison when prepared. Poisons that were insoluble to others were no problem to her. Not to mention that she herself had wood powers. She could detoxify the poison with herbs alone. Xiao Silkhan spoke in a low voice. The royal family's imperial witch doctor has never found any problems with your body. Why is that? Su Muyao thought of her predecessor's memories. She smiled faintly and said, it's probably considered to be a high meritocracy. The imperial family is jealous of my Su family's rights. If I die, everything in the Su family can be returned to the imperial family. Xiao Silkhan's complexion shook. She turned out to be so smart and understood everything. After a moment's pause, Xiao Silkhan spoke. That poison can make people irritable and impulsive. So what Wife Master did before was because she was poisoned? For some reason. At this point, he didn't want anything to happen to her inside. Chapter 30, No More Doubts. Su Muyao could totally attribute all the problems to this poison. But what the predecessor did to the Beastmasters was truly excessive. She couldn't say so with a clear conscience. In fact, being held by Xiao Silkhan, this was considered intimate contact, and the wood system's psychic ability had recovered some more. Even the space has an extra box. I don't know what's in the box. However, Su Muyao still answered Xiao Silkhan's question first as she spoke. Not really. I'm sorry, it was my fault before. I shouldn't have done that to you guys. You all followed me into exile because of me. I'll change all those bad behaviors, and I'll treat you all well for the next 3 months. She said this with great sincerity. Xiao Silkhan looked at her seriously at this time and could see the clear and sincere gaze in her eyes. In this moment, he couldn't even begin to doubt her anymore, and he thought he could try to trust her for once. Xiao Silkhan softened his voice and said, well, I will also protect my wife and master. Mei Qingdao was looking at the changes in her sword at that moment, and realized that the sword had already been half repaired. The black aura that had infested the sword spirit had dissipated. Waves of shock went through his mind. There's even a sense of wonder. So he looked at Su Muyao with a complicated expression. The phoenix eyes all had an inquisitive look. At this moment, when he heard Su Muyao say these words again, his complexion all changed. How long had it been since he'd been back and she could say something like that? The old her, no matter how much she pretended, would not have said such a thing, much less apologized to them. She takes everything for granted. She could not be faulted if she attributed everything to poisoning. But she didn't. Mei Qingdao's cold and ghostly eyes all had a hint of a different look in them. Su Muyao knew that she wouldn't believe Mei Qingchen even if she said this. She spoke. Mei Qingdan, this sword is only half repaired. When I regain some of my supernatural abilities, I will repair this sword for you. Mei Qingdan looked at her pale and weak complexion and said in a low voice, even so, this sword has a chance of life. I'll keep my word and won't do it to you again. Hearing these affirmative words, Su Muyao was relieved. Su Muyao revealed a shallow smile and said, in any case, it was wrong of me to throw your sword into Death Valley in the past. I apologize to you. Mei Qingdao listened to her apology and looked at the relaxed smile on her face, feeling more and more strange. It feels so wrong. She wasn't one to apologize. Su Muyao didn't care what Mei Qingdan was thinking in her mind. Just don't do it to her again. She looked to Xiao Silkhan and said, you guys go ahead and get busy. I'll take a nap first. She's weak now. She'll be fine after a good night's sleep. Xiao Silkhan said softly, okay, you sleep. I'll be right next to you. He'll do his duty to watch over her and won't let anything happen to her. Su Muyao nodded, lay down and closed her eyes. Of course, she went into space first to look at the box that had dropped out of space. What is it? Host, this is the spatial reward you gained from embracing intimacy with Xiao Silkhan. The host will open it and see. Su Muyao's expression moved when she heard about the reward. Listening to the space system's cheerful tones, Su Muyao knew that it should be something good inside. Only when she opened the box, all she saw was a blackened piece of something that looked like iron, but with a hint of light. Su Muyao's expression was astringent. What is this? The space system explained. This is Xianling iron, something for forging magic weapons and the most precious treasure in this world. Mei Qingdan's sword is the original sword. It's broken in several places. Even though you can repair it with your wood system's supernatural ability, that's only to make the sword flexible. To restore it to its original state, you still need Xianling iron. This Xianling iron can not only restore the sword spirit to its original state, it can also make the sword better and more powerful than before. So with this Xianling iron, Mei Qingdan is even less able to do anything to you. Su Muyao understood as she listened to the space system's explanation. This Xianling iron appeared at a really good time. System, thank you, the space system said in a very serious tone. Host, don't worry, with me here, I will definitely not let you be in danger. I can't upgrade for a while, but I can get you more benefits whenever you get close to the Beastmasters. Su Muyao smiled. If the space system could be made solid, she would want to hug it. The space system has been protecting her and treating her well since the moment she appeared as a child in her last life. Aha! But host, Don't give the Xianling iron to Mei Qingdan all at once. It's going to cause a stir when you take this out all at once. Su Muyao nodded. I know. I'll take it to him after a while. Let's first see if he's a man of his word and says he won't do it again. If he dares to make a move against me, I won't take out this Xianling iron and give it to him. Su Muyao talked to the space system for a while and communicated before going to sleep. Halfway through the afternoon, Su Muyao woke up. She woke up with a refreshed feeling. Half of her wood powers repaired, and she now had half a level. It was less than a level, but it had repaired some of it and the body had strength. Getting close to the Beastmasters is the only way to quickly improve your wood powers. Hugging was just the most basic way to get to sleep, and the system told her to sleep, but she didn't dare. Su Muyao opened the door of the house and saw Xiao Silkhan guarding the doorway. He stood there quietly, sesquipedalian and noble. His stance was good-looking. Su Muyao's expression was slightly touched. Have you been guarding the door? Well, is wifey feeling better? Su Muyao nodded her head and said, well, much better. Regained her strength. With that she looked around the yard, probably knowing what was on her mind. Xiao Silkhan spoke. Mei Qingdan has already left. Su Muyao's expression relaxed once she heard these words. It's good to have left. Mei Qingdan's aura unleashed was quite uncomfortable. She looked at the wheat in the yard, almost sun-dried and still with some moisture. Just in time to go to the mill and grind flour. Put this wheat away for now, and I'll take it to the mill to grind flour. Xiao Silkhan said softly. My wife's body is not well, so it's fine for me to do this. Xiao Silkhan didn't let Su Muyao do anything, and directly used his supernatural ability to collect all the sun-dried wheat into the animal skin bag. It's so fast like that. Let's just say they used their powers to their advantage. Su Muyao went up and collected the wheat into the space with a thought, and then retook a clean animal skin bag. She looked at Xiao Silkhan and said, can you accompany me to the mill? She felt that she could have some sense of security with Xiao Silkhan by her side for protection. After what happened to Mei Qingdan, she inwardly believed Xiao Silkhan. There is no need for my wife and master to say that. I should have stayed by my wife and master's side and protected her. The three of them, he, Wen Nanshi, and Hua Raini, took turns watching over it. It's his duty, Su Muyao said seriously. Despite saying so, I still have to thank you. I'm going to cook you something good tonight. Make sure you've never had it before. There are so many delicious things you can do with flour. And based on her predecessor's memories, she knew that no one in today's Beast World continent knew about flour as a food. Chapter 31, She's Changed. Xiao Silkhan's heart and mind fluttered when he thought of the delicacy she had made. A rare hint of gentleness appeared in his crisp eyes. Tough wifey. Su Muyao waved her hand and said, it's nothing hard. She loved to make food, especially when ingredients are plentiful. The process of making food is a pleasure. Just like this, Xiao Silkhan accompanied Su Muyao towards the tribe's mill. The mill was at the easternmost part of the tribe, and when Su Muyao and Xiao Silkhan walked that way, they naturally had to pass through the interior of the tribe. Halfway through the afternoon, the tribe had a lot of females sitting at the door in twos and threes talking. Some were sitting under a large tree in the middle of the tribe to cool off. When they saw Su Muyao and Xiao Silkhan, it was as if everyone stopped talking at once. All of them couldn't help but look towards Su Muyao. That look of surprise and doubt was not even disguised. It seemed to look Su Muyao over from top to bottom. Su Muyao felt that, but where her own determination was weaker. She might be panicking at this time, not knowing which foot to take. It was a good thing she was also once a post-apocalyptic wood alien bigot, immune to the spectacle of all the attention. So treat the sight of the tribal crowd and walk by calmly. After Su Muyao and Xiao Silkhan walked over, everyone turned their heads and gathered together to chatter and discuss. It's already half an afternoon. Where is Su Muyao going? I don't know. We can't go to the mountains. Her beast husband is with her. She never used to go to the mountains and abused her beast husband, who was said to loathe her. This is not to be said. Early in the morning of the day before yesterday that snake beast husband of hers carried her to the mountains, and yesterday that fox beast husband of hers carried her to the mountains. This would not have carried her so much if she had loathed it. It must be because she has healing powers that her beast husband treats her differently. Have you guys ever felt that Su Muyao is different from before? She doesn't seem to abuse the beastman or curse anymore. It seems so. Su Muyao even saved the chief's daughter the night before last. Only the chief dares to invite her. We don't dare to make contact with her. That's right. If she curses or light, if she makes bad, what if she cures someone to death? To protect their own beast husband are so bad, to others can be good to wear. I heard that she and the beast emperor city on the vicious fairy. She before there are 5 beast husband. People would rather waste half of the ability to be with her to dissolve the relationship I heard with her to dissolve the relationship with the 5 beast husband, but also want to let her die the exile road. There are people sent assassins to kill her. If it is not she now there are 5 beast husband to protect. She is in exile on the road are dead. The tribal crowd was talking in tongues. Everyone was both afraid of Su Muyao and couldn't help but discuss her as the center of gossip about her. It was really because there was nothing going on in the tribe and everyone was idle, so they couldn't help but discuss Su Mu Yao. These females were also quite loud when they spoke and didn't know to lower their voices. Xiao Silkhan didn't have to use his supernatural powers to hear it clearly. Not to mention Su Mu Yao. Xiao Silkhan looked down at Su Mu Yao at his side. He actually thought she'd be pissed. However, Su Mu Yao looked calm and didn't get angry or curse, as if those people weren't talking about her. There was a serene softness about her at the moment. No longer the once hostile and ready to anger look, but the poison in her. How the hell does she suppress that irritable and impulsive poison? I don't know who gave her this drug. It's too vicious. Su Mu Yao could feel Xiao Silkhan's line of sight. She looked up just in time to meet his deep probing eyes. She asked, "What's wrong?" A complex look appeared in Xiao Silkhan's clear and picturesque eyes, and he said softly, "It's nothing. It's just that I think it must be very hard for my wife to suppress the poison in her body." Su Mu Yao faintly said, "It's okay." She seemed to understand Xiao Silkhan's doubts and explained with a smile, "I said I would change. Even if the poison in my body makes me irritable and impulsive, I'm not a beast and can control it, so you won't have to worry about me throwing another tantrum and abusing you." At this moment, Xiao Silkhan saw a bright smile on her face, saw her optimistic and cheerful. He was shaken out of his eyes for a moment by even the bright, brilliant smile on her face. After a moment's pause, Su Mu Yao said, "Of course, I won't do that kind of thing to you again in the future, much less drug you." When she said this, Su Mu Yao lowered her head, and her ears were a little red. It wasn't her doing, but it was a shame to talk about it. Xiao Silkhan saw the redness of her ears, as if she was a blooming flower, clear and colorful. He scowled slightly. After arriving at the mill, Su Mu Yao walked in. The mill was cleaned up and contained 2 stone mills. Su Mu Yao walked to a stone mill, originally thought that it had to be cleaned, which thought that the stone mill was clean. It can be used directly. Su Mu Yao then took out the wheat in the space. Then you scoop it up with a spoon and pour it into the opening on top of the stone mill and start turning the stone mill lever. Seeing Su Mu Yao struggling to turn this, Xiao Silkhan hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Wife master, let me do it." Su Mu Yao didn't make any pretense and stepped aside, saying, "Okay, you do it then." Just like this, Xiao Silkhan turned the stone mill while Su Mu Yao scooped wheat grains into it. The exit is followed by an animal skin bag. After grinding it finely over and over again, the animal skin bag was collected, and Su Mu Yao put it into the space. As they walked back, they passed by the previous road and saw that Rinkuya Hua was anxiously asking for something. "Elder sister Lin, please ask, have you seen my wife's master?" Su Mu Yao froze for a moment and quickly stepped forward and shouted, "Hua Rini, I'm here." Hearing Su Mu Yao's voice, Hua Rini could no longer control himself to go forward and directly hold Su Mu Yao in his arms. "Wifey, you scared me to death." At this moment, holding Su Mu Yao, Hua Rinyo's uneasy heart fell. God knows, he was a little anxious when he came back and saw the signs of a fight in the courtyard. Plus he didn't see his wife's master. Afraid something might happen to her. Realized that there are too many people who want to get her killed. It was at that moment that Hua Rinyo realized that he didn't want anything to happen to her. Hua Rini didn't care about hugging Su Mu Yao on the street, but it stunned the tribal crowd. Heavens, isn't Su Mu Yao's beast husband extremely disgusted with her and won't even let her touch her? Why is he so nervous and worried about her? That's right, and hugging, all tightly, obviously caring. That's right, he just rushed over and asked if he had seen his wife. He was afraid that his wife would run away. I heard that her wife's master even drugged them in order to get them, and they didn't even succeed. And looking at this in front of us, which used to drug them, it looks like the other Su Mu Yao is on good terms with her beast husband. Su Mu Yao heard everyone's words now. She was all a bit embarrassed. She gently pushed Hua Rin Knight. "It's all watched." Hua Rini pressed her hand, her fox eyes moving slightly as she looked around and whispered, "If wife master finds this place inconvenient, then let's go home first." Chapter 32 Pasta. When he returned home, Rinku Hana looked to the signs of battle in the courtyard. He looked toward Xiao Silkhan, his fox eyes revealing a biting look. "What happened here before?" Xiao Silkhan faintly explained. "Mei Qingdan came back." Just one sentence caused Hua Rini's face to change, his fox eyes taking on a chilling aura. Did he do something to his wife's master? Hua Rini all thought about what Wen Nanchi had said last night. The two people they were most worried about were Mei Qingdan and Shin Ruyan. If they had a way of restraining the pact, this would not be a good thing to do once they had killed their wives. They were very strong and had strong families, and they definitely had a lot of magic treasures in their hands, which were not very good to deal with. Hua Rini didn't wait for Xiao Silkhan to explain, so he came in front of Su Mu Yao once again, looking down at her carefully, looking her up and down, left and right, back and forth, making sure that she wasn't hurt before his face looked slightly better, but he was still uneasy and asked, "Is wife master injured, or is she uncomfortable anywhere?" Su Mu Yao shook her head. "I'm fine," Hua Rini seriously said. "Wife master, don't be afraid. I saw all the sword marks on the walls of the courtyard. They were caused by Mei Qingdao's sword power. Did Mei Qingdao do something to his wife's master? Hua Raini had even moved to kill Mei Qingdao at the moment. Su Muyo briefly explained. I made a deal with Mei Qingdan. I'll help him repair his essence sword and he won't do anything more to me. Su Muyao finished calming Hua Raini. It's really fine. It's getting late. I'll make dinner first. It's just that the courtyard wall is damaged in places and needs to be repaired, Hua Raini said without hesitation. I'll fix it. Xiao Silkhan and Hua Raini worked together to help repair the wall. Su Muyo, on the other hand, started making dumplings with the preparation. She cut the meat and cabbage first, then took seasonings from the space to mix the filling, and put oil and onion and ginger in it as well. Adding green onion and ginger when wrapping dumplings makes it easier to get the flavor. Then they kneaded the dough. Once you have kneaded the dough, you begin to wrap the dumplings. Su Muyo wrapped the dumplings extremely fast. Her hands were deft, and soon a plump dumpling was placed on the grate. Xiao Silkhan and Hua Raini patched up the courtyard walls and leveled the courtyard floor before going into the stovehouse to help. When they saw the dumplings Su Muyo had wrapped, they all froze. They had never seen food like this before, much less seen this practice. What's that white stuff in particular? Xiao Silkhan thought of the wheat flour he had ground in the afternoon and already had a guess in his heart, but it was still a shock. Turns out that's a food, too. After Hua Raini was surprised, she went forward and asked, Wife Master, what kind of food is this? Su Muyo explained. This is called dumplings. This crust is wheat ground into flour and kneaded. The filling is made with cabbage and pork as well as scallions and ginger. You can taste how it tastes when it's cooked later. In the post-apocalyptic world, even if the ingredients are scarce, everyone likes to make dumplings to eat during the New Year's festivals. For many people, eating dumplings means something different. She also likes to eat wrapped dumplings for dumplings. It would remind her of the time when she was a child following her grandparents in the countryside before she had entered the end times. Grandma cooks well. At that time, the family garden grew a lot of vegetables, and even if you ate pork, the village market time now kill pigs. Now buy pork. It's all fresh pork and it's cheap. When she was a little girl, she looked forward to eating dumplings during the holidays. It's as if there's a ritual to it. Hua Raini listened to Su Muya's explanation and looked towards her. At the moment, however, it felt like there was an extra air of brightness and gentleness about her. There's something about it that's plain and soft and beautiful. That's what she exudes from the inside out. One could not bear to disturb her at this time. The matter of wrapping the dumplings, Hua Raini and Xiao Silin couldn't help much even if they wanted to. Not sure how to intervene. Su Muyo said, You guys don't know how to wrap or roll out the skin. I'll just do it myself. Knowing how much they eat, Su Muyo planned to pack more. Otherwise they wouldn't be full at all. Hua Raini lowered her voice and said, I hunted and killed 3 wild boars today and put them in the yard. Should I take care of them first? Knowing that his wife's master liked to eat wild boar meat, so on this day, Hua Raini specialized in finding wild boars in the mountains and forests to hunt them. It was good to hunt 3 large-sized boars. Su Muyao's expression moved. 3 boars? Where? Looking at her bright eyes, Hua Raini knew he had done the right thing. Put it in the corner of the yard. Knowing her love of cleanliness, he stacked the boar in the corner and waited for her to come back to see what to do with it. Su Muyao put down the dumplings in her hand and walked to the courtyard, and saw 3 large-sized wild boars in the corner, all 400 pounds or so by visual estimation. However, Su Muyao was a bit strange, remembering that they used to hunt beasts very hard to come. Sometimes you go out hunting all day and come back empty-handed. At this moment, the space system said, Host, they used to touch fish when they went out hunting, so every now and then they all come back empty-handed, and once in a while they hunt a beast back, just to make sure they don't starve their predecessors. Hearing these words from the system, Su Muyao understood. It wasn't that they couldn't hunt the beasts, but they didn't want to get food for their predecessors before. Su Muyao spoke. So much wild boar meat can't be eaten. Some of it is used for roasting oil, and some of it is used to smoke bacon. Once you smoke the bacon you can store it for a long time and put it away for the snowy season. You can also make some meatballs as well as steamed red meat and other foods. Su Muyao told Hua Raini and Xiao Silin how to deal with it, and they began to deal with it. Of course pork rinds should not be thrown away. They can be used to beat pork skin jelly to eat. But this would be the time when Su Muyao noticed that Wen Nanchi hadn't come back. But it was getting dark and the sun was setting. Why hasn't Wen Nanchi returned yet? Could something have happened? Although Wen Nanchi's strength was also very strong, and she had seen Wen Nanchi's strength. But there are not only beasts in the mountains and forests, but also many mutated beasts. Some of the mutant beasts have high levels as well. If he encountered one with a higher strength level than Wen Nanchi, he would also be in danger. Hua Raini listened to these words and had a sour feeling in her heart. Does wife master care so much about Wen Nanchi? Su Muyao spoke. Every single one of you. I don't want anything to happen to you. Hua Raini thought of Wen Nanchi's mysterious ability and origin and spoke. With his ability, nothing will happen. After he finished speaking, when he saw Sumuyao's furrowed brows, he somewhat helplessly resigned himself to his fate and said, if wife master is really worried about him, I'll go look for him. Just as they were talking, when Nanchi returned, the wind powers in his hands curled around the two beasts and landed in the courtyard. When Nanchi still had that warm and elegant look, only Sumuyo still smelled the strong smell of blood on his body. It's as if he's been through some intense battle before. Chapter 33 Reasons. Sumuyo had wood system psychic ability, so she was extra sensitive to odors. When Nanchi, are you hurt? Sumuyo walked up and gently asked Wen Nanchi, all with a worried look in her eyes. To Sumuyo, Wen Nanchi's existence meant something different. Probably he was the first person who had been gentle and protective of her when she crossed over. Didn't act as disgusted as others. When Nanchi was originally surrounded by a clean and light look, clean and elegant eyes also with a light and indifferent look, as if nothing can make him have emotional fluctuations. But the moment he saw Sumuyo, the breath around his body softened, and his eyes became loving and soft. He said in a warm voice, it's fine, I just encountered a mutated beast and came back a bit late. When Nanchi didn't bother to say what exactly he went through, for fear of scaring Sumuyo. Sumuyo met the gentle and soothing look under his eyes and said, then you quickly go and rest. I made dumplings to eat in the evening. When Nanchi looked at her sweet, soft and cute appearance and reached out to gently rub her eyebrows, though he had washed thoroughly before coming back to get rid of the blood that had stained his body. But his wife and master had psychic powers of keen perception and might be able to spot something. It's okay, I'll help with the cooking. Although he didn't know what dumplings were, when Nanchi couldn't afford to let Sumuyo cook and busy herself alone. When Nanchi re-washed her hands to help in the stovehouse, she watched Sumuyo wrap the dumplings. After just a few moments of looking at it, he got on it and started to help wrap it. When Nanchi's movements were as elegant and gentle as ever, even the dumplings were so elegant and picturesque. The key is that he wraps it up beautifully. Sumuyo even felt that he wrapped it better than he did. Is that a gift? Sumuyo blinked her eyes and looked at Wen Nanchi and said, so powerful. You actually know how to do it at a glance. Wen Nanchi said in a warm voice, so in the future, don't work hard to cook by yourself, and arrange for me to do anything. Good. Hua Raini was busy in the courtyard, looking at Sumuyo and Wen Nanchi who were in the stovehouse, and only felt an indescribable sense of warmth lingering on them, as if no one else could fit in. Flower Rinky Knight's fox eye showed a hint of despondency. He couldn't help but look at Xiao Silkhan, who was busy working next to him. Seeing that he still had a clear and cold demeanor, he opened his mouth and couldn't help but ask, Xiao Silkhan, do you still loathe your wife's master? Xiao Silkhan's hand movements gave a start, as if he was seriously pondering this question. After a long time, he spoke, I don't know. Knowing that Xiao Silkhan didn't care to lie, Hua Raini spoke, I hope you'll always be like this. With the emotion of caring, you become less like yourself. Xiao Silkhan looked at him with a look of sadness, seemed to understand something and was slightly shocked. You like your wife's master? Mind you, they all used to loathe their wives and masters very much. Even if wifey is different these days, that doesn't mean she's gone from loathing to liking so quickly. Looking at Hua Raini's silence, Xiao Jihan reminded in a low voice, didn't you say before that your father died in your mother's backyard just because he was attracted to her? So you will never be attracted to anyone? Hana Rinyo, his father's death has always been a knot in his heart. He had told himself that he would never move on anyone, not even his wife and master. Hua Raini smiled to herself and said, Xiao Silkhan, that's because I didn't know anything about this before that I would say such things. Actually, the human heart is the least controllable, especially once we have a mental sea riot. We instinctively have a soft spot for the first female that enters our mental sea to soothe us. Even if there is no favor, there is no longer aversion to rejection. Not to mention the fact that he was rioting so hard at the time that he almost had an accident. That moment when she appeared in the spirit sea and saved him from his childhood nightmares meant something different. Otherwise, why do you think Wen Nanchi is protecting his wife master now? It's also because she has pacified the spiritual sea for him, so he treats her differently. In the past, Wen Nanchi had a gentle but indifferent and detached nature, and if he didn't allow it, his wife's master would never be able to get close to him. So he could now sense that Wen Nanchi was now not only willing to let his wife master get close to him, but he himself was willing to take the initiative to get close to his wife master, and was even more willing to protect her. Otherwise, that night, he wouldn't have warned him not to mess with his wife's master, fearful that he would make his relationship with his wife and master real. As Xiao Silkhan listened to these words, he understood why Hua Raini's attitude towards his wife's master was a bit different when she returned yesterday. Turns out it's because of channeling the sea of cranky spirits. In fact, in the past, when people's spiritual sea rioted, Sumuya would not channel for them. She didn't channel the spiritual power of the spiritual sea. But then, even if she had wanted to help channel them, they would have refused. Probably only because I didn't want anything to do with her at that point. At that point everyone was thinking about leaving later. Thinking of this, Xiao Silken's expression moved. Sumu Yao naturally didn't know what Xiao Silkan and Hua Raini were talking about. She was concentrating on the dumplings. Because of Wen Nanqi's help, the dumplings were wrapped quickly. Once you've wrapped all the noodles, you still have a little bit of filling left. Sumu Yao then remixed a little bit of flour and continued wrapping. Wen Nanqi watched her make the dough and realized how the flour turned into dough. Next time, he can do these things and give his wife and master a break. Once the dumplings are wrapped, it's time to cook them. Wen Nanqi took firewood from the yard to burn the fire. When the pot boiled, Sumu Yao placed the dumplings. Just then, Mei Qingdao returned. Sumu Yao's body instinctively tensed up when she saw Mei Qingchen's figure. She really couldn't bring herself to relax in the face of Mei Qingdao. Instinctively on guard, feeling Sumu Yao's nervousness, Wen Nanqi said in a warm voice, "Don't be afraid, I won't let him hurt you." Those who are familiar with Wen Nanqi should know that although he looks gentle as jade, noble and elegant, but in reality his nature is naturally cold. But once such a person decides to protect someone, he will never allow the bystanders to hurt her either. Sumu Yao believed Wen Nanqi and nodded. I know, he actually promised he wouldn't do it to me again. But in her bones, she still couldn't believe Mei Qingdao. Mei Qingdao's existence was a bomb at any time, but she couldn't let Mei Qingdan leave. So after the dumplings were cooked, Sumu Yao silently scooped up 5 large plates, even Mei Qingdao's counts. Then Sumu Yao poured a small plate of vinegar to dip it in. He also scooped up a bowl of dumpling soup for each person. Sumu Yao called out to Hua Raini and Xiao Silan in the courtyard. It's time to eat. Hua Raini and Xiao Silan washed their hands and went into the stovehouse to sit down. They don't make their wives wait for them to eat. But Mei Qingdao hadn't moved. Sumu Yao walked out of the stovehouse and said, "That, Mei Qingdust, it's time for dinner." Mei Qingdan moved some stones and was patching up a spot on the courtyard wall. Hearing Sumu Yao's words, she didn't turn her head back and said in disgust, "Sumu Yao, do you still want to drug me in the food?" Sumu Yao froze for a moment. Once again thinking of her predecessor's memories, she helplessly explained, "No, I won't drug myself again." Mei Qingdan snorted coldly and said, "I won't believe it, so I won't eat what you cook." He only came back to stay here because he still needed her to mend his sword. Chapter 34. Sumu Yao said with a calm expression, "Alright, if you don't eat it, don't eat it." She can't force people to eat if they don't want to. There isn't much wheat now, and only so much flour has been milled in all, so one less person can eat it and save a little. Hua Raini didn't want to see Sumu Yao sad, so he spoke, "Don't be sad, wife master. If he doesn't eat it, I'll eat it. I can't waste my wife master's heart." Although he didn't know how the dumplings tasted, he couldn't afford to waste the food made by his wife's hands. Even if it wasn't good, he'd eat it all. When Nanqi tenderly touched Sumu Yao's hair and said, "It's fine, there's still us," Sumu Yao explained, "I'm not sad, I can't finish it. It's just as well that I'll fry it in oil first thing in the morning. It'll smell better." She made dumplings according to everyone's meal size. The extra plate is not eaten, just in time to be fried early the next morning. To Sumu Yao, as long as Mei Qingchen didn't make a move against her, he could do whatever he wanted. It's nice not to eat her cooking. She saves time. Sumu Yao didn't move her chopsticks, and no one else did either. Sumu Yao came back to her senses and said, "Everyone, eat it while it's hot. It won't taste good if it gets cold." Saying that, she picked up a dumpling with her chopsticks to eat into her mouth. She nodded inwardly. The flavor was just right and the salt was just right. Seeing her eat, everyone moved their chopsticks one after another. The moment everyone ate the dumplings, they realized how delicious they were. Hua Raini's fox eyes revealed a look of amazement. "It's so delicious. I've never eaten anything so delicious. Wifey, you are also too good to make such a delicacy." A smile appeared on Sumu Yao's face as she listened to Hua Raini's words, "As long as it's delicious." Saying that, she looked towards Wen Nanqi and Xiao Silan. The look on Xiao Silken's face also moved, and he did not mince words of praise. "It is indeed delicious. The Beast Imperial City Imperial Chef cannot make this kind of food. The point is that people don't discover wheat as a food." A brimming and gentle look also appeared in Wen Nanqi's eyes. He looked at Sumu Yao with a smile on his brow and softly said, "It's very delicious. It's just hard work for wife master." Sumu Yao felt a sense of accomplishment all the way inside as the food she made was recognized. The main thing is actually flour, and you can make a lot of good food with flour. Not only dumplings, but also noodles, buns, wontons, pies and other food. I'll make them for you one by one later. She planted some more wheat in the space field as well so that she would still have flour to eat. Or of course, you can clear a field near the tribe and grow some wheat when the time comes. Still, it's the space where the crops grow faster and can ripen faster for harvest. As she spoke, Sumu Yao ate the dumplings one bite at a time, her cheeks bulging with food, just like a little hamster. When Nanqi looked at her and all but thought she was adorable. "Tell me what you need to do in the future. and I'll be there with you. It's hard to make her cook for the lot of them all by herself. These were supposed to be the things they did. Good. Hua Raini couldn't be bothered to say anything else at the moment, and was concentrating on eating the dumplings on her plate. It's really so delicious. Xiao Silkan ate slowly and methodically, and when he occasionally looked at Su Muyao, his eyes became deeper and deeper. There was something about her that he couldn't read. When Nanchi ate as elegantly as ever, looking at Su Muyao from time to time, looking at her with a quiet smile on her face, her expression softened even more. Mei Qingdan was in the courtyard carefully repairing the courtyard wall with stones. He will be responsible for repairing the courtyard wall that was damaged because of the fight. But for him to trust Su Muyao, he couldn't do it. He had psychic abilities and excellent ear power, so naturally he could hear what they were saying in the stovehouse at this moment. Hua Raini. He smiled coldly and charmingly, the corners of his mouth bringing up a mocking curve. To lie to please a vicious wife and master like that? Su Muyao in the Beast Emperor city that is a famous straw man, even can't recognize all the dishes, can't cook at all. When he didn't know, it was when Nanchi who helped her make dinner. He even suspected that those words were said to him on purpose. He wouldn't believe it, much less eat it. This meal, Hua Raini they ate well and full. Hua Raini finished his meal and looked at Su Muyao. The tail of his fox eyes moved. His eyes seemed to be drunk and seemed to carry a seductive look. Su Muyao was unable to even ignore that burning sight by his. She asked, "Is it that you haven't eaten enough? If you're not full, here's another plate." Hua Raini shook her head and said, "It's a full meal. It just feels good to have a wife and master." The corner of Su Muyao's mouth moved. "You're trying to say that the dumplings I made are delicious." Hua Raini's eyes were watery. "Wife-master is also very good." Saying that, he sighed softly. "Hey, what if this is used to eating his wife's cooking and doesn't want to leave in the future?" Su Muyao seriously pondered for a moment and said, "Or else, you should follow Mei Qing Chen's example and stop eating my cooking for now, so that in 3 months, you won't have to dwell on that." Hua Raini originally said it as a joke, but he didn't expect Su Muyao to take it seriously. He deliberately showed a sad look and said, "Wifey is so cruel. I can't afford not to eat my wife's cooking." As for whether or not he was going to leave when the time came, he wasn't sure what he had in mind at this point. When Nanchi saw that everyone had eaten their fill, so he got up and silently cleaned up the dishes, and when he heard Hua Raini's words at this moment, his picturesque eyebrows faintly swept over. Hua Raini received a warning from Wen Nanchi. Really? Wasn't he just joking verbally? Half true, half false. He couldn't tell his own mind from his heart. Why is Wen Nanchi so serious? He wouldn't hurt the wifey anyway is all. After Hua Raini and Xiao Silan helped clean up a bit, they went to the courtyard to help pile up the courtyard wall. Seemingly thinking of something, Xiao Silkan said, "Mei Qingdan, according to the rules, it's your turn to guard your wife and master tomorrow." Mei Qingdan hooked up a cold and charming smile. Her eyes all seemed to condense a ray of cold frost, saying, "That's the rule you set. I won't abide by this rule, much less guard her." From the moment she threw my own sword down Death Valley, I said that I would no longer fight to protect her, so do what you will and leave me out of it. After a moment's pause, Mei Qingdan's smile took on an extra touch of wooziness as she said, "Aren't you guys afraid that not only will I not be guarding her when the time comes, but will instead conveniently settle her?" Xiao Silken's brows were clear and cold, and his eyes were calm as he said, "Mei Qingdan, you are a man of one word. If you said you wouldn't do anything to your wife, you won't do it again." Mei Qingdao twisted her head away, seemingly unwilling to admit this. "But what is said, he does and will do. But I didn't say I'd still defend her." Hua Raini lazily smiled and said, "This is just right. I'll guard my wife and master. It's okay to keep me on guard every day." Mei Qingdan looked at Hua Raini with skeptical eyes. "Hua Raini, this really doesn't look like you. You've forgotten so quickly that your former wife insulted your father?" Everyone knows that his father died when Hua Raini was young, and it was a great blow to him and a knot in his heart. Normal people knew the taboo and wouldn't voluntarily mention his father, but Su Muyao was really not a regular person, often insulting Hua Raini's father. Curses are as humiliating as they need to be. Chapter 35, On the Defensive. At the mention of this, Hua Raini's face changed for a moment. The lazy, seductive smile on his face all converged, and his gaze all went cold and heavy all of a sudden. He silently began to work without saying another word. His father's death was an untouchable presence in his mind. Xiao Silkan sighed softly and didn't say anything, continuing to work. When Nanshi, on the other hand, had been accompanying Su Muyao to do things. After cleaning up the stovehouse, Wen Nanchi helped Su Muyao pickle the bacon. When Su Muyao looked at Wen Nanchi's appearance, she felt that he had a really good temperament, gentle and mild. You can't argue with anyone like that, can you? And it gives a very cozy and warm feeling. Even if he didn't know what she was going to do, he did it silently when she said, Su Muyao explained, curing the bacon, and then smoke it, put it on the potting table on weekdays, and also smoke it every day when cooking. so that it is stored for a long period of time, and during the snowy season, when you want to eat the meat, you can just cut the bacon and eat it. When Nanchi's movement of putting salt on the pork was lurched. Bacon? When Nanchi knew that he could grill meat and squeeze oil to cook it and even cured some meat, but he had never heard of smoking it. She has a unique approach to food. Su Muyao nodded her head and said, yes, the meat smoked this way. The lean meat is soft but not faggy, and the fatty part is tender and flavorful. You can make fried rice casserole and you can make bacon butties and other foods. She has so many gourmet recipes in her head that she can change it up and make something delicious every day. She always thought that dumplings cooked over wood-fired rice were extra flavorful, better than those high-tech gas in the end times. As she said this, Su Muyao's eyes glittered, all with an expectant look in her eyes, burning bright. When Nanchi looked at her with a gentle gaze, patiently and quietly listening to her say this. As Su Muyao spoke, she slowly looked at the medicine boiling in the clay pot. After boiling, she poured out the medicinal juice with a cloth for a while, and after the temperature was almost up, Su Muyao said to Hua Raini, who was busy in the corner on the other side, Hua Raini, it's time to drink the medicine. Originally, Su Muyao wanted to send it over and hand it to him, but looking at him next to Mei Qingdan, she instinctively wanted to retreat. So it's better to tell Rinki Hana to come over and drink the medicine. Hua Raini was doing her work in silence, and had been immersed in her father's memories when she suddenly heard a voice. Hua Raini instinctively turned her head towards the voice and saw Su Muyao under the spilled moonlight. Her eyes seemed to be full of moonlight, and her voice was all soft and sweet and glutinous. Hua Raini instinctively trembled at the tip of her heart, and inexplicable emotions surged in her heart. He dropped the stone in his hand and quickly walked over to it. Wifey was just boiling my medicine? Su Muyao nodded her head and said, right, the medicine for fire poison. Drink it twice a day, morning and evening, so that it gets better fast. It's just the right temperature. So drink up. Hua Raini looked at her clear eyes, his fingers unconsciously moving as he took the bowl of medicine. Hua Raini couldn't help but ask with concern, did you burn your hand just now? No, you drink it. Hua Raini gulped it down quickly. When he finished drinking, he looked at her with expectant eyes. Su Muyao froze for a moment at the look on his face. What's wrong? Hua Raini's fox eyes lifted and she pursed her lips. Wife master hasn't given me any candy yet. Su Muyao was frozen, and she'd almost forgotten. Hua Raini looked sad and aggrieved, and said in a lazy, low voice, hey, since I was a child, only my wife's master would give me candy. Looking at Hua Raini with a pitiful look, and then thinking of seeing him as a child in the sea of consciousness, Su Muyao's heart had a rare hint of softness. She took out the candy from the space and handed it to him. It was only then that a smile appeared on the face of Hua Raini. I know wifey still cares about me. The corner of Su Muyao's mouth twitched as she wanted to say that it wasn't like that at all. Ahem, you drink the medicine and go rest first. Hua Raini looked at Su Muyao's expression, and the corner of his mouth curled up in a playful arc. Wifey is funny and cute these days. My wife's medicine really works. I felt very well this morning after drinking it. This statement was not a lie, but he really felt that his body had become lighter and was no longer affected by the fire poison. There was none of that painful fiery feeling of being tormented by the fire poison. He wondered if it was because his wife and master had channeled his spiritual sea yesterday or because he had drunk the medicine in the morning. It's always true that today's wives are not straw men. It was as if she was wrapped in a veil of mystery, carrying secrets that one could not explore. It works just fine. Saying that, Su Muyao began to redispense the medicine. She was going to boil it for herself to drink. The poison in her body has to be undone as well. I'll help my wife with whatever she needs to do. At this moment, Hua Raini were all glued to Su Muyao. If it had been before, she would have posted up and hugged. But at this moment, when Hua Raini approached, Su Muyao didn't even move to distance herself from him for fear of touching him. Su Muyao listened to his words and thought for a moment. Can you help me make some tools for pounding medicine? It's just stone mortars and stone grinders and other tools. I'm thinking of making some medicinal packs such as insect repellents and hemostatic pills to sell at the mutual market, so I can earn some crystal coins as well. Hua Raini all showed a puzzled look and asked, what does the wife master earn crystal coins for? Don't you have food to eat on weekdays? What else is needed? Su Muyao said, with crystal coins you can buy some things for daily use. There's nothing you can't say about this kind of thing. Anyway, when they went to sell things at the city's mutual market in a few days, they would still need to be followed by Hua Raini for protection. The road from the tribe to the nearest city was not a peaceful one, and there was always danger, and she couldn't rely on them all the time. She had to earn enough crystals in addition to wanting to improve her psychic strength. Hua Raini was silent for a split second before suddenly remembering that each of them actually had a dowry, but each person's dowry was put away separately, without thinking of giving it to Su Muyao. It's really because she did treat them badly before. As Mei Qingdan was stacking the stones, she heard this conversation and saw the scene, and her brows froze for a moment, followed by an incredulous expression. Fire poison? The fire poison on Hua Raini's body had no solution. But Su Muyao actually did have a solution. During the day, she said that the poison in her body could be cured by herself, and he didn't believe her. Is it hard to be true? No, how could it be? But thinking that she could even repair her own sword, was it possible that she possessed the abilities of a witch doctor? Mei Qingdan looked at Su Muyao under the moonlight, and her eyes became obscure. However, as if thinking of something, his magnificent phoenix eyes sank by 3 points, and his long slender eyelashes moved slightly, covering the coldness in the bottom of his eyes. In any case, he'll keep a tight guard on her. When Nanchi and the others really dared to eat the food she made, when the time came to let down her guard, there was no telling when she would drug her again. The corner of his mouth hooked up in a cold and ghostly arc as he said to Xiao Silkhan, Su Muyao was thinking of a new trick to try to ask everyone for dowry for crystal coins. Before, Su Muyao wanted them to hand over all of their dowry money. All the money and treasures they initially took out were used by her to squander to please others. Chapter 36. Xiao Silkhan thought of the things Su Muyao had done when she was in Beast Emperor City, and his expression converged, hiding the emotions under his eyes. Mei Qingdan couldn't forgive much less let go when she thought of those vicious and stupid behaviors of Su Muyao. She squandered a lot of our dowry back then, and if we hadn't reacted in time back then, we probably wouldn't have a single crystal coin left, and even if we did, we're not a bit better in her eyes. So nowadays he wouldn't give Su Muyao anything. He didn't even want to recall anything related to Su Muyao. Otherwise he would only be so angry that his own heart ached and he couldn't sleep. Xiao Silence Dust's lips moved, wanting to say something, but feeling that saying anything would not be convincing and would only appear pale and powerless. Truly that is indeed what the wifey did before. In the end, Xiao Silence Dust said something that said, wifey said she would change. We will be given a letter of repudiation and set free in 3 months. Mei Qing Dust cold phoenix eyes through a trace of cold weariness, rose-like lips pulled, snorted a laugh. This kind of trick she used can be more than once. You even take still believe. No wonder your attitudes towards her have changed. So it's for 3 months from now. I'd like to see if, in 3 months, she'll set us free, as she said she would. Mei Qingdan would not believe Su Muyao's words no matter what she said. Xiao Silkhan was even more unable to say anything for Su Muyao, because he wasn't so sure that she would actually let them go. Although she had changed, they were also afraid that she was up to her old tricks. Hua Raini listened to Su Muyao's words about earning crystal coins to buy some daily necessities, and seemed to think of something, and as the waves of light flowed through his fox eyes, the depths of his eyes seemed to be separated by something. I'll help my wife and master build something for pounding first. With that said, Hua Raini looked for stones and started making them with her powers. We all have our own jobs in our hands, so we're fine with each other. After Su Muyao boiled the medicine for herself, she let it sit for a while, and after the temperature was just right, she directly drank it. I don't know why, but she had a hard time physically after drinking the medicine. Su Muyao was very unwell, but she didn't say anything to anyone. She knew that even if she said it, people wouldn't believe her. Instead they'd think she was pulling another stunt. It won't even be cherished. So she was strong enough to go wash herself and told everyone, "Everyone, get an early night too. I'll rest first." With that, he went to bed and lay down. She still had a hard time lying down. She took her own pulse and realized that it was the same symptoms of discomfort that appeared when she drank the antidote to the poison. System, you don't think I'm prescribing the wrong medicine, do you? Or are the herbs here different from the ones I know? It's obviously all exactly the same, and there's no problem with picking and dispensing. The space system probed Su Muyao's body. Host, there is no problem with the antidote you prescribed. It's just that you've had chronic poison in your body for a long time, so drinking the antidote has stimulated some problems in your body. And host, you've been drugged with ecstasy before, and there's some residue of that drug. When you detoxified this time, perhaps the detoxification disrupted your body's previous balance and stimulated the residual ecstasy, which is why it's so hard. Su Muyao all froze for a moment. Ecstasy? She remembered in a trance that she had been fooled into giving Jiang Machuan ecstasy in her predecessor, so that she could cook rice with raw rice, which means that the glass of water was turned upside down and she ended up drinking the ecstasy herself. That dosage was pretty raw, and the predecessor was trying to find a beastman to give the solution, but no beastman would touch her. So much so that the predecessor eventually passed out and was arranged to be pressed down with ice water. The main reason was that this ecstasy was made from the Beast World ecstasy flower, and there really was no antidote. It can only be solved that way. Nay, no one would relieve her, so much so that she soaked in ice water all night. Although it seemed to be resolved, some of the drug actually remained in the body. The space system said, "Yes, that's it. I'm sure the host has already thought of some memories. As long as the host sleeps with the beastman for a long time, the residual medicinal properties will naturally dissolve." Su Muyao, system, you're really going out of your way to get me to have sex with the beastmaster. Staying alive is more important. So when this wave of fiery heat came, Su Muyao tried to suppress it. But the antidote plus the residual ecstasy that surged up did make Su Muyao's life difficult. In a daze, Su Muyao heard the sound of the door opening. Su Muyao remembered in a trance that she had forgotten to lock the door. Of course she also knew that even with the door open, the beast master wouldn't do anything to her. Then again, she was worried that a mutant beast would show up and make it easier for the beast master to save her. Normally, the mutant beasts would not break into the tribe to attack the orcs without the full moon. But there are individual contingencies where mutant beasts can appear. So it's better to be on guard. Wifey, what's wrong with you? When Nanchi came in with his things, he saw that Su Muyao on the bed was very wrong. At this moment, Su Muyao was lying on the bed, a head of long black hair scattered on the pillow. Her skin was ice like snow, eyebrows like willow stained with rouge, the tip of the eyebrows like drunken shyness. Her cheeks were flushed with a hint of flushing, and the crystals flowed with color. Eyes are even a hint of water mist. There is a kind of delicate feeling of pity. Her teeth were clenched on her lip, as if she was holding something back. The lips were even more red, as if they were flowers to be picked, delicate and colorful. If you ignored the half of her face that was blackened and disfigured, she was truly beautiful at that moment. But the red in her face was not normal, and there was a sense of weakness. Hearing Nanchi's voice, Su Muyao looked at her in a daze. She tried to make her voice normal. I am fine. Just as soon as she opened her mouth, there was still a hint of a wailing gasp in her voice. There was no way Su Muyao could be fine in this state. Is it a fever? Nanchi furrowed her brows and reached out to touch her forehead to check her temperature, which thought that Su Muyao, who was still able to resist, at this moment, when touched by Nanchi, her body felt coolness and uncontrollably wanted to move closer towards him. The body trembled even more lightly. Nanchi probed her and she should not have a fever. Just through the moonlight to see Su Muyao this way. Nanchi seems to think of something. The bottom of the warm as a picture also seems to have more than one layer of turbulent dark tide. He continued to ask in a warm voice, Wife master, is something wrong? Su Muyao's body gently trembled. Even though her sanity was still there, the hot tide that surged through her body surprisingly made her unable to resist wanting to get closer to Nanchi. There was a refreshing coolness about him that was soothing. Su Muyao gritted her teeth to endure it and whispered, I'm fine, just a little hot. What's the matter with you? It had to be something when she was approached in the middle of the night. Nanchi looked at her wet eyes with a pitiful and stoic look. It was a pitying sight. His heart softened and he let out a soft sigh, holding her in his arms. Then his legs transformed into a snake's tail, gently curling Su Muyao in it. The snake's tail carried a natural refreshing cool touch, making Su Muyao feel that her body had become a little more comfortable. Chapter 37, Teasing the Heart. Su Muyao couldn't even control the trembling feeling in her body at the moment. Su Muyao couldn't help but reach out to hug Nanchi, but she tried to hold back, fearing that the moment she touched, Nanchi would directly throw her out, and she all but promised she would change, so there must be no predecessor kind of behavior. So even though her hand was gently trembling at this moment, she did not take the initiative to touch Nanchi. It was just Nanchi curling Su Muyao's body with his snake tail. The snake could feel every inch of her body's burning breath even if it didn't move at the moment. In the cool, dark fragrance, Su Muyao felt that she was wrapped in his scent all around her. At this moment, Nanchi's gentle and picturesque brows seemed to have ink-colored spring swirling around all of a sudden, bringing a hint of darkness. His voice was gentle with a hint of darkness. Wife master, still hot? Feeling better? As he spoke, he stretched out his bony, jade-like delicate fingers and tenderly straightened her messy hair. The broken hair was even more gently pinned behind her ear. It was just that his fingers were extremely sensitive where they touched his ears. Su Muyao be no predecessor kind of behavior. So even though her hand was gently trembling at this moment, she did not take the initiative to touch Nanchi. It was just Nanchi curling Su Muyao's body with his snake tail. The snake could feel every inch of her body's burning breath even if it didn't move at the moment. In the cool, dark fragrance, Su Muyao felt that she was wrapped in his scent all around her. At this moment, Nanchi's gentle and picturesque brows seemed to have ink-colored spring swirling around a hint of darkness. His voice was gentle with a hint of darkness. Wife master, still hot? Feeling better? As he spoke, he stretched out his bony, jade-like delicate fingers and tenderly straightened her messy hair. The broken hair was even more gently pinned behind her ear. It was just that his fingers were extremely sensitive where they touched his ears. Su Muyao be no predecessor kind of behavior. So even though her hand was gently trembling at this moment, she did not take the initiative to touch Nanchi. It was just Nanchi curling Su Muyao's body with his snake tail. The snake could feel every inch of her body's burning breath even if it didn't move at the moment. In the cool, dark fragrance, Su Muyao felt that she was wrapped in his scent all around her. At this moment, Nanchi's gentle and picturesque brows seemed to have ink-colored spring swirling around a hint of darkness. His voice was gentle with a hint of darkness. Wife master, still hot? Feeling better? As he spoke, he stretched out his bony, jade-like delicate fingers and tenderly straightened her messy hair. The broken hair was even more gently pinned behind her ear. It was just that his fingers were extremely sensitive where they touched his ears. Sumuya had no predecessor kind of behavior. So even though her hand was gently trembling at this moment, she did not take the initiative to touch Nanchi. It was just Nanchi curling Sumuya's